Hey, welcome to the Crash Space Grid. This is the first ever stream. We're sneaking out here on a Friday night. Hopefully y'all are doing well and hopefully everything sounds okay. This is an entirely new setup and I'm just like anxious to get it out there to see if everything works. Hopefully I'll have a nice Friday evening. Daojin, how's it going? New stream, welcome. We're gonna be playing some Marvel Champions tonight just to figure this out. I have never done like a card game playing thing with a microphone in my way, and I don't know how that's gonna work, but we're gonna find out. I think it's gonna be okay. But Shanks, also, how's it going? Marvel Champions hype. Yeah, that's what we're gonna be doing today. So for those who don't know, this is the stream setup that I normally do the match ball grid. And now we have this table set up with a camera currently is twisted. So in a way that we can play some solo content. And for those who don't know, I spend a fair bit of time playing Marvel Champions. It's like my go-to solo card game. I do also play 2 players with Maddie. Just about anytime a new box comes out, we sit back and sit down and do the whole campaign, which is really fun. But we're expecting a new box to come out. It might have came out today in your area. I'm not sure. It didn't come out here in Canada. I don't think it came out in the States, so we're holding off. But we still have, this is the first ever box they put out, and I'm a huge fan. Now, notably, we are streaming off Wi-Fi. I forgot to plug in the computer, so I have no idea if this is going to hold, what that's going to look like, but we'll see how this stream goes. Again, this stream is just to hang out, to have fun, and get any sort of like technical feedback, see what works and what doesn't work, whether I can actually have this camera, or this microphone in my way. Hey Lucy, how's it going? Yo, Crash Space Stream, how you doing? How's your late Friday night? Hopefully you've been doing well. Okay, in the chat, has anybody played Marvel Champions? Because I think also this is going to just be naturally like a bit of a rules explanation of how this game works. It is another Fantasy Flight Games LCG, has the same sort of model where you can buy stuff and you get everything, you get full play sets. It's really quite good. The way that the card game plays out, it's kind of like Flesh and Blood or Slay the Spire, which is a really satisfying loop where every turn you draw a new hand and then you can't play all the cards in your hand. So you have to figure out what's the puzzle this turn, and then you draw a new hand, and then the enemies go against you and you go back and forth. And it's really quite fun. Specifically, this game does also have, like, a lot of people just play Marvel Champions as like standalone scenarios where they just pull out their favorite villain and they pull out their favorite hero and they play those against each other. And there's a lot of modularity that you can make like scenarios that make sense for you. I actually play the campaign mode more often than not, which in terms of it being a campaign mode, it's nothing really like Arkham Horror that has like upgrading decks and experience and different branching narratives. You don't really have that, but generally each box that you pick up has like 5 scenarios that are technically connected in terms of a story. And then each box has a different way of implementing some sort of campaign mechanics where your decisions or the outcomes of one scenario affect the second scenario and so on and so forth. It's nothing like Arkham. If you're looking for something you can really invest yourself into with like 8 different stories and twisting endings, it's totally different, but it does just give you some progression and allows you to play 5 villains in a row, which is generally quite good. It's good. I spent the whole day programming Tone Positive. Nice. You working on something in particular, like a self project, or the just up on the NRO? So today, in honor of the S.H.I.E.L.D box that's meant to have come out by this point in time, we are playing Hawkeye. I have this set up, if I'm not mistaken, so we can pull up all the cards, and it should be relatively easy to pull up all the cards. So I can show you all the card text on everything that comes up. So we're going to be playing Hawkeye, who is technically an Avenger hero. This is what a hero card looks like. Heroes have like 4 main stats usually. They have hit points at the bottom, that's 9. I have this dial here to track my hit points. I think at some point I need to do like a digital number underneath my face, just so it's more evident, because that number is really important. But we start with 9 health, which is the lowest of any hero. As much as there's a bunch of 9 health heroes, 9 is pretty bad. You also then have 3 stats. You have your thwart, which is how good you are at disrupting schemes and the like bad things that are happening that are not just like combat stuff. You have your attack stat, which is how much damage you do when you attack someone. And then you have your defense, which is how good you're at blocking things. So if somebody attacks you, you can defend and you reduce your damage by your defense stat. Hawkeye is pretty bad in most everything. Like a 1-2-1 stat distribution is just remarkably bad. And just for context, Hawkeye is considered a pretty bad hero in general in Marvel Champions. I just think he's neat. Like, this is the guy with the bow and arrow, just kind of goofy. He's actually kind of a lot of fun, but he's not incredibly powerful. So if we just totally beef it, we have like the best excuse waiting for us. Yo, Tron, how's it going? How's your Friday? Welcome to the new like solo setup, which we're going to be playing through some Marvel Champions and just seeing like how things work and what kind of problems we're going to run into. Hawkeye's pretty bad at everything. Yeah, that's true about Hawkeye most of the time. Yeah, his arrows are cool. Like, he plays kind of like a toolbox deck. It's all about shooting arrows, and it's like the sort of Batman idea. Like, some arrows confuse people, some arrows stun people, some arrows disrupt things. And it's just like trying to operate your toolbox at the right time as elegantly as possible, which is just kind of a fun challenge. Thwack. Zero. Kyle, how you doing? NRO, I got the full beta server today and people played the first full system gateway game, PD versus Zaya, and there was only a single simulation error. Unique rule applied incorrectly to derezzed. Whoa, that's pretty sick. Congratulations. Excited to wind down watching some Marvel Champions. The only content of this I've consumed was your one Marvel Champions stream ages ago while we were waiting for RWR. Yeah, I did one Marvel Champions stream on April 1st, if I'm not mistaken, it's the April Fools. And actually, it's a very similar deck to what we're playing today because Hawkeye is just my most played. And I was just stressed about getting all this ready. I didn't have like a cool deck to show off. I'm just like, I'll pull out Hawkeye. Yeah, it was April Fools, which like makes a lot of sense. That's mostly what Hawkeye is. So this is going to start. Our villain we're playing against is Crossbones. There's technically a narrative about, I honestly don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen the narrative, but we're going to be playing Crossbones as a first villain. Generally, at this point, I only play on expert difficulty. Standard difficulty is relatively easy, if you ask me. The more that you have of a bigger card pool, and the more you like know card games. So if you're a Netrunner player or play other card games, generally I think this game comes off as relatively easy at the beginning. I still think things get really hard and really interesting. If you play the first original core set of Marvel Champions, which is actually a really good core set, there's a chance that you thought the game was too simple. And let me tell you, the designs of the heroes got a lot more interesting. Specifically, we're right at the beginning of a new wave, which seemed to be like homages to the original wave and revisiting them with like years and years of understanding of designing new heroes. So I'm really excited for this. Yo, Eric, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Everything's kind of set up. My camera color is a bit weird, but like the microphones here, the lights are okay. Like we're trying it out and see how it goes. I'm assuming headless NRL can be a thing. How long until Netrunner Stockfish? So this is Crossbones. Crossbones, villains have like similar stats as much as they don't defend. So they have Scheme, which is basically if you're not in your hero form, that's a really good thing about Marvel Champions is that you're either in your hero form or your alter ego form. It's kind of like playing Hoshiko. You can flip and it's your choice once per turn to flip. The thing is, if you're cool Clint Barton in your car, you're not going to be fighting anybody. You can't play half the cards in your deck because you can't use your bow and arrow. You can't do any like heroic stuff, but there's cool things you can do in your alter ego form. However, the villain is going to exist whether you're in your cool car or whether you're bowman, regardless of what you're doing. The difference is how the villain interacts at the beginning of the villain phase. If you're in a hero form, the villain will try and attack you and it'll do 1 damage plus you take a top card off the counter deck and add symbols equal to the number of things in the bottom right corner. So some variable damage from 1 to up to like 4 or sometimes 5. That's cool. But if you're cool Clint Barton in his red Chimera or whatever, instead they scheme, which is they do their scheme stat plus a random boost off the top of the deck, and they do that, they add that sort of threat to the main scheme, and generally if the main schemes get too much threat, you lose the game or the story advances in a bad way. So there's like 2 kind of things you're always dealing with, either not dying because damage is a problem or not getting schemed out where there's too much threat and then there's other issues. So this game has 2 angles of attack. It's kind of like, I guess in Arkham, how there's also clues, but there's also damage. Both of them are relevant. You can't win by only not doing damage and not getting clues. You'll kind of figure it out. It's kind of like Hoshiko. It's really kind of like Hoshiko. Also, for what it's worth, Marvel Champions when you play solo is relatively different than when you play 2+ players. Because when you're solo, you're the only target there. When you have 2 players, it's really easy for someone to be like, I'm going to go back to alter ego mode to recover while you stay in hero mode. And so the villain like kind of divides their attention. Solo can be a bit unforgiving because if you're in alter ego, the villain's just going to scheme and you can just lose the turn if the villain schemes twice because of the counter deck. This, you'll see what it means, but solo mode, it's much harder to like flip back and forth like Hoshiko because you're the sole target. And there's just a lot of board states where it is just not the right play to go to alter ego because the villain will just scheme out and you have to watch out for that. Do you have a punch and view of, can you call up all the cards? I can call up all the cards. So I made this thing I call Cerebro, in which I can type in the name of any card really. And then I can pull it up. Oh, well, there you saw it pull up. So we can basically see all the cards. So whenever I pull a new card from the deck, I'll show you what the card text is so you can follow at home. This is Clint, mind you, the alter ego side. He's a shield subtype, which is going to come up because we're playing a shield deck. And it says weapon of choice. Actually, technically, this is hard to read. I need to zoom in this camera screen. So I need to pop out the YouTube chat. Give me 1 second. This is why we do this, so we can learn how this works. Pop out chat. Okay, then I can have chat. And then I just need to make this preview screen as big as possible because I don't need the YouTube thing. Yeah, something like this, maybe. I can read that. Hold on. Yeah, I can read that. So, weapon of choice. As an action, you can spend a resource of any type. That is the thing that you use to pay costs to search your deck and discard pile for Hawkeye's bow and add it to your hand. So basically you can always grab your bow. If you lose your bow, you can grab it again as long as you're an alter ego. This is a super unexciting alter ego action. A lot of the new heroes have alter ego actions that you actually flip down to do. This is the sort of action that in some things you only do on turn 1, like click 1, turn 1, you do this, and then you just forget about it because you don't drop your bow. Your bow is super important. This is a nice looking board. We have Pat's playmat, my playmat. I don't know, usually play on playmats when I do Marvel Champions, but these are here. And I think it technically looks better than just like the brown table. Actually, maybe not. The brown table is kind of sick. It's easier to pick up cards though. So I think at some point I'll get a plain aesthetic playmat like the Neon Static folks do. But yeah, this is Clint. Okay, so how it sets up. We're going to do scenario 1. We're just going to dive in. In theory, you can read through this book and it gives you a little story with the comic book and it tells you how to set things up. You don't actually need this largely. The back of the encounter cards, so this is Crossbones. We're going to be playing on standard, so we have to defeat Crossbones 1. And on the other side, I've sleeved it, is Crossbones 2. If you play on harder difficulty, you have to do Crossbones 3, and once you defeat Crossbones 2, and once you defeat Crossbones 2, you go to Crossbones 3. Each higher number generally has worse text on it, bigger stats, bigger health pool, so we're only doing 1 and 2, which is relatively simple. Now, this is the main scheme, and there's actually 3 of these schemes. We'll pull this up really quickly. I think I have this here. It's called Attack on Mount Athena, and this is the first scheme tells you how to set up. So what cards you need to put together to make the deck. So the contents are 1 and 2, 2 and 3 if you're playing Expert. We need the Experimental Weapons deck, and then it says to take 3 different encounter sets alongside the standard encounter set. And it recommends which encounter sets to use. So it's telling us to use Hydra Patrol, Weapons Master, and Legions of Hydra. And that's because narratively those make sense. That's also because they come in the same box. But each of these are encounter sets, kind of like if you played Arkham Horror. So a collection of cards that work together that have a similar theme. The cool thing about Marvel Champions is you can be pretty modal about this. So if you want to add in like some Spider-Man villains and something about a bomb scare and there's a flood going on and an armadillo on the loose, you can choose to make this encounter deck do whatever you want it to do. They want you to always put the same number, and generally people have an idea like these encounter sets are good trades for one another because they have the same amount of minions and the same amount of schemes, so you can make something that's like a bit what you'd expect. This is also a thematic deck to some extent because Crossbones like benefits naturally off of weapons, and this deck has a bunch of weapons in it. So this is a cool thing about this game, that you can actually make the game as difficult and as interesting and tell whatever stories you want, which is not something you see in Arkham Horror, which is cool. Oops, dinosaurs. Yeah, I've done that a fair bit. You just insert dinosaurs into things. We were talking about your keyboard. Oh, this. Yes, this is old. The Bluetooth doesn't work that well. It is an AnPro 2. No, it's an AnPro 1. The AnPro 2 exists. These are custom keycaps. I built this a long time ago. By like built, I mean it came like this and I changed the keycaps. Its Bluetooth is like a bit dodgy, where if it loses Bluetooth, I have to restart my computer for it to reconnect. So not a strong recommend, but it's fine. Okay. Next thing that we do is we're going to take all of the standard encounter set. We're technically playing with something called Standard 3 that came in later. I'll show you what these cards do, but you always play with a standard set that just has some base effects that can come up from the encounter deck. Things like the villain attacks you, the villain schemes, discard an upgrade or an asset, stuff like that. And these always go into the deck. And then depending on what hero you have, you always add their obligation to the deck. So the obligation that we have here, that didn't work, is Criminal Past. This is Clint Barton's obligation, and when anybody draws it from the deck, it goes to Clint, and then you have to make a decision. The early obligations are really simple. They're either you go to Alter Ego and exhaust yourself, which basically means that turn you can't do that many things, or you can throw at Hawkeye's bow, because it's evidence. I'm not entirely sure. But there's always, for every hero, you have at least one obligation to the deck, and it will pop up and do something bad to you. So we're going to shuffle this up. I'm going to do a pile shuffle. I feel like when you stream games like this, you have to be like really clear you're shuffling. I'm not sure if people are out there saying like, you're not shuffling, everything's rigged, but like, I guess. I feel really out of breath. I think I'm just stressed doing a new thing. But there's no way this can go wrong besides the fact that the microphone is like really obstructing part of the play space that I would describe as being relatively important. Okay. So we're going to pile sort that. We're going to pile shuffle it. And then we're going to put it aside. There's this card here. It's part of Standard 3. I'll explain that when it comes up. Even if it was rigged, I wouldn't care all that much. Like, imagine I set up the scenario and it's just like so unbelievably cool. Okay. Next, we return to Attack on Mount Athena. Wrong pedal. I'll figure this out. It says create the experimental weapons deck and set it next to the main scheme deck. The experimental weapons, there's 4 of them. To make the experimental weapons deck, you just shuffle them together. And the scenario will tell you randomly to like grab one of these and attach it to Crossbones. Whichever experimental weapons we add to Crossbones, he technically steals them from some armory, and they will be added to the campaign pool. So if immediately he gets power gauntlets, every villain we're going to fight in this campaign is going to have power gauntlets. So it's one of the things that you have to remember. So we'll just build the deck and put it to the side. Another big thing about this test is to figure out where the glare is, because I've no doubt we might have some glare issues, because lighting sleeved cards is such a pain in the ass with an overhead camera. The lights in the room above me have to be turned off because they're directly above and they glare at like the whole center. So we'll figure out if it works or not. Zero people think you're rigging the game. Just you wait to see how good I'm going to be, Eric. Once you've done this, you flip it over, and then we're on Attack at Mount Athena, side B. which this is our first main scheme. Some scenarios only have one scheme. This is kind of like acts or agendas in Arkham Horror if you played them. But if this card advances, we just go to the next one. If that one advances, we generally go to the third one. So the first one, we can fail it. It'll be okay. And this one's actually really easy to fail because in the top left corner, it tells you how much threat can be placed on this before it advances. That little kind of like meeple means per player. So if there's three threat on this because there's only one player, this will actually advance and go to the next one, which is a very low threshold. You'll see schemes that have like 12 or 16. That's really big. 3 is basically them saying we're expecting this to go through at some point. It says Crossbones is leading an army of Hydra soldiers in direct assault on the Project Pegasus facility in the Adirondack Mountains. When revealed, reveal the top card of the experimental weapons deck. So we've shuffled these up. Is it best at 2 players, same as Arkham? I play a heck of a lot of this at solo. I think there's a chance it is better at 2 players. I do think there's a huge chance of that. I like this as a solo game because it's really easy for me to pick up and put down and just like kind of jam. You can play 2-handed, but the game is probably balanced around 2 players. I wouldn't recommend this game at 3 or 4 players that much because the numbers just get really, really big because all the villains have like 20 health per player and then you just have 60 health and it just like takes a while. And then you're not doing much not on your turn and the turn orders are a bit more prescribed. It's not like Arkham Horror where you can like depend and be flexible. So it's okay. Yo, Rohit, how's it going? Welcome to stream. So the card that we drew randomly is called Energy Shield. We attach it to the villain. The villain is going to get Retaliate 1. Retaliate is a status. These tokens I bought separately from an Etsy store. I don't know where. If you ask me, I can look it up. It's just a reminder text. And Retaliate basically says every time that you hit the villain with an attack, it'll do 1 damage back because it has Retaliate 1. It's kind of like Thorns or whatever you expect in any other game. Now, there's a hero action here, which this is getting ahead of things, but you can spend those 2 kinds of resources, so an energy resource and a science resource. I've played hundreds and hundreds of hours of this game. I have played 1,000 games of Marvel Champions. I still don't know what the types of the names of the resources, the same way that if you ask me about Arkham Horror, I'll call it Fist and Willpower and like Book. Like, I don't know the names of them. They're not important. Invent your own language. So as a hero action, we can spend those 2 kinds of resources. There's only 3 kinds of resources and wild resources to discard this card. So we want to get rid of the energy shield. It's just going to take us a bit of time. That's it. Attack on Mount Athena comes in with 0 starting threat. That's the 0 in the bottom. And every round, it will add 1 threat on its own. So if we never clear any threat and the villain never schemes, this thing will advance in 3 rounds. So we just have to make sure that we don't let that happen unless we want it to happen. Now, Crossbones 2. We looked at some of these numbers, schemes for 1, attacks for 1. It says, well, Crossbones has a weapon attachment, and technically this experimental weapon is a weapon. His attacks gain piercing, and then has reminder text that piercing just goes through tough statuses. Tough is like Divine Shield. Is basically saying the next attack does no damage to you and just takes the tough off, and Crossbones will pierce through tough. That shouldn't matter. Clint Barton's not a tough character. It's not going to interact with toughs, but that's still a thing. At the bottom, it also says hit points 12 per player, so we're going to mark that. This game comes with these like sort of dials just like this that I'm using. For villains and for enemies, I just put dice and then just do base 5, and I find it a lot easier to interact with. So we're going to put 12 health here. If that's not clear to like how much health that this character has, this is another thing I have to do with an overlay. So I'm glad we're testing it. And this is attached to them. I did play one game of this at 4 players and I remember like not having an idea what anyone else at the table was doing. Yeah, not my favorite 4-player game. I've done it once. I've taught a 4-player game of it where I didn't play and I had an okay time doing that. But yeah, I wouldn't do that much more. Excuse me, it's foot. I think it's agility. I'm not sure if it's might or fight. Book is probably intellect, but that just sounds wrong. And I know it's willpower, but I don't know also half the symbols. Like I called a fish face symbol in Arkham. Tablet, I think is correct. Does anybody know the name of the Arkham attributes? Is agility? Those are boots. Yeah, I call it foot. It's definitely foot. Okay, now we'll explain how the game works. First thing we do is we draw up to our hand size. So if I'm not mistaken, Clint Barton has 6 hand size in Alter Ego. So that means at the start of every turn, if you're in Alter Ego, you'll draw up to 6. Almost every single Alter Ego character in the game has 6, unless you're like Hulk, which is kind of a sad excuse. So we draw 6 cards and we can mulligan. It's going to be hard to show you every single card on the overlay, but again, we're going to see what this looks like. So we draw 6 cards. I'll just shuffle up real quick and draw 6. Again, our goal here is to defeat Crossbones. Once we do 12 damage, Crossbones will flip to Crossbones 2, which will have his health will reset. He'll have new abilities and stats and stuff. And then we have to defeat Crossbones 2. 12 damage is actually not a lot, but this is not the most difficult scenario. It's the first scenario of the first box. The first box is pretty easy, and I'm going to say that and still get clobbered, so who knows. All right, so we draw 6 cards and we can do a partial mulligan. Notably, we drew Hawkeye's bow, which is not bad. Technically, we can get this by spending a resource using our basic alter ego action to go grab it from the discard or the deck. So we could discard this, but it's fine. It saves us a resource. That's okay. We have these 2 cards here called Clear the Area that are taking scheme or taking threat off of schemes. Currently, there's only 1 scheme and has no threat, so we don't really need these. We have an ally. Allies are really, really important. Again, things will make more sense once we start playing the game, but Agent Coulson here is a justice ally. Notably, kind of, actually not at all like Arkham or not all like Netrunner. When you build a hero deck, you have to play the hero, and then there's 15 cards that are unique to the hero itself. So for instance, Hawkeye's bow, you can tell, is a Hawkeye card because it has Hawkeye's face in the bottom right corner, and it's like the sort of purple and black. It's also Hawkeye card 1 out of 15. And this is one of my favorite things about Marvel Champions that's not like Arkham. When you build an Arkham hero, or sorry, you build an Arkham deck, you have that character and maybe like 2 unique cards in the deck, sometimes more, obviously a unique weakness. But this deck is actually like nearly half of it is Hawkeye cards, which means that every single deck you play actually plays relatively different. And I think that's one of the most like compelling parts of this game is that seeing how the designers took a fictional superhero and made their mechanics into gameplay mechanics. And I really like that. Now, the other 25 cards, we can choose what cards those are in our deck. Minimum deck size is 40, maximum is 50. You generally don't want to do that much more than 40. And so you can always play neutral cards, which are these sort of gray cards. But also you can pick one aspect and then play as many cards from that aspect. And there's 4 aspects. There's protection, which is the green aspect. It's good at blocking and protecting people. There's aggression, which is red. It wants to do a lot of damage. There's leadership, that's blue, that wants to get a lot of allies on the table and kind of reinforce building a huge team. And then there's justice, which is about getting threat off of things. So our deck is a yellow deck, so all our cards are going to be Hawkeye cards, all 15 of them. We're going to have a bunch of basic cards, because basic cards are actually very good in this game. Imagine those like neutral cards in Netrunner. And then we have the yellow cards, which are justice cards. So our deck is focused on justice. Have you watched the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show? Nah, I've actually I'm not a huge Marvel head. I've only seen like maybe half of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I read some comics back in the day, but I'm not I haven't watched any of the TV shows. It's not a thing I know a lot about. Mind you, there's an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. box that's coming out today or in the next couple of weeks, which actually looks really, really cool. I'm not a Marvel guy, but that show was really, really fun after the first terrible season. Is it shuffle back on the deck empty like Arkham? Yes. So this game actually has massive card vault, which is one of the coolest things. So every turn, you generally are going to empty it, and then you draw back up to, which is usually 5 if you're in hero or 6 if you're in an alter ego. And that's really important because you will draw through your deck multiple times in most games. Once you bottom out, there's a small penalty. You just take an extra encounter card to draw during the encounter card phase, but you will go through your deck This is also a really important thing in this game. I really like this is that unique allies like Agent Coulson has a diamond next to his name, right? No, now I have no connection. Hold on. Hi, we're working on this right now. I think we might be back up. Let me just see if things are better. Chat, you might be able to hear me perfectly now. I think things are better. In the downtime, I got off Wi-Fi and I plugged in a cable, so it looks like we might be better. Yeah, back for me. Okay, cool. When I started the stream, I forgot to plug in a cable and I was on Wi-Fi, so I'm hoping this is better. But again, these are the sort of things we're testing. Works now. Fantastic. Thank you. Huge feedback. Huge. Okay, I forget where I was. It's fine. We'll get through it. There we go. We're back. Please repeat everything from my question onwards. We're going to just figure out our mulligan here. So we have a bunch of yellow cards. These yellow cards generally are dealing with removing threat. I'm just going to get rid of them. You'll see how the mulligan works. Again, we will cycle through our deck a couple times, and every time we cycle through the deck, it'll get a bit faster. You're going to be drawing through your deck a couple times. So we're going to keep Hawkeye's bow. We're also going to keep this thing called build support. This is a type of card that was called, called a player scheme. These were introduced much later in the history of the game. I think they're kind of really cool. So I just tried to search build script as in it's a Netrunner card, but this is a player scheme. So it's something you can play on the table, and it goes here like another scheme, and it comes in with 3 threat per player. But then when you complete it, something good happens. So it gives you an additional objective, which is maybe a nice way to use some of these cards that we have. Actually, let's try and do that. Let's keep one of these things that removes threat because we're going to play the build support, and we'll try and clear it. We'll see how that works. Okay, so we have a 6 hand size. So I'm going to keep 3 and discard 3. Notably, these cards will not be shuffled back. So I'm not going to see these cards again until the first cycle of the deck. That is not a big problem, but technically the faster you get through the deck, the sooner you get an extra encounter card, but whatever. So we get Field Agent, we get Hawkeye's Quiver. That is incredible. This is one of the most important cards in Hawkeye, and we have Hawkeye's unique ally, Mockingbird. Notably, most hero kits come with a unique ally. I think this is his partner, his wife. I think this is someone important in Hawkeye's life. She's very good because she's really good at blocking. When the villain initiates an attack, you can spend a resource to cancel that attack and basically return her to your hand. So as long as you can play her over and over again, which is actually something we want to do because we're a S.H.I.E.L.D synergy deck and we get good stuff happening whenever we play S.H.I.E.L.D cards, this is really good. This might be expensive right now. Notice at this point in time, you've probably noticed that in the top right corner of the cards, that's the cost. So she costs 3 resources. Now to explain how resources work in this game, because the game is going to start and it goes straight into our turn. So what you can do on your turn is basically play all of your cards. Each card has a cost, and to play a card, you have to generate resources to afford that card. So let's say, for instance, we want to play Hawkeye's Bow. Hawkeye's Bow costs 0, so it's easy to play Hawkeye's Bow, and it's just on the table. Fantastic. We have installed this. This card is restricted. You can only have 2 restricted cards. It represents like weapons. You can't just carry too many weapons. And your hero gets +1 attack, and each of your arrows gain ranged, each of our arrow attacks. So we'll find arrows eventually. I'm going to put this +1 next to my identity to remember that. So that's going to be important. And this is now a card on the table. This is an upgrade. Upgrades are permanent cards. There's upgrades and there's supports. Those are cards that you go on the field and they just build your character up. There's only a very small technical difference between upgrades and supports, but imagine them like hardware or resources. They just sit on the table and they do stuff. You also have allies that can come and go and they can block for you and they can do things. And then you have events, which are, as you imagine, events. They get played and they go to your discard pile. Now, the next card I'm going to play here is going to be Hawkeye's Quiver, and this card specifically costs 1 resource. So how do you generate resources? By throwing out other cards in your hand. So Hawkeye's Quiver costs 1, it's an upgrade, so if I want to play it, I have to generate 1 resource. You also notice in the bottom left corner of Hawkeye's Quiver, there's like this blue kind of sign symbol. That means if I discard Hawkeye's Quiver, it generates 1 resource, and technically the resource is of the science type. Inherently, there is no rules text that cares about the 3 kinds of resources. There is science, there's energy, and there's might. So it's like blue, yellow, and red. Kind of like flesh and blood, but not really. They have no mechanical difference. There's just certain cards, and it's very not particularly common, that will ask for certain resources of certain types. But naturally, I can discard any card that can generate a resource to play this card that cost 1. Notably, 99% of the cards make 1 resource when you discard them. There are certain cards in the game that will actually have 2 icons in the bottom left corner and they will generate more resources. But again, like 90%, 95% of the cards in this deck, in the game, only generate 1 resource. So it's basically saying, if I want to play Hawkeye's Quiver, what card in my hand do I not want to play? And I'm just going to throw out Mockingbird because she's really expensive. She costs 3 and I'm not going to play her. Now, what does this Quiver do? Big digital logjam. Eric, did something bad happen again? So this says you may play arrow events attached to this card, and I can take a hero action to exhaust Hawkeye's Quiver. Notably, I use these retro tokens to go here. These are old Netrunner tokens. And if I exhaust it, I denote it by flipping this token down. Some people tap their cards. I find this is easier to do. And this means once per turn, as long as I'm a hero, I can exhaust this to search the top 5 cards on my deck for an arrow and attach it to this card. So that's how I set up arrows. That's going to be pretty good. I didn't plan out the rest of my turn. Actually, I'm a resource short here. I'm a resource short. That's a bummer. We're not going to be able to do what I wanted to do. Video hung and playback very fast. Okay, hopefully that gets better. The signal here seems to be okay. Now that I'm pretty sure I moved to the wired internet. I'm like not 100% sure. There's a chance I'm still on Wi-Fi. How would I check that really quickly? Internet settings? Because it says Wi-Fi settings. I hope I'm not on the Wi-Fi. I'm going to turn off Wi-Fi. This might crash the stream. So I'm actually not going to do that. We'll hope for the best. Let me know if it holds on or not. Excuse me. All right. It's going okay. Hey, Bob. How's it going? So on our turn, we can play our cards. Another thing that you're allowed to do once per turn is you can flip forms of your identity. So right now we're in an alter ego, and the alter ego can't do much. The only thing the alter ego can do inherently is it can recover. So recover means I can exhaust my alter ego to recover 3 because that's Clint Barton's recovery stat. That means I can exhaust, so that's a once per turn thing, and then I can heal 3 health of my up to my 9 hit points. Currently I'm at full health, so obviously that doesn't make a lot of sense on turn 1. So every round you're allowed to flip your hero. You're allowed to go from alter ego to ego or ego to alter ego. And so I just called it ego, that's fine. Now we're gonna be Hawkeye. And now we have access to all the cool things heroes can do. Firstly, we have that action that Hawkeye has, which is exhaust Hawkeye to ready Hawkeye's bow. So the bow is something that I need to exhaust to fire arrows. So if I exhaust Hawkeye by flipping this token, I can shoot 2 arrows in a turn. Also, every hero can exhaust to do a basic action. So here, Hawkeye can exhaust to take 1 threat off of his scheme. That's because he has 1 thwart stat. He can attack any enemy he has reached into to do 2 damage. So I can exhaust Hawkeye to do 2 damage to Crossbones and start working on his health. He does have retaliate, so I'll take a damage back. And then technically at any point that Hawkeye is going to be attacked, I can exhaust Hawkeye to defend 1, and that will prevent 1 damage from that attack. That last one's a really bad use of Hawkeye because he's not very good at defending. There's a lot of heroes that will mostly defend because they're defense type heroes. So currently I might use Hawkeye to attack. It's actually for 3 damage, not 2, because I have this +1 here because I played Hawkeye's bow. But that's largely how you can use your hero. You can exhaust your hero or your alter ego once per turn to do one of their basic actions. Heroes have 3 actions, alter egos usually have 1 action, and you can always flip from alter ego to hero or vice versa once per turn. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to use my hero action on the Hawkeye's quiver, which I can exhaust this and allows me to search the top 5 cards of my deck for an arrow, and I can attach it to the quiver, and I can use that card whenever I can shoot an arrow. So we have cable arrow. It's an arrow. All the arrows have like the same sort of structure. They can only be shot by exhausting the bow, so 1 arrow per turn unless I exhaust Hawkeye. This costs 1 to shoot, and it removes 3 threat from a scheme, ignoring crisis icons, which are a thing that might show up. This arrow is maybe useful later, not useful now because there's no threat on schemes. We're at 0 right now and there's only 1 scheme. The other arrow I have is explosive arrow, which is kind of the AoE arrow. It does 3 damage, but it deals 3 damage to the villain and each minion engaged with that player. So if there's a bunch of minions on the table, I can use this on a rainy day to just start wiping the board. That's really cool. I think I'm just gonna take the explosive arrow for now and just attach it to the quiver. These cards, anytime you search your deck, you have to shuffle them, so I'm not going to know the order of the deck. Excited for the stream, but might have to catch the VOD of it. Hey, no worries. This is just a Friday night stream. We're just hanging out. There's going to be like technical issues, so no big stress at all. All right. Notably, I also have ranged. I realized on Hawkeye's bow. Hawkeye's bow, I'm going to pull up every single card on the basis that I'm reckoning a lot of folks don't know Marvel Champions. My hero gets +1 attack, and each of your, only my arrow attacks get ranged. And range just means I ignore retaliate because I'm not actually fighting, close up. And that means I don't have to deal with the retaliate, which, whatever. Okay, so we have a couple options here. One of the things I can do is I can do the hero action on Energy Shield, which makes me spend an energy and a mental or a science resource to remove that card. That's an option. Another thing I can do is I can just keep that there and I can play one of my cards because these are all 1-cost cards. And I think I'm actually going to do that. I want to put my build support into play. So build support is this player side scheme that comes in with 3 threat per player. And if I clear that, I get to grab an upgrade from my deck and play it for free, as long as the upgrade costs 3 or less, which is a lot of like click compression, if you want to call it that. Now, I haven't used my arrow. I could technically shoot this explosive arrow for 1 resource, pitching my last card. It does 3 damage, but it doesn't do its cool effect. So actually, no, you know what would have been better? I think I definitely messed this up. I'm going to retcon this really quickly. Is that instead I'm going to grab the cable arrow instead of the explosive arrow, because I can shoot the cable arrow this turn and clear the build support, which is definitely going to be the play here. So, cable arrow says, as an action, I have to pay 1, so I'll exhaust my last card. It says, exhaust Hawkeye's bow, remove 3 threat from a scheme, ignoring any crisis icon. So I'll remove 3 threat from the build support, which lets me do the build support. And the build support says, when defeated, it has victory 0, so it's not going to go into my discard pile. It's going to add to the victory display. Technically, it doesn't do anything, but I can search my deck for a support card with cost 3 or less and put it into play. Undo click. Very much so. So I have some pretty okay supports. I want to look for the most expensive support that is 3 or less. I think I have the Helicarrier was going to hit that bill. I could also do the Sky Destroyer, which sounds pretty frightening. I like that too. The Helicarrier is a card that allows you to set up quickly. It's kind of like a relatively generic staple. It just says that the first card or a card you play per turn reduce the cost by 1. So these are the sort of board states that you can build up a lot of these things and then just like, things get cheaper. It functionally increases your hand size. It's nice to get one of those early. The other option is a shield card called Sky Destroyer, which is expensive, but once per turn, after I play a shield card, I can exhaust this to just do 2 damage to an enemy. So it just gets nuked from orbit. This is not an attack, which is nice because it beats Retaliate, but those are my 2 choices. I think I'm just going to play it safe and get the Helicarrier, which just gives me 1 resource a turn. I definitely could have planned this turn better because I could have used this Helicarrier resource maybe for something else, maybe playing the Quiver. No, because I needed the Quiver, but yeah, that's how this game works. All right, I still have Hawkeye. I'm going to get attacked this round, which Hawkeye's really bad at blocking, so Hawkeye's going to take a ton of damage. The only way to really protect Hawkeye is to put allies in front of me and let the allies block the attack, which is kind of cowardly Hawkeye's thing. But I think I'm just going to take an attack. So I'm going to exhaust Hawkeye and do 3 damage. So 12 goes down to 4 or to 9. And because of Retaliate 1, Hawkeye's going to take 1 damage as Retaliate. If you defeat an enemy with Retaliate, you don't take the Retaliate damage as long as there's like complications about how the Retaliate defeat rule works that people are upset about. Generally, if you defeat a minion with Retaliate, you don't take the Retaliate damage if you finish them off. Yo, SRN, how's it going? Now it's my end of my turn. And this game is really simple. There's only 2 phases, either your turn or it's the villain's turn. So now it's the villain's turn. But first what we do is we ready up every single card and we draw back up to our hand size. Notably, one of the cool trade-offs between being a hero and being an alter ego is heroes have smaller hand sizes. So I only drop to 5 cards. And that not only means I have fewer options, but because my cards I pitch to generate resources, I also have less resources. So there's like a really big upside to going and ending your turn in alter ego mode, because not only can you recover and heal down there, but you'll just have a bigger hand. So we're going to draw into Global Logistics, an arrow that confuses. That's going to be pretty good. A Government Liaison. This is a card that allows us to play shield cards cheaper. We have Homeland Intervention, which is a shield support thing. And Expert Marksman, which is a card that generates a resource a turn, but only for arrow events, which is quite nice. Now it's the villain phase. And in the villain phase, you do the same couple of things. Firstly, you put threat on the scheme equal to how much it tells you to. This one says put 1 per player. So there's going to be 1 threat. And again, this scheme will advance once it has 3 threat. Then the villain activates. And when the villain activates, it'll activate. What it will do is dependent on what side of your hero you're on. Because we're in the hero mode, it will attack us. If we were in alter ego mode, the villain would scheme instead and put threat on this thing, which can advance and we can lose the game to that. But it's going to attack us. How much is Crossbones going to attack us for? Well, the card will say. But not only, we have to add a boost card. So Crossbones is going to attack us for 1 plus asterisk. That asterisk will give you reminder text that says, well, Crossbones has a weapon attachment, and he does. His attacks gain piercing. Piercing takes off tough statuses, so we don't have to worry about that. We don't have a tough status, but it's a good reminder. So he's going to do 1 damage plus how many extra equal to how many boost icons are on this card. Before we reveal that card, we can decide whether we want someone to block for us. We can put a minion up front and kind of take the damage for us, which we're going to do a lot because Crossbones is pretty feeble. Or sorry, Hawkeye's pretty feeble. We could also exhaust right now to reduce the damage by 1 by using our defense stat of 1, which is a really bad defense stat. So we're not going to do that. But in dire straits, you will defend 1 because 1 can be the difference between being defeated and not. As soon as our health is reduced to 0, we lose the scenario. That's obviously the fail state, one of the 2 fail states. The other one's all the schemes being completed. But we're just gonna have to take this damage. So it's 1 plus. This card has 2 boost icons in the bottom right corner. Those are those like sort of stars there. That means we take 3 damage. And so we just decrement our health by 3. Crossbones did not like that comment. So we're now on 5. Now the final part, well, technically after the villain activates, if there's any minions engaged with you, all the minions will activate against you. If you're in hero mode, they'll attack you. If you're in alter ego mode, they will scheme and add threat to the main scheme. There's none. And then the last thing you do is you draw an encounter card, 1 per player. And then after you've drawn all the cards, you flip them over. So our encounter card is Sinister Strike. This could be quite bad. No, it's not likely we lose here, but this is going to show you how bad things can get. I should have typed more words than Sinister Strike. So this is from Standard 3. The Standard set has these like basic ideas. And so when revealed, if we're an alter ego, we do something. When revealed in hero, we do something else. So this says place 1 pursuit counter on pursued by the past. Apologies, we're playing with a more complex version of Standard because it's more interesting. I'll explain this later when it comes up. And then it says, if it has any counters on it, which it does, the villain attacks you. So the villain is going to hit us again, which is a problem because the villain's going to attack us for 1 and a card. Once again, we can decide to block with Hawkeye, which will stop 1 damage. Now, I'm pretty sure here we don't die because the boost cards usually only add 3 icons. So the most damage Hawkeye can do to us, knock on wood, barring any effects I'm not aware of in the counter deck, is usually 4 damage because 1 plus 3, that's the worst case. So I'm not going to block and assume that we're going to survive. This has 2 icons on it, so we're going to take 1 plus 2, which is 3 damage. We're down to 2 health already. Again, Hawkeye, pretty small dude. And that's it. That's the whole villain phase, right? It's very much like Slay the Spire. Play your hand, draw a new hand, the villain does a thing to you, then it's back to you. There's not a lot of like faff of things moving around and a lot of things to worry about. That's all it is. Now, it's back to us. All our cards are ready because we didn't exhaust our hero and these are all ready to go. We probably need to go back to Alter Ego because Alter Ego is the only side that we can heal ourselves, and we're going to need to heal ourselves because our hand has no allies, which means that if Crossbones attacks us again, we're in a really bad spot. So we're going to have to fix that. How does who get attacked by each enemy work in multiplayer? So in multiplayer, there's a first player token, and this passes around at the end of the phase. The villain will activate against each player in turn order, starting with the first player, and it will activate on you based off of what form you're in. So if I'm in a hero form and my partner is in alter ego form, it'll attack me and scheme against my partner. I believe Crossbones activates on every hero, then each hero gets their own flipped event card. Yes. And then once the villain has done all of its activations and all of the minions engaged with you have also activated against you, then everyone gets an encounter card, and then you flip the encounter cards in player order that you get with the first player first. In solo, it's super, super simple. So we're going to flip down. I think that's good. It's going to be easy to flip down because we have a Sonic Arrow, and Sonic Arrow is going to show you one of the basic status effects in this game called Confused. This says it costs 2, so it's a bit expensive. It says exhaust Hawkeye's bow to confuse an enemy and deal 3 damage to it, and 5 damage instead if it's already confused. The flavor text says E a lot. Confusion is a status. There's 3 main statuses: stunned, confused, and tough. Tough prevents the next instance of damage. Confused just says, will this show? No, maybe not. Come on now. It's really hard to line this up. Nice try. Oh, that's nauseating. Oh, that's perfect for Confused. Confused basically says the next time this character would thwart, don't. Or would scheme, don't. So if we flip down to Alter Ego, the villain's going to scheme against us. But if they're confused, instead they just discard the Confused token. So that makes it, that's the way that you can flip down to Alter Ego and not just lose the game when you're playing solo. You need to confuse the villain so that the villain's scheme just kind of gets eaten. So what are we going to do? We have the Helicarrier that can reduce the cost of one of our cards. We want to play this that reduces an arrow cost a turn. That's pretty good. We want to not use Hawkeye because when we flip Hawkeye down to Alter Ego, we can exhaust Hawkeye to recover 3. And we're probably gonna have to recover this turn and next turn. So that's what we have to work on. We'll find some allies before that. So we're gonna start like we usually do to get some options. And we're gonna exhaust Hawkeye's quiver to look at the top 5 and look for an arrow and attach that arrow to the quiver. Now, I don't think the arrow we're going to find is going to be better than the arrow that we already have in our hand, but let's grab an electric arrow. Electric arrow is kind of symmetrical to the last arrow we saw, but instead of confusing, it stuns. And stun is the same as confuse, except it's not about scheming, it's about attacking. It says the next time this person would attack, it discards the confuse and it doesn't instead. So stunning is also very important, and it's a nice way that we can stay in hero without getting our head caved in. Because again, Hawkeye, very small man. All right, so that's okay. We're not going to fire that this turn. We can have up to 5 arrows in our quiver. What I'm going to do is I'm going to exhaust the Helicarrier, which says the next card I play has its cost reduced by 1, and I'm going to play Expert Marksman. Expert Marksman is a unique Hawkeye card. There's 2 of them in the deck, so it's not exactly unique, but I'm just saying it's not in anyone else's deck. Expert Marksman. And it just generates a resource once per turn for playing an arrow event. So that's going to make the arrow in our hand cheaper. So if we want to play an arrow, it's going to be 1 to fire this. This leaves us with 2 left over, which is really awkward because we can't do anything with these cards. So that sucks. If that's the case, what we should have done instead, so we'll retcon this, is we're not going to use Helicarrier to pay for Expert Marksman. We're going to just pitch a card. We're going to throw out this Government Liaison. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use, oh, this still runs into the same issue, doesn't it? We'll use the Helicarrier. We'll use the Expert Marksman to generate 2 resources. We'll use Hawkeye's bow, and we'll play from hand the Sonic Arrow. The Sonic Arrow says attack, exhaust Hawkeye's bow, confuse an enemy, and deal it 3 damage. Notably, because this is an arrow, it has range, so we're not going to take Retaliate. So 3 damage puts Crossbones to 6, and we put a confused status on Crossbones. We do not take Retaliate because our arrows have ranged. It's back to us. Oh, this is what we're meant to do. We're not meant to exhaust the Helicarrier. And we're meant to use this card instead. This is what we're trying to do. And the last card we have in our hand is Homeland Intervention. This is a shield card. And as an action, and notably this doesn't say hero action or it doesn't say alter ego action, so we can do it on either side. It says, exhaust up to 3 shield cards you control. Do you hear the police siren going by? Exhaust up to 3 shield cards you control and choose a scheme. Remove 2 threat from the scheme for each card exhausted this way. So we're going to exhaust the Helicarrier, which is a shield card, to remove 2 threat from this. We can only remove 1, but that'll do. And that is how we're going to spend all our cards in our hand. Then, once per turn, we can flip our character. So we're going to flip down to Alter Ego, which means here we can use a recover stat. So we'll exhaust Clint to recover 3, and we're on 5. And that's it. Again, simple. Not stressed about it. Still messing things up, but we'll get there. And now that we're in Alter Ego, our hand size is 6, so we'll draw up to 6 cards. So we have our second Marksman, that's nice to get. We have another Government Liaison. We have Agent 13, who is a S.H.I.E.L.D. spy. We have Quake, who is another S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. We have Monica Chang, so all our allies. And we have an Explosive Arrow, which is that AoE arrow we saw before. Villain's turn. So we know how this works. Firstly, you put threat on the main scheme equal to whatever it says. It's usually 1 per player, usually. Now Crossbones will activate against us. But because Crossbones is confused, he's going to try and scheme against us, but because he's confused, that gets canceled. So doesn't do anything. Then any minions engage with us would do their thing. There's not a lot of minions. And then we're going to draw an encounter card and let it go. Oh, this is not going to be good, I don't think. Regions of Hydra. So this is a side scheme. So it's another thing that's going to have threat on it. That's also going to have text that we have to deal with. This is a really, this side scheme is so ridiculously difficult for how soon it's introduced. I think it's like just about only in the first scenario in this campaign, but this one is incredibly difficult and I don't understand it fully. So Legions of Hydra, firstly, it comes in with 3 threat. That's what that 3 is there. So when we get all the threat off of it, it'll clear. And it says, when revealed, if Madame Hydra is not in play, search the encounter deck and discard pile for Madame Hydra and put her in play, engage with you. Again, I think this one is just so over the curve. I don't know why it's like this. This is Madame Hydra. She has 6 health. She schemes for 2 and attacks for 2, so she's pretty beefy. Again, whenever we do an attack, we can decide whether we want to attack any of the minions on the table or engage with us or the villain. So now there's basically 6 more damage to deal with. And she has a forced response. After Madame Hydra schemes or attacks, place 2 threat on the Legions of Hydra side scheme. So if we don't defeat her, she keeps making the Legions of Hydra stronger and stronger, and that's going to be a problem. Now going back to Legions of Hydra, it says, place 2 additional threat here for every Hydra enemy in play. So it's only coming in with 3, but we're going to be adding more to it because she is a Hydra enemy. And if I'm not mistaken, Crossbones also is a Hydra enemy. So we have to actually put 7 on here if I'm not mistaken. That seems ridiculous. So it's 3 plus 2 threat for each Hydra enemy. So Madame Hydra is +2 and then Crossbones is +2. So this has 7 threat on it. Now this card also has a symbol. You see that plus card symbol? I forget the name of that symbol. I actually don't know the name of it, but what that means is that from now on, every encounter phase that card is on the table, one player, the first player, will draw an additional encounter card. Technically, obviously for single player, I will be drawing every additional encounter card, but until I deal with that, now every encounter phase is going to be largely twice as bad. So I need to clear that, but the only way I can clear that is to get 7 threat off of it, but also I need to defeat Madame Hydra. So we have a lot of work to do suddenly. This is such of a snowball of a card, but we have to get rid of it. It's not acceleration, I don't think. Acceleration is the other one, the one that just gives you the +1 arrow. There's crisis, there's acceleration, and I forget what this one's called. Are ally alter egos a thing, like Quake versus Daisy Johnson? Sometimes, sort of. I think there's some allies that are called personas that are like not heroic entities, but they're not super common. Now, another big thing this game does that I do differently, and I swear it's better, is that when I attack an enemy, what the game tells you to do is if I do 3 damage to Madame Hydra, and mind you, Madame Hydra has 6 health, I would put 3 damage on her, right? But I actually do it the opposite way. When an enemy or a minion or anybody with health comes in play, I'll actually put as much health on them as they have, and then every time I hit them, I will remove health from them. This is going to be confusing if somebody tunes in and they play Marvel Champions because my board state will look different, but that's what I do. Now, technically, they don't tell you to do that because otherwise you need so many tokens because the game only comes with so many cardboard tokens. I just use like D6s. But for me, this is so much clearer because I no longer have to care about that number. I just have to care about the number on it. Because if there's a 3 on here, I have to look, okay, there's 3 damage, but she has 6 max health. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. So I always just like use damage as remove health. Health goes down to 0, which I think is a lot more intuitive. Technically, Arkham Horror doesn't work this way either, but you can make it work that way. I think it is technically more intuitive, but in Arkham Horror, you add damage tokens, and in this you're meant to do the same, but I do it the opposite way and I think it's way better. Okay, that's back to us. Our turn starts. We have a lot of work to do. We definitely want to delete Madame Hydra right away because otherwise every time she schemes and she attacks, Legion of Hydra gets worse and worse and worse for us. That's not good. We have the electric arrow, which can do 3 damage to Madame Hydra, and then if we attack with Clint, that can do 3 more damage. We also can shoot 2 arrows a turn, but the only way to do that is to exhaust Clint, which means if we exhaust Clint to ready our arrow, we can't heal Clint because Clint can only exhaust once per turn. So that's a real big choice here. We also have allies, and we probably should play some of our allies. To show you the allies we have Agent 13, who can be very useful. She's pretty expensive at 4. Costs on cards in this game like scale in really weird ways because your hand size is only so big. Like imagine we were in hero mode, right? And we only draw 5 cards. If I want to play Agent 13 and I don't have cards that generate resources, which most people do, that's your whole hand. Like that's the only card you're playing that turn because it costs 4 and you only have 5 cards in hand. So costs in this game scale in a way that's not super obviously like non-linear, but it's massively non-linear. A 0 cost card, very easy. A 1 cost card, most hands can play a lot of 1 cost cards, but a 4 cost card, that's mostly your entire turn. That being said, when she comes into play, she says after she attacks or thwarts, we choose a shield support and ready that support. So in theory, you can ready the Helicarrier, use it once to reduce the cost of 1 card, then Agent 13 thwarts or something, and then we reduce another card by 1. So that actually is very, very useful. She has 4 health, and the way that allies work is they have their thwarts and they have their attacks just like heroes, and you can exhaust them once per turn to do their effect, thwart or attack a thing. But underneath that thwart or attack, there's like a little starburst icon. That is called the consequential damage. And so every time that I have to use Agent 13 to thwart or attack, she will take 1 damage. So she comes in at 4 health, and then if I thwart, that's once per turn, she's exhausted, and then she'll have 3 health left over because she took the consequential damage. It is such a ridiculous term, consequential damage. Like that doesn't sound great, but it does describe what they're doing. Like they get hurt doing the thing that they're trying to do. But yeah, that is how it works. So in theory, if I never block with Agent 13, I can activate her 4 different times. And generally you want to activate your allies as many times as possible before you send them in to block the hero, or sorry, the villain. All right, we got to plan our turn. This is hard to do everything at once and play well. So what are we going to possibly do? It's like the first time you play Neverner on stream. It's like so difficult because you're worried about so many things. And for someone who's played, again, so much Marvel Champions, I feel like I'm learning for the first time. This is really frightening. So what can we do here? Quake is our cheapest ally. And at the end of the day, what she's going to do is not super important, but she can just block and attack, which is nice. I think our goal this turn is just to defeat Madame Hydra. So an electric arrow does 3 damage. And then if we can't shoot a different arrow, so we either attack with Clint, we attack with Quake, that doesn't do enough damage. So if Quake is for 2, we can play Quake for the Helicarrier and then just 1 card. That leaves us with 4 cards. We can... Electric Arrow is... Oh, Electric Arrow is 3 and stun. I'm thinking of Explosive Arrow. Explosive Arrow is what we want. So we probably do Explosive Arrow and attack with Clint, and that will defeat Madame Hydra. So that's going to cost the Expert Marksman and Explosive Arrow and Clint. And that leaves us with 5 cards in hand. So with 5 cards in hand and the Helicarrier, we should be actually able to play Agent 13. Yeah, we should be able to play Agent 13. I think we can do everything this turn. It's actually not bad. So we're going to stay on 5 health, which is a bit risky, but we're going to put some allies in the way. So we're going to flip up. What we're going to do is we're first going to exhaust the Helicarrier to generate a resource, and we're going to throw out the Liaison, Monica Chang, and Quake to play Agent 13. She comes into play with 4 health. This is how I do it. I'm the only weirdo out here doing this. And now, when we use Agent 13, after she activates, we can unexhaust a shield support, which means we can get our Helicarrier to fire again. Now, we have to work on the Legions of Hydra, that's for sure. That's going to be there for a long time. If we don't deal with it, 7 threat is a lot. So I'm going to exhaust Agent 13 to remove 2 threat from his game, so it drops it down to 5. She takes 1 consequential damage. She's exhausted. We're going to use her response. It's an optional response, but we might as well bring up the Helicarrier. We're then going to use the Helicarrier to generate a resource to play a second Expert Marksman. So now we can generate arrows for free. I'm going to use this Expert Marksman to fire an Explosive Arrow, which says exhaust Hawkeye's bow, deal 3 damage to the villain and each minion engaged with that player. So it drops Madame Hydra to 3 and Crossbones to 3. This is technically not an attack for some reason, so we don't take Retaliate, but our arrows technically do have ranged. Then I'm going to exhaust Hawkeye to do 3 damage, defeating Madame Hydra, and that is going to clear up the board for us. Now, blocking with Agent 13 is actually going to be kind of shit. Oh, we can, and we should just use Hawkeye's quiver to try and see if we can find another arrow. All right, we found the Vibranium arrow. It's one of the expensive arrows, and it does a lot of damage. That's not the right card. And it has piercing. So if something has a tough status, whatever, we'll put it in our quiver. And then we'll shuffle these cards back. All right, we're still not in a great spot because we don't have a lot of health. I don't want to just like straight up block with Agent 13 because she's probably gonna flatline. So I think there's a chance we'll take the next attack to the face and then flip down again, assuming we're gonna get a confusion arrow, and probably like we draw 5 cards and then we get a C5 with the quiver. Like I think there's 1 confusion arrow in the 15 cards, so we have a 2 and 3 chance of getting it. If we don't, we'll find another ally and we'll use the ally to block. So I think we'll be okay. Okay, that's us. We've done everything. So everything readies up. We draw to our hand size, which is 5. We got a Vibranium arrow. We got energy. I haven't showed these cards before, but these are like basically like the sure gambles of Marvel Champions. Every deck can have an energy, a might, and a genius. They're basic cards, so neutral cards, and they don't do anything besides when you pitch them, they generate 2 resources. There's one that makes energy resources, one that makes physical resources, one that makes science resources. So most decks do run a full playset, one of each, and it's just twice as good in any hand if you're generating resources. If you draw a hand that's only resources, that's terrible, but otherwise it helps you pay for your cards. Hey, there's a second one, so we're on the way to draw a terrible hand. We drew the Sky Destroyer. That's an expensive card, so that's nice. And a Field Agent, which is a little support that makes our shield agents not take consequential damage when they go out into the field. So this hand is okay. We can actually play most of it. Yeah, we should be able to play all of it. And now it's the villain. So firstly, attack on Hydra goes up to 2 threat. At 3, it advances, so that's scary. And Crossbones is going to attack us for 1 and a card. We could block with Agent 13. I'm going to try not to and greed it a bit. So we just take 1, and this thing has 2 symbols on it, so we're going to take 3 damage. We're down to 2 health. Any allies engaged with us was activate. That's going to happen. And now we draw encounter cards. So we always draw 1. And because there's 1 encounter card symbol here, whatever that's called, we have to draw a second one. We resolve them 1 at a time. If one of these causes the villain to attack, we're in a bad spot. Weapon Master. Weapon Master says, villain hero. When revealed hero, the villain attacks you. If they have a weapon attachment, this card gains surge. We are cooked. We are so dead. So the villain's going to attack us, and this card's going to get surge, which means we're going to draw another card because we did not take this weapon off of it. This is really bad. So the villain is attacking us for 1 and a card. We're going to have to block with Agent 13. Otherwise, we're very likely dead. This has a boost icon, but this boost icon is it's a star. So it doesn't actually count as a +1 to the attack, but it makes you do the boost effect. This says give the villain a tough status card. If you cannot, heal 3 damage from it. So the villain has a tough status card, which means the next instance of damage, it doesn't take it. Now, notably, that was only 1 damage, so that actually wouldn't have killed us. It's going to drop Agent 13 down to only 2 health, but we technically are going to continue. If we draw another attack here, we're very likely dead. All right, we got Crossbones armor. This is an attachment. I feel the keyboard's slightly too out of the way. It says attach the Crossbones. It gives him +1 scheme and +1 attack. So he's just going to attack harder. And it says forced interrupt. When Crossbones would take any amount of damage, place it here instead. And if there's 5 or more, discard this. So we have to get rid of this. It will get rid of it on its own, but we have to deal with that before we can hurt Crossbones. Final card, Raid the Armory. So this thing has Insight 1 on it. That is a keyword that doesn't show up that often. This one has reminder text because it's an early set. It says when this card is revealed, place 1 threat on the main scheme. And notably, that's going to make the main scheme advance. So we have to interrupt this and do what this says, because attack on Mount Athena now has 3 threat, so it will advance. So just kind of like in Arkham Horror, we put it aside and go to the next card. This one, I'm not going to pull it up. It just says the Infinity Stone, and it just has flavor text. It says, inside the Project Pegasus facility, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents fight desperately to prevent Hydra from attaining the reality stones stored within. This one is a pretty simple side scheme. It doesn't have any text on it, just flavor text. And it comes in with 1 threat. It's going to be generating 1 threat per player per turn. And when it hits 6, we advance. When revealed, reveal the top card of the experimental weapons deck. So Crossbones can get another experimental weapon. This one's called Laser Rifle. Again, these are going to be added to the campaign pool for the rest of the game. So we're going to get familiar with these. And this attaches to the villain. It gives a +1 attack. So now Crossbones is attacking for 3 damage. And it says when the attached villain attacks, the attack gains ranged, which means it just doesn't hit retaliate, which won't matter for this fight. We don't have retaliate. And then we can spend 2 types of resources, those exact resources, while we're a hero to discard this, which we probably should be discarding them because apparently the villain hits harder when it has weapons. It's back to us. We've survived. We're on 2 health. Agent 13 is exhausted. This is not good. This is really quite bad, honestly. So let's start looking for arrows. We want to find a confusion arrow. We also want to get rid of Legions of Hydra, which is going to be very difficult. But we want to clear that so we're not drawing 2 encounter cards, which is pretty bad. So we're looking for an arrow here. Confusion arrow would be good. We've entirely whiffed. No arrows. So we just shuffle these back. That's not great. So what can we do? Alter ego time. It's hard. It's probably what we have to do because Crossbones will scheme for 2 in a card. So there's a chance we'll advance. That's not great, but there's like, if we don't want to die, the other thing we can do is we can shoot the electric arrow and we can just stun Crossbones, which is probably a bit better for us. Let's be honest. So our hand has 2 energy resources and a field agent. We're going to be playing our expensive Sky Destroyer, I think, by definition, just so we can get it out of our hand and out of our deck. We probably are not going to use one of the arrows on here, unless it's the electric arrow will stun Crossbones, which we probably should do. I think we're going to shoot the vibranium arrow in our hand, because then we don't have to use the one in our quiver, which might be better for later. So I think we're going to start there. We're going to exhaust Hawkeye's bow, generate 2 resources using the expert marksman, and it says exhaust Hawkeye's bow to deal 6 damage to an enemy that attack gains piercing. So piercing eats through the tough immediately, which is sick, and then 6 damage goes to Crossbones. However, Crossbones' armor says when Crossbones would take any amount of damage, place it here instead, and we put at least 5 there, so it discards Crossbones' armor, so at least we're not getting attacked or scheming for that much. All right, that's a start. Next up, we're going to exhaust the Helicarrier and pay 2 to play the Sky Destroyer. I think I usually use the space on the playmat, but apparently on this camera, I'm a bit too far back. So I think the microphone too is also, I'll put it over here and try and remember that it exists. This is a support card, and it basically says once per turn, when we play a S.H.I.E.L.D card, we can exhaust this to deal 2 damage to an enemy, which just helps you ping off little things. I think here now, what we have to do is we have to exhaust Hawkeye, which allows us to ready the bow. And then we can spend 2 to shoot this electric arrow, which says exhaust the bow, deal 3 damage to an enemy, and stun it, which actually will defeat Crossbones. So 3 damage goes to Crossbones, and we stun Crossbones, and Crossbones is now defeated. Unfortunately, we've only defeated side 1, so now we advance to Crossbones 2. Crossbones 2 is only slightly different. We're going to flip the card over. I've sleeved it like that. It comes in with 14 health, so not that much more health. Usually the jumps are a bit bigger than that. He now attacks and schemes harder, though, so that actually might have been correct not to do the thing that we did. It's okay, though. He is technically stunned, so he probably is going to attack us. It says, when revealed, search the counter deck and discard pile for Crossbones' machine gun and attach it to Crossbones. So Crossbones' machine gun is a pretty frightening attachment, because when he attacks, you rip the top card of the deck and just have to take damage equal to whatever the boost icons on the card you got off the top of the deck. It's also a weapon, so any of the cards that interact with weapons are going to care. So this is Crossbones machine guns. It attaches the Crossbones. It uses 2 per player counters. So I'll just give it 2 of these greens. And it says force interrupt. When Crossbones attacks you, remove an ammo counter from the card, discard the top card in the counter deck, and take indirect damage to the number of boost icons on the discarded card. Indirect damage is damage that you can choose to assign amongst any cards that you control. You can't assign indirect damage more than a card has remaining health. So if Agent 13 has 1 health, I can't assign 5 indirect damage to her. But that is kind of frightening. Now, he won't initiate an attack because he's stunned. We still have this Legions of Hydra, which is going to kick our ass slowly. So we're still going to draw 2 encounter cards. But we're stunned. He's stunned, so he won't attack. We also don't have a shield card. I'm just going to throw out the field agent and not keep it in my hand because it's not going to do anything. And I think that's us. We might actually just still die, but we'll see. If he attacks us twice in a row, we can at least block once with Agent 13. All right, draw 5. We really need to find Nick, because if we don't get Nick, it's not going to be good. We have a confuse arrow. That's really good. We have a cable arrow that actually takes 3 threat off. So we could like maybe confuse and clear Legions of Hydra with that arrow and Agent 13. And we did not draw Nick Fury, who's in our bottom 7 cards. Did I draw 6 cards? No, that's 5. Villain phase. We put 1 per player. The Crossbones would activate against us, but is stunned. So 1 attack. And now we draw 2 encounter cards. Hoping for the best. The combat knife. All right, more weapons. Things could get really bad. There is some encounter cards that scale based off the number of weapons Crossbones has, and obviously these weapons are getting out of control. We haven't been clearing them. This gives him +1 attack, and it gains piercing. For what it's worth, he already had piercing, I think. No, he didn't have piercing. Oh, no, Crossbones text says he has piercing if he has a weapon attached. So this is redundant, but whatever. It's +1 attack. That's frightening. And then the next card is Hydra Jet Trooper. Sick. Oh, boy, that's bad for us. So this is the first minion we've seen. Comes in with 3 health. And it schemes for 0, so if we go alter ego, we don't have to worry about it, but it attacks us for 2, and notably has quick strike, which means as soon as it engages a player, it attacks you. And unfortunately, we have 2 health. That's bad. That's really quite bad. So that's not good for us. That's really not good for us. So this is a problem because we have to make a decision here. We can either block this with Agent 13 and lose Agent 13 because Agent 13 has 2 health. This will defeat Agent 13. The other option is we can block with Hawkeye, and Hawkeye will defend for 1 and drops Hawkeye to 1 health. That's not great because if we want to shoot 2 arrows, we have to exhaust Hawkeye to ready Hawkeye's bow. And if Hawkeye is exhausted because he defended in the villain phase, that's not a possibility. Oh, this should be ready. So I'm not sure what to do here. We definitely need a minimum confused Crossbones, which we can, but we're not going to be able to take 5 off of Legions of Hydra because to do that, we have to use Agent 13 and fire this cable arrow. So the other thing that we can consider doing is instead just clearing the Legions of Hydra, not confusing Crossbones, flipping down and just hoping that the last scheme is not going to advance. This technically isn't the last scheme. There's a scheme behind it, which maybe that's okay. Agent 13 goes. I don't think Agent 13 goes though, because Agent 13 is so good. It readies some of our supports. We need her, like we need the 4th ward she has left, or at least 2 thwart in a block. Because Legions of Hydra, we have to get rid of it. I don't think Agent 13 goes. I think there's a chance we actually block and go down to 1. And just hope that the counter deck is kind to us. Now we have Homeland Intervention as well, which says exhaust up to 3 shield cards to remove 2 threat from the scheme for each card exhausted this way. This is a card I don't play with often. It's like a really good shield card. And actually that's probably how we get out of this. So we can exhaust Agent 13, Helicarrier, and Sky Destroyer and clear Legions of Hydra. And that means that we can only use the bow one. So yeah, this will be fine actually. By fine, I mean we'll be on 1 health, but fine. So we're going to block with Hawkeye, which is not great. We're going to take 2 damage, defend 1, so we're on 1 health. It's back to us. We'll start by using the quiver to look at our deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the last card in our deck is Nick Fury. We're going to attach an arrow here. We're also going to draw another encounter card because our deck is going to cycle. There's no way around it. Once you draw the last card of your deck, you immediately shuffle your discard pile and you have to get another encounter card, which you will draw during the encounter card step. So that's just going to happen to us. That's not good. Okay. We're going to exhaust Hawkeye's bow to fire the sonic arrow from our hand using these expert marksman resource generates. It does 3 damage to an enemy and confuses it. So it won't, Crossbones won't scheme the next time it'll be canceled. So that's okay. We're now going to, we're holding these 2 arrows. This is awful. We probably actually, we can play this for 1 and exhaust it instead, which is fine. It just gets a card out of our bin. We need to exhaust 3 shield allies. Or 3 shield cards that remove 6. Yeah, if we do this, so if we exhaust 3, it clears the Legions of Hydra, which is good. And we can exhaust Helicarrier, Sky Destroyer, and Agent 13. That gives us this hand, so I'm going to go ahead and use the cable arrow to play the field agent. I have so much limited space here. I'm not used to this. The field agent comes in with 3 counters. Field agent is not a card I play with all the time. And it says, as an interrupt, oh, excuse me. It says, when a shield, you can choose to do this interrupt. When a shield ally would take any number of consequential damages, exhaust field agent and remove 1 backup counter to prevent 1 of that damage. This is a useful card just because it's cheap and it's a shield card, so I can play it for free and I can do Sky Destroyer ping damage. It's also just a shield card, which is cheap, and I have a lot of cards that say like exhaust a bunch of shield cards to have a good effect. So I'm going to play Homeland Intervention and exhaust 3 shield cards. I'm going to exhaust this field agent, I'm going to exhaust this Helicarrier, and I'm going to exhaust this Sky Destroyer. And that lets us remove 6 threat from a scheme. So I'll clear the Legions of Hydra. It's about time. Now, we have this 1 arrow, but we can't shoot it. So we're going to use Agent 13. And she's going to take the consequential damage. I can't prevent it with Field Agent. Response after Agent 13 attacks. Oh, that's after consequential damage. I don't think you can wake up the Field Agent. And I'll just clear the 2 threat off of this. When she does her ability, I can ready a shield thing. That's not going to matter. We have 1 arrow. We're going to flip down so we don't get attacked. The villain is confused, and this Hydra Jet Trooper doesn't do anything. We'll end our turn. So we're going to ready everything. We're going to keep the explosive arrow because it'll deal with Crossbones and the Hydra Jet Trooper. And so we're going to draw 6 cards. Unfortunately, that just decks us out. If we actually kept another card in hand, we wouldn't draw another encounter card. It's going to happen anyways, but now it's going to happen on this turn, which is a scary turn. If there's any encounter card that just says do 1 damage, we're cooked. So we'll draw Strength. We'll draw Skilled Investigator. We'll draw Clear the Area. So that's 4. 5, Nick Fury. It's not great to draw Nick Fury before you cycle your deck because Nick Fury is one of the best cards in the game. And we're only going to play him once now that we shuffle our deck. Whenever your deck is empty, immediately you shuffle it and you draw an encounter card. Hey, Lord Peter, how's it going? Yeah. You play MC also. I have played so much Marvel Champions. We're just doing this stream to see how things work as a test, but I have no doubt we'll be doing some streaming playing Marvel Champions. I didn't know you played. I play a heck of a lot. This game has actually a really nice system. There's always some confusion with some of the FFG LCGs. Like, when do you shuffle a deck that's empty, right? And this deck or this game, the rules are like, as soon as the deck is empty, immediately shuffle. It doesn't matter if you need to draw another card. You don't wait for the quest phase. You just do it right away. And it just is really like simple to understand. This means technically if there's an effect that has like cards that are resolving and the deck empties halfway, they don't enter the discard pile, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, right now, oh, we pushed Crossbones out of the frame. That's not good. Crossbones has a lot of health. I don't think I knocked that. I think it's on, yeah, 11. It's a great game. Congrats. Thank you. We're dying as Hawkeye out here. We always play Hawkeye on stream and it never goes well. So first thing first, Infinity Stone, it gets 1 threat per player. Next, Crossbones will activate against us, and because we're an alter ego, he'll try to scheme, but he's confused. Now the Hydra Jet Trooper will activate against us, but because Hydra Jet Trooper has 0 scheme, that's it. Notably, minions, they don't get a boost card. That's only villains that get a boost card. And there is a keyword called villainous that does exist on minions that says this minion also gets an encounter boost card. We draw a second encounter card, and then we hope for the best. It's another Hydra Jet Trooper, huge. So this is the same one that we have on the table, and that's fantastic because we have an explosive arrow ready to blow them all up. And notably, it has quick strike, so as soon as it engages you, it will attack you. But notably, you can't get attacked 99% of the time when you're alter ego, so we actually beat that keyword, which is nice. Agent 13 should be ready. Next up, we have a Hydra Soldier. Unfortunately, 4 health, so it's going to take more than an arrow to deal with it. And it has text. It has very important text. It has guard. Guard says that you basically can't attack the enemy villain until you deal with this. And when defeated, we deal a player an encounter card. So cut off 1 head, obviously more come in. And we survive. I think we're actually okay. We might be able to stabilize from here. Agent 13 can attack and finish the Hydra Soldier off. We can also ping it with damage using the Sky Destroyer. I think we're actually in an okay spot here. And we're going to have a power turn because we have Nick Fury. Nick Fury is just the most busted neutral card in the whole game. If you've played Fantasy Flight games, or what's it called, Lord of the Rings, you might know Gandalf. This is the same sort of idea. He shows up, he's very expensive, but his ability is massively powerful, but he only lasts for 1 turn. So generally you play Nick Fury, you draw 3 cards, so you play him functionally for only 1 resource, and then he takes the attack from the villain. I think we're in an okay spot. I think we are in an okay spot. So to start, I think we're going to have to recover. So we're going to go up to 4 and exhaust Clint. I think that's going to be okay for us. Then here, I think we're just going to go straight and flip up to hero mode so we can start shooting arrows. Next, I'm going to play for 4. I'm going to play Nick Fury. I'm going to do strength for 2. This is one of the resource generators. It just makes 2 resources. Oh, there is pretty bad glare here. Which light is that? That is this light, right? Or is it that light? Oh, it's that light. Bummer. Okay. I have to worry about that. So that's 1, 2. Skilled investigator, global logistics. We'll just do those 4. We could use the helicarrier. Actually, yeah, let's not. And we'll play Nick Fury. When Nick Fury enters play, you make a decision. Generally, we're just going to draw 3 cards. Nick Fury comes in, has good stats, and we'll block an attack. So we'll draw 3. We draw another explosive arrow. We draw a Mockingbird, our unique ally, and we draw a Vibranium arrow. Nice. Now, Nick Fury is a shield. So when Sky Destroyer, we can exhaust it to do 2 damage because we played a shield card to a card. We'll do 2 damage to Hydra Soldier. Next up, let's just look for an arrow. So we'll look at the top 5 to see if we can find something in our quiver. So there's the threat arrow and the stun arrow. I think we already have a stun arrow. So for flexibility's sake, I'll get the threat arrow, the cable arrow. So we'll slot it in there. We can use that if we need it. Next, let's try and use a resource we can generate. So what I'm going to do is I think we're actually going to play Mockingbird. Yeah. So I'm going to exhaust the helicarrier to generate 1 resource, and I'll throw out... We could clear the area on Infinity Stone to draw a card. This card removes 2 threat, and if it removes the last threat, you draw a card, which makes a really, really nice cheap cantrip, especially at solo, where there's a lot of cards that have less. Is there a number of cards limit? Yeah, the quiver can only hold 5 arrows. No, it doesn't have a limit. What? No, it doesn't have a limit. I thought it was 5. No, because you search 5 cards. There's no limit. Apparently, you can just keep searching. You put every damn arrow on there if you want. That's wild. I actually didn't know that. So I'm going to exhaust the helicarrier for 1. We didn't exhaust the helicarrier. No, we paid 4. To play Mockingbird. This is our unique Mockingbird. So this version of Mockingbird only exists in the Hawkeye deck. So generate 1, and I'll throw out Clear the Area, and I'll throw out an Explosive Arrow. So she comes into play. She is S.H.I.E.L.D. for whatever that's worth. When the villain initiates an attack against you, we can choose to spend a resource to prevent all the damage and return this to our hand. That's a very valuable ability, especially if you get out all your ways to like make S.H.I.E.L.D. cards cheaper, because she's very easy to play every single damn turn. Fantastic. Next, let's do the arrow thing. Let's exhaust our bow and exhaust one of our marksmen to shoot an explosive arrow, which does 3 damage to the villain and everything engaged with us. So villain goes down to 3. Notably, guard prevents you from attacking the villain, but for some reason, the way that this arrow is worded, and a lot of the AoE attacks are like this, it's not an attack. So it doesn't care about guard. It just says exhaust, deal 3 damage to a bunch of people. So it actually beats guard in a really weird way. So that's going to wipe up everybody. And the Hider Soldier, when defeated, we get an encounter card. Whenever the game asks you to draw an encounter card, if it's not the step of the phase where you reveal encounter cards, you just put it down there and you wait. Okay. Not too bad. So now we got some space to move our allies up. So Agent 13, this thing still has Retaliate, which sucks. So attacking into this kind of is rough. We also only have 1 card in our hand. Generally, most of these weapons take 2 different kinds of resources to remove them. So we might have misplayed that part where we could have kept a card in our hand to do that, I think. Regardless, Nick Fury is going to attack. Is going to do 2 damage and exhaust. Takes 1 consequential plus Retaliate. It's going to do another consequential technically. So he's on 1 health. That matters slightly. Mockingbird, I'm not going to do anything. Agent 13, I'm not going to do anything with her either. Mockingbird, I can drop her to 1 health, but actually Mockingbird's gonna be really good because I can use her to take some of the incoming machine gun fire, so I can soak the indirect. I'm gonna return her to my hand to like play around what's going on, but actually we kill Crossbones next turn by just doing 6 damage. So we're in an okay spot now. We did barely recover. So I'm gonna hold. Actually, I don't need to hold this arrow. We have another one in our quiver, and I'll just ready up and I'll keep these allies like this. Nick Fury, mind you, at the end of the round will leave. So technically it's the hero phase and then the villain phase. So I'm going to block with him because otherwise he's useless. Oh, he will just disappear, I mean. And we draw 5 cards. So we have a stun arrow, generates resources, a way to play shield cards cheaper. We never got one on the table. Cable arrow, which does threat, and quake, an ally. Oh, I didn't shout out too. You can only have up to 3 allies. There are a bunch of cards that give you more ally slots. That's mostly a justice type thing, but you can only have 3 allies. Allies classically are the strongest type of cards in the game because they're just super, super useful and they block attacks. Like they're just kind of very good. I use my old Star Wars LCG exhaust tokens on my MC games. Are your tokens custom? These tokens, these were given out, I think, for like nationals in 2015 and 2016. I think 2015 from Fantasy Flight Games. I won a set of these by coming in the top 8 of nationals, I think in 2015 or 2016 in Toronto. I think I got another set from someone, but these are very rare because they were like prize support for national level play. If anybody has another set of these and they don't want them, I like basically barely have enough to play solo Marvel Champions. For duo, I don't have it, but they're some of my favorite tokens ever made. Fantasy Flight Games made them. They made some other tokens, but these were like by far their best. They're huge. They're nice. The paint has not come off. They're like super, super years old. I'm just a big fan of them. They make me really happy. I don't know why. All right, Infinity Stone goes up to 2. Crossbones will attack us. It says when Crossbones attacks, remove an ammo counter, discard the top card of the deck, and take indirect damage equal to its boost icons. This card has 2 boost icons. We take 2 indirect damage. I'll assign 1 to Mockingbird, and I'll assign the other one to Mockingbird. Then the attack goes through. Crossbones is attacking for 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to block with Nick Fury because he's going to die anyways. This has a boost icon. It says after this activation resolves, place a pursuit counter on pursued by the past. I'm still not going to explain that mechanic, but I promise you it's cool. So this doesn't have a boost. It has a boost icon, but not a boost ability. So it doesn't increase the attack damage. Regardless, that does enough to defeat Nick Fury, who is on his way out regardless. Then all the minions would engage or activate. Sorry, we don't have any minions. And now we draw an encounter card and reveal our 2 encounter cards. First one, this is a scheme. Hey, Supernut, how's it going? Crossbones Assault. Crossbones is a heartless killer, but he's not a psychopath. His assault on Pegasus is ruthless and efficient. So this has 2 threat on it. This has what I believe is called an acceleration icon. So this means every beginning of the villain phase, when we add one threat to the main scheme, for every icon like this on the board, we add another threat. So instead of adding now one threat per round, naturally we're adding two threat, and this can balloon. It can get pretty bad. Now, when defeated, Crossbones activates against a player who defeated the scheme. So if we defeat this while we're in a hero mode, it will attack us. If we defeat it, say with an ally when we're alter ego, it will scheme against us. I'm pretty sure Crossbones is just going to die before this matters. Who you playing as? I'm playing as my good friend Clint Barton, the strongest Marvel Champions hero, but just the fun guy that has a bunch of gadgets, and I like him a lot. Hey, we got Hydra Bomber. This is a minion. This is the second reprinting of this, I think. I think this was in the core set. Yeah, so this one technically has a bit different art or different coloring on the border. When revealed, choose to either take 2 damage, that won't kill us, or place 1 threat on the main scheme. We'll just take 2 damage. It's fine. Now, this minion doesn't have guards, so we don't have to deal with it. And now it's back to us, and the villain only has 6 damage. Mind you, we're playing on the easy or the standard difficulty. It's not that hard. So all we have to do is shoot this vibranium arrow, which does 6 damage, and we have defeated Crossbones. It got close. We got down to 1 health. I think that's happened last time, and Hawkeye has some issues. He's just like hyper squishy, but he has some good utility, and we have defeated Crossbones. We defeated side 1. We've defeated side 2. Now, because we're playing the campaign, in theory, you read the instructions at the end of the campaign, and it'll tell you based off of how you did, how you should change your decks, and what sort of benefits and what sort of negatives you should get. This was the first campaign, so it's not too elaborate with its like campaign narrative stuff. So this just says victory. Each player chooses one of the tech upgrades from the Hydra campaign set and adds it to their deck. And then we have to record all of the experimental weapons that we've drawn because they will also be added to the campaign. So every villain we're going to fight has access to a laser rifle and an energy shield, which is not that annoying. We're pretty good at not dealing with retaliate because we have arrows. So that's kind of cool. And we got to choose a tech upgrade. There's 4 of them. They're busted powerful, but they're one-time uses. So yeah, there's 4 of them for now. So we have, I think I'm just going to show it like this. This might be easier. He says, trying to figure out. This is tactical scanner. So this is set up so it just starts in play. It says discard this card and remove it from the game log to draw 5 cards. That's really powerful. Now we only do this once and it's removed from the game. Remove it from the campaign. Drawing 5 cards gives you a lot of options, let alone those can be resources. So card draw in this game is very strong because it's not only cards options, but it's resources. We have this adrenaline serum or something. Stims. Discard this card and remove it from the campaign log to ready your hero and heal 5 damage from them. There's a big chance that's what we're going to take because this is the don't be squishy button. I think this will actually be easier. Then the other options are laser cannon, which I think just does a ton of damage. Discard this, deal 5 damage to the villain and each enemy engaged with you. We're already pretty good at doing AoE because we are Hawkeye and we have those explosive arrows, so I don't think that's a big option. And then the last thing is emergency teleporter, which is also really, apparently I spelled it as teleprotter, got there. Discard this card and remove it from the campaign log to search your deck and discard power for an ally and put it into play and give it a tough status card. That's also very good. And another nice way that we have a don't die button because we're pretty squishy. But I honestly think we're going to take the heal one. Yeah, ready your hero and heal. Readying our hero means that we can like attack twice with arrows, and I think that's good. So that's going to be added to our campaign pool. And we go on to the second scenario, which is relatively boring, honestly. The second scenario is a lot of people's least favorite scenario, and I think you'll see why. There's not that much going on. So we clean up. We have to dismantle the villain deck and take out the parts of it that are going to be reused and reset our health and our stats and try it all again. 9 health. This is the weird down part. Normally I'm used to just like opening another JNet game and not caring about things. Or like lamenting how bad our deck was and what decisions we made to get there. I don't think we learned anything about this. I'm kind of hyped for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. expansion. It brings new preparation upgrades for Black Widow, more support for Secret Agents archetype. The thing is like the characters in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. box, a lot of people aren't super hyped about them. But then you see the mechanics, and it's very clear the designers had a lot of fun making like espionage and that sort of like mechanics a big part where there's like a scenario where you're sneaking through a base and you have to keep the alarm level down and you have to do like tricky, strange things. And I'm so there for that. I do think that the way that they work, like the main hero designs, like Nick and Maria Hill also look very interesting. Like they are somewhat support based. They're tricky. You have to flip sides. Yeah, they're incredibly thematic. And I think that's my favorite part about this game is like, I don't have to like the heroes that much as long as their play style is thematic and you're making cool decisions. And those decks look like you have to make a lot of really cool decisions. I'm hyped for all parts of that box. It was maybe coming out today in Canada. Apparently it's not. We might have it at the same time the States does, which is in March, which is a bummer. All right, other experimental weapons we don't add. They go back to the campaign box. We're not going to need those. And then we have to just disassemble the deck. So it's not that hard. We'll take the villain. We'll take the schemes. Then I'll just, these are the ones we keep. I'll take the other ones, put them underneath. And then we have to basically break the encounter deck down to its requisite components. So this one had, I think, 4 different things in it. This microphone is definitely should be on the other side, I think. So we just need to separate this. So these are Hydra Assault, Legions of Hydra, Legions of Hydra. Oh my God, doing this on a stream is kind of the worst. People watch you sort while you have a microphone in the way. That's not right. Weapons Master. We didn't draw our criminal past. That's fine. These should all go together. Hydra Assault. So these, kind of like Arkham if you played it, will be reused throughout the campaign. Sometimes, not always, but you'll often see the same characters or the same like encounter sets, and then you'll be like, oh, Legions of the Hydra is here. Really sure hope Madame Hydra doesn't show up and really ruin your day. It's only going to get easier, Andre. It's only going to get easier. Okay, that's great. I usually do a quick check to make sure that there's enough cards in each pile, that I didn't mess it up. So Weapons Master has 5 cards. That's good. Let's see this. It's nice to see the physical setup part. It's chill. Yeah, maybe I should just relax more. I'm like scared of like dead air or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, this is good. Okay. So some of these will be reused. I guess I'm just going to put them behind me. And then we'll get to it. So next up, it's Absman, your favorite guy. He's like a big bald dude with I think it's when they used to attach balls to people's legs when they're prisoners. And he, basically anything he touches, he gets the traits of it. So we're in the narrative chasing him as he's kind of, turns out it's a bit of a bait. But we are chasing him through the wilderness, and we'll be going through factories and forests and snowy hills, and any place that he is, he will gain those traits, and that will change how we're meant to interact with him. It sounds kind of cool. It's not that great. It's easily the worst scenario in the set, but it's not a very long one, which is good. I think the complaint most people have with this scenario is there's not a lot going on. There's like no minions really. So it's just you and Absorbing Man, and he's not like that frightening. Again, I will say that and get ruined by him, but that's the idea. All right, main scheme. There's only one, which is a nice, you got to worry about that. Because if this is completed, you lose the game. None shall pass. So Absorbing Man 1 and 2, because we're playing on standard. It wants us to play with the standard encounter set like it always does, and only one modular encounter set, Hydra Patrol. Hydra Patrol is already here, so we're good to go. Setup. Discard cards from the encounter deck until environment is discarded. Put that card into play, shuffle the encounter discard pile into the encounter deck. So basically we just need to rip the first environment we find, and that will be the environment that we start the fight in. Got to do the cooking show. Here's the deck we set up earlier. Yeah, I know, but the problem is like you reuse the same cards. Like standard has to go into every single set. That is like legitimately maybe the most frustrating thing about Marvel Champions, right? So when you pick up Arkham Horror, you need the core set. Not only does it come with all the tokens, and as you might notice, I'm barely using the tokens that come with the game because dice gets you like 90% of the way there. You don't need any of the tokens, let's be honest. This dial is nice, I guess. But the one thing you do use is the standard encounter set. I'm technically using standard 3, but the standard encounter set comes in the core set, and you basically shovel it into everything you do. That's the only card they reuse. Like 1 out of every 20 scenarios asks you to use one of the encounter sets from the core set. I think there's only like 1 box that is the case. This box does require you to use an encounter set from the core set, which is something that, mind you, in Arkham Horror happens all the time. So for instance, if you pick up like one of the X-Men boxes, you technically don't need to buy the core set if you ask me. You just need to proxy the 7 or 8 standard cards and get your own tokens. Like it's weird. It's so close to being like a standalone game, but the reason it's not is because, well, they want to sell you a core set, but because you don't have tokens. All right, I'm going to shuffle better. We just got to rip until we fire environment. Okay, we got one off the top. This is Rocky Outcrop. So looks like Absman is a stone guy. This has Surge. Technically, Surge fires when you reveal a card, not when you put it into play, so you don't have to worry about that. And says Forced Response. After Absorbing Man makes an undefended attack against you, heal 1 damage, and then 2 damage if there are 5 or more delay counters. Every turn we'll be adding a delay counter. It tracks basically how long we're taking to bring down Absorbing Man. So depending on the environment, now he's healing. Cool. May I ask a question? Of course. Tomorrow I have a board game reunion with an old Netrunner gang from way back. I made a couple of System Gateway decks. Any tips to make this Netrunner session more memorable? Whoa, more memorable. So are they familiar with Null Signal games as like Netrunner? Because I think System Gateway, like sitting down and playing the 30 versus 34, and then introducing the extra 10 cards where you add like viruses and tags and all that, like that is just such a good structure. If they're aware of that, and that's not going to be too shiny, like I think the best thing you can do is like present fun deck archetypes. And I think System Gateway has a whole bunch of them. I'm a big fan of like Red Team Zaya run everywhere. I do think like Urtica Cypher Neurospike can be fun, just advancing cards and say, is it the agenda? I'll flatline you. Like that's a fun one as well. But System Gateway just like has a lot of nice tools that allow you to play interesting Netrunner. More memorable, like I don't know, if you're doing organized play, having a little trophy is always nice. Whether it doesn't have to be like an expensive or meaning like a thing, just like a little meaningful thing. Like I got a little prize. I think people like that. For Arkham, I recently did a campaign of Carcosa with only cards from Carcosa and back. It was so fun to be limited in my deck building. Yeah, for whatever negativity you hear about like, you know, the current environment, I'm actually really excited for a smaller or a different card pool. I think that's really cool. For the history, this is the first box that came out, the campaign box. So a lot of the mechanics are somewhat unrefined now, obviously with like 6 years of Marvel Champions or however how long it's been. And same for Clint. He came in the same box as well. So he's a pretty simple hero, all things said. All right, shuffled. That goes there. The back and none shall pass. That's where we're going to be hanging out because that is the only scheme. None shall. I need to get new vision. No joke. None shall pass. Gets 2 threat, starts with 2 threat, gets 1 threat a turn. We lose when it hits 12 because this is the only scheme. It says if the stage is completed, the players lose this game. Forced response. After resolving step 1 of the villain phase, that's when you put the 1 threat here per turn. Add a delay counter. That's just an abstract counter. And of course, we saw the environment cares about how many delay counters there are. Forced interrupt. When an environment enters play, discard each other environment card in play. So that just means Absorbing Man can only have 1 trait, whether it's stone or metal or snow. We'll find out. Also, they really pulled out Absorbing Man, huh? Everyone's favorite character. Yeah, I honestly don't know. Like, I'm pretty sure Absorbing Man was a Hawkeye villain. I think. I had only heard of him because I played Marvel Snap at the time, I guess, or not at the time it came out. But yeah, I think it's kind of neat. That's a mixture of like the villains that you're aware of. Like the main villain at the end of this box is Red Skull. A lot of people are familiar with that, I think. But then there's like weird things on the way that you get to learn about. Like one of the villains here is Arnim Zola, which I didn't know much about, but like a really cool villain design. But yeah, unfortunately, Absorbing Man is pretty maligned in terms of being a campaign or a villain. He's one of those throwaway villains. Yeah, the guy who changed textures, who barely has a costume. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, we're off. 14 health, and then we'll get to side 2. Again, Absman just gets all it says is gains the trait of each environment in play. So, oh, that's the Rocky outcrop, whatever. We're off. Draw 6, mulligan. We got the Government Liaison. This is a card that we actually didn't get to the table, but is a really important card for our deck. Government. Did I? Yeah, that's right. Because we can exhaust it, and the next shield card we play is reduced by 1. And that's really important because most of our deck is shield card synergy, let alone our unique ally that if we return her to the hand to take no damage from an attack, we can play her over and over and over again. So I think I'm going to keep this. The best thing we can get with Government Liaison, and we'll see the rest of the hand, is an energy, which generates 2 resources, so we can play it. Hey, like that. That's an energy that generates 2 resources. We have a Field Agent, which is whatever. We have Quake, which is an early ally. She's very cheap. We have an Explosive Arrow, which does 3 AoE damage. That doesn't matter. And we have Clear the Area. Clear the Area is probably worth keeping because it removes 2 threat from a card for 1. And if we clear the last threat, it draws a card. So it only costs 1 effective card because we get a card back. So I'll keep that. I think Quake is like whatever. I think at this point, like one of the best cards you can get early in Clint's deck is the Quiver. So I'm going to really push to try and get the Quiver. So we'll keep 3. We get Skilled Investigator. This is a pretty stable card. Any zero cost card is usually really good. This is a zero cost upgrade that just stays on the table and it says after a side scheme is defeated, draw a card. So just nice to get on the table, especially on turn one. Costs us nothing. We have Global Logistics, which allows us to look at the top of the counter deck. That's kind of whatever. And we have Monica Chang, who is an ally. So I think we can play most of this hand. All right, in Clint, action. Spend 1 resource of any type to search your deck for your Hawkeye's bow. We can't shoot arrows without our bow, so we'll spend a resource and go search for it. I really do need to deal with the glare on this. I think it's unfortunately that light. It's a bummer. Do you have a new deck testing villain? I use Claw with Badoon Brotherhood. I've heard people talking about Claw with Badoon Brotherhood just like the other day. I generally would use Claw, yeah. For what it's worth, the core set of Marvel Champions is really good. Like all 3, besides Rhino, which is like the learn to play scenario, Claw and Ultron are just really well designed that are always worth revisiting. They're just very, very good, unique challenges. But Claw slaps. Claw's really, really fun. Just gives you like a bit of everything to do. I think the other one that I play a lot, Lord Peacher, is I play Ebony Maw. Because I think Ebony Maw is also just kind of fun. It just gives you a little bit of everything as well. All right, so we have the bow. We add it to our hand, so let's just, I think we'll just go ahead and play it. I didn't really consider the rest of the turn. So what can we do here? I think we're going to play Monica. So we can play the Government Liaison. We can exhaust this to play 2 to play Monica Chang for 3. After Monica Chang's entered our play, we search our deck for a card called Surveillance Team and put it into play. This means that we won't play the clear the area. The other option is that we can play Skilled Investigator to clear the area, none shall pass, and draw a card. But then if we draw a card, we can't play Monica Chang unless it's exactly a double generator. So I think we're just going to not play the Skilled Investigator and set up our Government Liaison and get Monica going. We'll definitely attack Absorbing Man for 3 because we have +1 because we played our bow. We'll flip up. This card we're not going to use for a long time. I'm going to put it down here so we can forget about it. But if we're ever need to heal 5 and ready ourselves, that's our panic button. But it's not going to be relevant probably till the final scenario. So 2 for Government Liaison. This support, we can exhaust it. Our next shield card is reduced its cost by 1. That's cool. Notably, the wording on this text I think gets people. Because it doesn't say the next card is reduced by 1. It says play a shield card from your hand, reducing its cost by 1, which means you can't compound multiple Government Liaisons on the same card. I'm guilty of definitely doing that the first time I saw this card because it just looks like a generic resource generator, but it's not. It actually takes the action to play the card. So it's kind of like Artist in I should have picked a better example that people know about in Netrunner, but it's more like that. So that generates 1. We'll do 2, 3 for Monica Chang. She is a shield card like all the allies in the deck. And Monica Chang says, she's a really cool card. I actually really like the design on Monica Chang because she breathed life into an existing card in the card pool. So when she comes into play, search your deck and discard pile for a copy of Surveillance Team, put it into play and place a Snoop counter on it. Surveillance Team was this card from the core set that wasn't particularly good, but now they printed a card that just allows you to play Surveillance Team and makes Surveillance Team kind of sick. Her stats are not fantastic. She's 1 thwart, 1 attack, only has 2 health, so she generally like do thwart 1 and then just leave when she gets attacked by Absorbing Man in the villain phase, but that's not bad. And Surveillance Team is like a very cool core set card, I guess. Oops, that's not it. So it comes into play with an extra Snoop counter, so we'll put 4 on it, and we can exhaust it to remove 1 threat per turn. So it's fine. It's okay. It's not very good, but it's fine, especially when you get it for free. It's a lot better than paying 2 for it. So I think we're going to use Monica Chang just to take 1 off None Shall Pass. We technically don't have to. Like 12 is a pretty high limit. So we could just like rush Absorbing Man down before the tokens get out of the hand. But because we have Clear the Areas in the deck, Clear the Area is a card that removes 2 threat. And if we get the last threat, we draw a card. So dropping this down to 1 means next turn it'll be on 2, and then we can clear it with a Clear the Area. I think that's worth it. For what it's worth, I don't think you're allowed to rearrange the order of your discard pile in this game. I don't think it actually matters on a lot of cards, but I don't think you're allowed to shuffle your discard pile. I might be wrong about that. No, I'm for sure you're not allowed to. I guess we'll use the Surveillance Team too then. Maybe that's now a bit of a fallacy. Yeah, that's a bit of a fallacy. So let's use the Surveillance Team to drop 1, and then Monica will do 1 damage. And then we'll exhaust Hawkeye to do 3 damage. We don't have an arrow. That's fine. That's our turn. We'll drop to 5. It matters in Netrunner. Yeah, it used to be a rule in Netrunner that you weren't allowed to shuffle. Oh, we actually drew 2 Clear the Areas. We ought our quiver. We're gaming. Sick. Never saw the shield deck archetype as fun. I see that I was wrong. It's really, really cool. Just because all the cards are synergistic. They're really, really synergistic. Especially like the cheap events that say like exhaust these cards, look at the top of the deck. Like it gives you control as much as that hasn't landed in the last couple of games. Technically, the one that lets you look at the top 4 cards of your deck is nice if you want to use the quiver. But it's just a fun archetype, especially because Hawkeye has this shield ally you can play every turn, which makes it very powerful. None shall pass gets 1 threat. It gets what is this called? A delay counter. So it's a 1. This doesn't do anything, just cards care about it. An absorbing man is going to attack for 2 and a card. Now his text, or more accurately the text on Rocky Outcrop, means that he will heal if the attack is not defended. So we're incentivized to defend this, and we're going to defend it with Monica. So she's going to block. She has 1 health. That's fine. She can take 700 damage and it won't change anything unless the attack gets overkill, which is what you think. It's like trample and magic. Extra damage will be done to us, but this boost card probably is not going to do that. So attacking for 2. This card has 1 boost icon. 3 damage will defeat Monica. Yeah, this microphone has to be on the other side of the table. And then we get an encounter card. Nowhere is safe. When revealed, place 1 pursued counter on Pursued by the Past. Don't worry about that. And then if it has any counters on it, discard an upgrade or support you control. Now, these cards I like. In theory, if we lose the surveillance team, it's not the end of the game, but that's why we have this garbage card. This we just throw away. It's the best thing it's going to do this scenario is just eat this encounter card and we don't have to care about it. That card is from the standard encounter set. That is just like a base ability in every scenario you play. There will be 1 card that just eats one of your cards, which is the worst when you play like a 4-cost support on turn 1, and that's the first card that comes back, and it's awful. All right, it's back to us. 2 threat on the main scheme. I think we're going to start to deal with that. We have a couple ways of dealing with it. We can play Clear the Area, which draws a card, so that'll leave us on 4 resources. We have no shield. Oh, we have a Helicarrier in our hand, which is a shield card, so we can reduce its cost by 1. So that we could also like just play 1/2 Government Liaison, play a Helicarrier, use the Helicarrier to play the Hawkeye's Quiver. We have the thing that generates Hawkeye's bow stuff, and there's definitely going to be an arrow on the top, right? There's no way there's not. Are you playing a special scenario? We're just playing through the campaign, so this is just Absorbing Man with the basic like campaign setup. So the only difference is it has like 2 of the experimental weapons that were stolen in the first round. All right. How greedy. This is where you have to decide how much do you want to be a setup gamer or how much do you want to be like a tempo gamer. And for Netrunner, I'm actually much more of an aggro tempo player. But when it comes to Marvel Champions, I love setting up. I'm very guilty of setting up where instead of like, oh, I can do this and this, which does this on tempo and it gets us back. I'm going to be like, I'm going to set up this card, which allows me to save resources on this card, which allows me to save resources on the next card. That is much closer to how I actually do play. Now, Absman's going to attack for 2 in a card. If we don't block, he heals. Which is not, it's heal 1. It's like whatever. We're probably not going to block. We have no allies. I definitely want to get the Helicarrier down. Like we're actually very, very much incentivized to play as many shield cards as we can. So I think we will use the Government Liaison to reduce the cost of the next shield card. So we'll pitch 2 to play the Helicarrier. Helicarrier, we can exhaust it to reduce the resource cost of the next card we play by 1. So it's a resource generator. I think we're going to use this to play our Quiver. We're going to exhaust the Quiver to look at the top 5 cards of our deck for an arrow. We want a stun arrow, I think. Okay. The only one we have is the 6 damage, takes a tough off the piercing arrow. I think Absorbing Man can get tough. I think. Full Eurogame mode. Yeah, it's fun. Building engines is kind of fun. S.H.I.E.L.D is like very Euro board game if you set it up the way where like that's the idea. It's like in the early game, the villain does more on every turn cycle. And then in the mid game, you get over that hump, and then in the late game, you're meant to be unkillable, technically. Hawkeye is always a bit of a gamble, but that's classically how like setup works. Not that different than Netrunner. I love the normal 3 villain setup cards. Pursued by the Past feels fun. Oh, Pursued by the Past is my favorite. There's only certain heroes where I won't use Pursued by the Past, and they're the ones where like their villains usually have Quick Strike, because like if you pull the boost card that makes Pursued hit 4 during a hero attack, then the villain has to hit, like it has to hit you twice. Like, sorry. It hits you during the minions phase, and I think that's the thing a lot of people don't do because it's like a bit of a rules weirdness technically, and it's awful. Sometimes it's really, really bad. Like I was playing Wolverine and Omega Red coming out and then attacking you quick because of Pursued by the Past. It's just the worst. It's just so bad. Okay, we can't shoot the Vibranium Arrow. We can't play the Expert Marksman. I don't think we're going to hold it. Like we have enough resource generators. Now this is for shield cards, but I think we're just not going to hold this. I'd rather just see arrows. So I'll throw it out. This game, holding a card in your hand is like actually a real cost because you draw through your whole deck. So the sooner we find Nick Fury, the sooner we find, you know, the Sky Destroyer, whatever you want to name in that slot. Holding a card obviously is like losing a hand size next turn, unless this card is super important. Felt bad, poor Wolvie. Yeah, Wolvie gets ruined. It's not because like Omega Red's that bad, but like to be able to defeat Omega Red, you have to deal with the side scheme, and like Wolverine's not good at thwarting. It's pretty rough. Hawkeye's going to attack for 3, down to 7. So Absorbing Man's already half health. Again, some attacks do like 8 damage, so like 14 is not a lot. And I'm just going to throw this out. We're not going to shoot an arrow. We will use the Surveillance team just to chunk this down. It's now at 1. Fine. And we'll pass. Our hand, we have our side scheme, build support. We have a confuse arrow, so in theory we could jump down to get more cards. We have an explosive arrow. There's not a lot of minions in this scenario. It's not fantastic. We have the stun arrow. That's probably going to be our play. And we have the Sky Destroyer, which it's not bad either. All right, we add 1 threat per player. We add 1 delay counter. Absorbing Man will attack for 2 in a card. If we don't block, he heals for 1. I'm not going to block. 2, this has 1 icon in it on Sinister Strike, so we take 3 damage. We're down to 6, and he heals 1. It's on 8. Back to us. We drew a Hydro Regular. Hydro Regular, cool. Do I not have a Hydro Regular? I only have this one, okay. So technically slightly different color, but Insight 1, so when it comes in play, we put 1 threat on the main scheme. It has Insight 1. It attacks for 2, which is pretty big, honestly, but it only has 2 health, so just about everything flatlines it. All right, back to us. So let's start by the quiver. Let's try and find a nice arrow. Nick off the top. Agent 13, Government Liaison. We have a Sonic arrow, so we will attach it. We might as well. That is the Confusion arrow. Shuffle these back. So Hydro Regular, we can play 2 shield cards. One of them would be Sky Destroyer. That's probably not going to do it. I think this is the only shield card we can play. So I think we actually end up playing the Explosive Arrow, which does 3 damage to Hydro Regular and to Absorbing Man, which is nice. Deals with the Hydro Regular. And then we can attack with Hawkeye, which will do 3 more damage. Yeah, that's probably it. So Exhaust Helicarrier, choose a player, reduce the resource cost of the next card they play this phase by 1. So we'll do that. Then Government Liaison says play a shield card, reducing its cost by 1. So we can now play the Sky Destroyer for only 1 resource. Sky Destroyer, I'll just put it over there, I guess. Says once per turn when we play a shield card, we can exhaust this to deal 2 damage to an enemy, which is nice. We have a lot of little cheap shield cards. Now, that leaves us with this hand. We have a lot of arrows, so we actually could probably just shoot 2 arrows. That would be better. So we're going to exhaust Hawkeye's bow and pitch the Sonic arrow to play Explosive arrow. We're not going to be able to play 2 arrows. That'll be okay. And this does 3 damage to the villain and every enemy engaged with us, so solves with that. Then we can play the build support. The build support, if we get 3 threat off of it, allows us to search our deck for a support. We have actually all our supports in play, so we don't really need it. So unfortunately, playing the electric arrow is 2 resources. All our arrows are 2 resources, so we actually might have messed that turn up. There's a chance that we don't play the Sky Destroyer and instead just play the electric arrow to get the stun off, and actually that might be it. I honestly don't think we have any supports left. Like, what supports do we have? Hawkeye doesn't have any supports in the deck. So the other supports we would play would be like, we could play Surveillance Team again. I mean, it's better than holding 2 cards, I guess, but there's a chance that we shouldn't have played the Sky Destroyer. I think the game will be long enough it'll pay off, but I'll pitch this to play the build support. It has 3 threat. Again, whenever you take threat off of a card, you can choose which card to take it off of. So it's either None Shall Pass or build support. And then for Hawkeye, we're just going to attack for 3, drop the Absman to 2. And then we're going to use Surveillance to take 1 off of, I think we're going to take 1 off of None Shall Pass. And I'm hoping that we're going to clear build support with an arrow that does 3. So we don't have to work on it. All right, drop to 5. Global Logistics. There's the cable arrow we're talking about. Agent 13. We have Homeland Intervention, which exhausts shield cards. And then we have Mockingbird, our unique ally, which is really good. All right, 3. Threat of 12, so we're fine. 3 delay counters. Again, once we hit 5, it gets a lot harder. And Absman is going to attack for 2 in a card. The most damage we can take here is 5. No respect. Boost card. Put this card into play. So this is Dense Forest. It puts into play, so it doesn't do Surge. And this now means that we lose the stone and we gain wood as our environmental type. So this is Dense Forest. This says, after Absman makes an undefended attack against you, take 1 indirect damage. Oof. So we only take 2 damage. So we go down to 4. And then after Absman attacks, because he's in the woods, we have to take 1 indirect. So we can assign indirect to anything that we have that can take damage. Unfortunately, that's just us. So we're down to 3 health. So we might have to confuse and flip down. There's a possibility we have to flip down to alter ego and heal. We still have an encounter card though, and it's Piercing Thorns. When revealed, discard a card from random in your hand. If Absorbing Man has a wood trait, discard 1 card you control. Oh shit, so we got this exactly at the wrong time. So random for stream, 1 is left. Okay. We lose Cable Arrow. That's not good, we wanted that. And then we have to discard a card we control. I think we get rid of Surveillance Team. All it does is removes 1 more threat. That doesn't seem that important. Every other card seems pretty nice. All right, and that's it. That's back to us. So we're only on 3 health. That's not great. Every attack, we're going to be taking 1 indirect damage unless we block. Our hand is we have shield cards. We have Agent 13, which means we can ready our Helicarrier. And so we can do a bit. The problem is if we play Agent 13, it's most of our hand, and then we're not left with a card we could play. So in theory, we could do like Liaison, save 1, Helicarrier, save 1, pitch 2, play Agent 13, and then just hold Mockingbird in our hand. She's one of our better cards, so I don't feel bad holding that. And then we can go down to Alter Ego. Oh, we're also going to need to play an arrow, though, so that's actually going to change things. So we probably pitch Mockingbird so we can play the stun arrow. Let's first see what arrows we have access to. So Agent Coulson, there's the threat arrow. I think we're going to need the confuse arrow. For what it's worth, Absorbing Man only schemes for 1, so we could just say whatever and flip down. Notably, too, if we attack with Sonic Arrow, it will defeat Absorbing Man, and then we have to deal with whatever the text is on Absorbing Man 2, which is probably a bit worse. Oh, I should have cleared that a second ago. Okay, fine. I think we're going to shoot the arrow. So we're going to Helicarrier, reduce the next card by 1. Government Liaison, play an shield card, reduce the cost by 1. Actually, is it better to play Mockingbird? No, I think we have to play Agent 13 because we're going to need to generate a resource for the Cable Arrow. We'll play Agent 13. She comes in play. She has 4 health. I'll throw out 2 more cards. Now, Sky Destroyer we can use to do 2 damage. So that's going to defeat Absorbing Man. We played a shield card. It goes to Absorbing Man 2. Absman 2 comes in with 15 health. Gets the trait of each environment in play. That's exact same text. Now he schemes for 2. Still attacks for 2. But importantly, when revealed, we did just reveal him. If super absorbing power is in play, deal 1 encounter card to each player. Otherwise, search the encounter card and discard power for super absorbing man and reveal it. Shuffle encounter card and discard pile. If it was searched this way, excuse me. So we're looking for a scheme called Super Absorbing Man. Found it. We're going to have to shuffle this. So this is Super Absorbing Power. It says Creel, I can't read it there, my vision's not that good, has the ability to absorb the properties of multiple elements at once, but requires intense concentration. Comes in with 3 threat per player, so just 3 threat. And it says Absorbing Man gains the ice, metal, stone, and wood traits. Now on those don't do anything, but there's going to be a lot of cards from the counter deck that say if he has a certain trait, do something bad to you. So that's something we probably have to deal with. He already has the wood trait because of the forest. He doesn't get double wood. That's not a thing, but that might not be bad. Again, 15 health, like we can probably rush him down in 2 turns if we like just throw 2 arrows at him every turn. That's just, you know, sort of the thing with these early villains. You can just rush him down a bit. So we're going to use Agent 13. I think we're going to threat. I think we're going to thwart. Let's just do our due diligence and thwart. So we'll thwart this down. She takes 1 consequential. She takes 2 off of this. Now, after she uses a basic ability, we can ready a shield card. So we're ready Helicarrier. I guess we do hold Mockingbird, don't we? No, so we could have played one of these maybe. That's fine. Well, that actually would have been better maybe. No, it's okay. So we'll exhaust Helicarrier and exhaust our bow to play Cable Arrow. Oh no, we wanted stun. Sorry, confused. So no, this is fine. So we exhaust Helicarrier, play 1. Sonic Aerial, exhaust Hawkeye's bow, confuse an enemy and deal 3 damage to it. So we'll confuse Absorbing Man, drop him to 12 health. I think we'll actually attack for 3. Because there's a chance we don't have to heal next turn. I think there's a very high likelihood we don't have to heal next turn. So instead of flipping down and healing, we'll just attack for 3. So it drops from 7 to 4. He's on 9. And then we'll flip down just so he doesn't activate against us because he's confused. Here in Alter Ego, we don't have any actions that we want to do, so we'll just pass and ready up. All right, we draw a field agent. We're looking for Nick Fury. Found him. We have an electric arrow. We have 2 energy or resource generators, so we'll be able to like pitch 2 cards to generate 4 to play Nick and draw 3 cards. So we'll actually still be on 6 cards in hand, and that will definitely kill Absorbing Man. So get to 4 delay counters. This goes up to 4. He would try and scheme against us, but is confused. We draw in a counter card. It's Steel Kick. This is probably going to do something worse because he is metal. When revealed, Alter Ego. Place 2 threat on the main scheme, 3 threat instead if Absorbing Man has the metal trait. So we're up on 7 of 12. So still okay, but that gets scary at some point. Excuse me, and it's back to us. And this should be really easy, so we're just going to flip up. Good night, amigo. Happy gaming. Thank you, Lord Pitcher. Thanks for dropping by, by the way. Like, I'm surprised that people found this, honestly. I went live and immediately people were in chat, which is like super hype. So we're going to pitch 4 cards. We're going to play Nick Fury. We'll draw 3. In theory, Nick Fury can do 4 damage. Whatever, this is overkill. We'll just draw 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. Nick Fury is a shield card. So we can exhaust this to do 3 damage. Or 2 damage, excuse me. It goes to 7. Nick Fury will attack for 2 damage. We'll exhaust Hawkeye's bow and play the Vibranium arrow, Helicarrier in 1. It doesn't matter, 6 damage. That's Absorbing Man on easy. It is as exciting as you think it would be. But we got through it. We didn't even get through our deck. Notably here in the campaign log, it asks you to remember how many of these counters you got through, delay counters. And that is something that will actually matter in the next, or like 2 or 3 scenarios down the line. I think it doesn't matter for a bit. So it says record the number of delay counters on the main scheme. And then each player may choose one of the basic condition upgrades in the campaign set, attach it to their identity, and add it to their deck in the campaign log. These cards are actually really quite good. They are incredible. They're symmetrical effects. There is 4 of them. And they're just called basic something upgrade. So just to show you what the first one looks like, which is the one we're probably going to take. This is permanent, so it comes in play. It also can't leave play, so we can't discard it to any sort of effect. That was quick. Yeah, that's Absorbing Man. It's like, whatever. You get +1 hit point. We value that. And you get +1 attack. That's not bad. When we get basic attack for 4, that will eat up villains and it'll eat up minions usually in 1 shot. Now, the other ones are pretty symmetrical. The thwarting one gives us +1 thwart and +2 hit points. It's called basic thwarting upgrade. Yeah, no surprise. That one actually I don't mind. +2 health is good. Basic thwart upgrade. Do I not have it? Oh, I spelled it. No, that's right. That's not bad. We're actually going to need to thwart a fair bit, and relying on our arrows is not very great because that's obviously not super consistent. But luckily, once we're set up with S.H.I.E.L.D is really good at dealing with thwarts, so we might have to do that. There's one that gives you +1 defense and +3 health. Well, that's whatever. We're never going to defend. There's one that gives you +4 hit points and +1 recovery. I have never taken this. Not once have I taken this card. And I think there's a small chance we're going to take it just because it's really funny. Because we actually like +4 health and we do recover every once in a while. I think we're going to take this. I've never taken it before, but I think we'll do it for now. I think normally here I would take +1 attack just because we're attacking pretty consistently. But let's say our arrows are going to do our damage and then we're going to use this just so we don't have 9 health. Nah, that seems awful. We probably should just take the thwart one, honestly, or the attack one. +1 or 2 health. I don't know, Chad, if you have a strong opinion on that. But we just have to make a decision here, and then we're locked in for that one for a bit. I could go either way. I just don't want to go to the defense one for obvious reasons. Let me just clean up. We got to set up the next scenario. This is like, you know, one of the good things I think about Marvel Champions is I can play through an entire campaign in like an evening. No problem. Some campaigns are harder than others, but like it's usually like 30 to 20 minutes for each scenario. It's not that bad at all. Let's build support as part of our deck. Okay. This flips back. Goes to 9. +4 hit, no squish. 0 squish. 0 squish opportunity. Let's try it. I've never done it. This will give us an excuse to do it. So our health is now 13. There are some like neutral cards you can add to your deck that give you extra health. They're pretty good. And we have +1 recovery. So healing for 4 is also not bad. So no squish for us. Let's just clean up Absman. And we'll remember, I'm going to put this die here and keep it off screen, that we have 4 delay counters. If I forget, you can remind me. All right. So this deck should be easy to deconstruct. There's only a couple campaign sets, Steel Kick. So we want Hydra Patrol and Standard. That's it. Again, we only saw one minion. We didn't have a lot of turns, so we don't actually see a lot of the deck. And this is something that they also changed as the game got older, right? Like Absorbing Man has this many cards in the encounter deck. Now, depending on player count, like the how big the encounter deck actually is a balancing mechanism, because every time you get to the bottom of the encounter deck, you shuffle the encounter discard pile back into the deck, and you add an acceleration token to the main scheme, which means now every start of turn or every start of the villain phase, you add 2, and then 3, and then 4. And so every time you go through the deck, the game tries to close itself. It gets much more difficult. I think that's a really cool balancing mechanic. But back in the day, the decks were so bloated, right? Like, this is a huge deck. For solo, you'll never get through this, which means all the really cool thematic cards that they built that will interact off of one another, the chance of you drawing them is super, super low. What you'll notice when the campaigns got more mature is like a lot of the hero decks or the villain decks will only be like this many cards instead of this many cards. And that means that the cards just show up more often and you can build something that's a bit more thematic and a bit more focused, right? Like this is so much text and so much like, you know, abilities. And there's some of these cards I probably have never seen in my life, as much as I've played Absorbing Man, you know, like a dozen times, no problem. They just don't show up all the time. It's weird. They're just way too big, if you ask me. Laura, how's it going here? I've been meaning to ask if you played Sentinels in the multiverse and how you think it compares. I've only played Sentinels in the multiverse once or twice. It is a really mechanically simple game. I'm not an expert on it, but I think how it works is like most turns you play one card, you do one thing, and then it's usually about building a board. I know they did like a revised core set and I played it on TTS once and some of the characters were actually kind of complicated. The one that had like crows going around and familiars was a lot, but it's a lot of like getting statuses, things adding effects to other effects. You can't play it solo. Well, you can, but you can't play one hero because the game is just too simple when you only have one hero. So you're meant to always play at least like 2 or 3 characters. There is an app. I've been told that the app works good, but the amount of things you can do on your turn are very, very, the way I saw it, frustratingly small, which is every turn you can do like one thing, play one card. So you look at your hand, you pick your one card. That was a bit too little for me. Like I think people think Marvel Champions is simpler than other LCGs that FFG puts out. And there's some truth to that for sure. Comparatively to like, I don't know, Lord of the Rings, Arkham, but it seemed a bit straightforward in a way that wasn't incredibly appealing. I needed to dive more into it because again, a lot of times when you play the learn to play stuff, it is very straightforward, but it didn't seem like I had that many options. I was sitting there and being like, okay, it's my turn. I'll do my one thing. And then I waited for the other 3 players to go. And then it's my turn. I'll do my one thing. And I didn't like that too much. I know people like the game and I think the revised thing is a lot better. I've heard people like it better. Okay. Third scenario. I like the third scenario a lot. I think people think fondly of the third scenario. It's one of the scenarios that people use not uncommonly as a testing scenario. It's like gives you a bit of everything to worry about, and it's Taskmaster. For those who don't know, Taskmaster is a character who has like not photogenic, but like basically can mimic anyone's like fighting style from just looking at people. So he's going to be looking at our deck and mimicking our attacks. In the lore here, basically villains are taking over and there's going to be a whole bunch of kidnapped heroes that we have the chance of rescuing. And if we rescue them, they get added to our deck. There's the main scheme is called hunting down heroes. So there's like a bit of a lockdown going on and heroes are hiding because Taskmaster is ruining the town. So it's up to us to like liberate the heroes. There's a bit of like sneaking around every turn. You have to make a hard decision. If you go from alter ego to hero, you have to take a bit of damage because people are hunting down heroes. There's some cool stuff going on. The setup is pretty simple in terms of campaign setup. It says each player searches the deck for all cards with the setup keyword. So we start with our recovery thing and we shuffle all the experimental attachments into the deck. So no surprise there. All right, this is Taskmaster. Taskmaster 1 comes in with 13 health. These numbers are relatively low. They generally got a bit bigger as the game matured, but 13 means we could technically one-shot him in a single turn if we put our minds to it. Generally there's other stuff going on, so you don't have to. And it says after a player changes to hero form, they discard the top card of the encounter deck and take damage equal to the number of boost icons. So this really disincentivizes you from flipping up and down constantly because you're just going to take some amount of damage, somewhere between 0 and 3. So you have to kind of be a bit careful. Again, in solo, flipping up and down, you can only do largely with stun and confuses, but that's what that does. Greg Davies enters the chat. Hunting down heroes is the scheme. So this one, to build the deck, there's only one scheme. We need to take Taskmaster, standard, no surprise, and one modular encounter set. It's recommending Weapons Master. That's the one we've used before. We almost died to it because there's a card that says if there's a weapon attached, he attacks again and has surge. That's pretty bad. The setup says set each captive ally aside. Oh, we need Hydra Patrol too. Excuse me. A Hydra Patrol is also in there. So it says Hydra Patrol, standard encounter set, 1 modular. Set each captive ally aside at a play. Search encounter deck for Hydra Patrol and put into play shuffle encounter deck. Hydra Patrol is a little scheme, which has 2 threat on it. And once we clear it, I think an enemy jumps on us or something like that. So this is Hydra Patrol. We'll get to that in a second. We flip over Hunting Down, and this is the only scheme we have. It comes in with 1 per player, so 1. It has 12. Once it hits 12, we lose the game. We haven't been schemed out so far, which is good. The notorious Taskmaster has been appointed Hydra's chief of police. His top priority is hunting down the outlaw heroes. Forced response. After resolving step 1 of the villain phase, so that's after we put the 1 threat per player on it, each player has to choose in hero form to either plate an additional threat here or take 1 damage. So it gives you a choice, and it's an interesting choice. Either more threat, which obviously you can lose if there's 12 threat on here, or you have to constantly take ping damage, which is also a problem. Luckily, we have 4 more health. That checks out. I think the complexity emerges from wacky interactions between the heroes, but excited to see how this is. Yeah, that's what I've heard from Sentinels, is that like once you're playing with a combination of characters that interact in a good way, and there's like a lot of environmental effects and things that like ping off of each other. There's a lot of cards that say like, oh, this takes 1 more damage from this type of source. And then you have to track all those like integer modifiers, which doesn't sound incredibly sexy off the top, like just a lot of integer modifiers. But I know that's like a big part of the game. Okay, Hydra Patrol. Scheme comes in with 2. This is a crisis icon. We haven't seen this so far. This exclamation mark is really important because as long as the scheme is in play, we cannot remove scheme. We cannot remove threat from the main scheme. You can still remove threat from side schemes, but the idea is that if we don't deal with the Hydra Patrol, we will lose because obviously the hunting down heroes eventually will hit 12 and we will lose the game. When defeated, each player searches the encounter deck and discard pile for a Hydra minion and puts it into play, shuffle the encounter deck. So this will, make a minion come out. Notably, the language on this, it says put the Hydra minion into play. It doesn't say reveal it, which means if the card has any sort of text like when revealed, do something bad, you actually circumvent that. So it's actually nice to clear the Hydra Patrol and then get an enemy that has text that you don't want to deal with when revealed text. It actually gives you a fair bit of flexibility. Cool. So we have to get to that soon. 2 threat is, we can't actually do it on our own in 1 turn because we only have 1 thwart. So we're probably going to need an ally to do that. All right, that's it. Taskmaster 13. Again, when we flip up, we have to remember to take damage. If I forget, remind me. We have the basic recovery upgrades, so we have more hit points and we can recover a bit more. So let's go get some arrows and hit people in the face. All right, hand size is 6. Let's draw 6 cards. Field Agent, that's whatever. Sky Destroyer is a bit expensive early. We found Expert Marksman that generates resources for arrows. That's nice to get. Clear the area. This is huge. This removes 2 threat from a scheme, and if it removes the last threat, we draw a card. So it's really cheap if you do that. That'll line up with the Hydra Patrol really well. We'll definitely keep that. We have an explosive arrow, which actually might be worth keeping as well, because if this pulls out a minion, this explosive arrow does 3 damage to all minions and the villain. So that's a nice combination. And then lastly, we have another clear the area, which we probably won't need. So I think we're going to keep these 3 cards. We're going to throw out these 3 cards. The card we're always looking for in the starting hand is the Quiver. That's like the best card. It's a 1 of in the deck. We have no way of searching for it. So we're just hoping. Nah, no dice. Okay. That's all right. So let's plan out our turn. So we're going to flip up for sure. We're going to definitely play the clear the area with a card. Let's say it's this card, and that'll draw a card. So we'll have another card to play. We definitely need to discard a card to go get our Quiver. So say that we discard this card to go get our Quiver. We'll play our Quiver. Now, if we need to shoot an arrow, it costs us 1. So we can play the Government Liaison to play the Marksman, use the Marksman to shoot the explosive arrow. That's probably our turn. I think we have 1 card left over. Let's see what it is. If it's a double, we might have a shot at doing something cool here. These Homeland Interventions and Global Logistics, I haven't played a lot of them, mind you. They're the sort of payoff cards for when you have like a bunch of shield stuff on the table, because they require you to exhaust certain shield cards, and that's not great on turn 1. But cheap shield cards are really nice because we have a bunch of ways to like do damage if you play shield cards, stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's a play. Okay, so we're going to throw out any card here to go get our Quiver, or sorry, our bow. It was in the bottom. Good to get that. So now we have +1 attack. That's good. And we can shoot arrows. That's obviously important. We'll flip up. So as soon as we flip up, we have to discard the top card of the counter deck and take indirect damage equal to the amount of icons. This thing has 2 boost icons, so we're going to have to take it to our face because there's nobody else. We're at 11 health still. Okay, from here, let's start using Homeland Intervention to pay clear the area. Removes 2 threat from a scheme. We remove the last threat so we can draw a card. We drew another Expert Marksman. Oh, that's interesting. And Hydra Patrol, when it's cleared, we have to search the deck for a Hydra minion and put it into play. So again, put into play doesn't do win revealed effects. Hydra Hunter, this is a 2 attack, 2 thwart, 3 damage. We could deal with that. Let's see if there's something that has a put into play thing that we can get around. Hydra Soldier has 4 health. I don't want to deal with that. There's a Hydra Regular. When this card's revealed, place 1 threat on the main scheme. So in theory, we don't reveal it. I think we might just go for a 2/2/3 because it lines up really well with the arrow we have in our hand. I know technically if we get this regular, we don't do Insight, but I think the Hydra Regular is fine here. I'd rather not have to deal with that on a different turn. All right, we searched the counter deck, so we have to shuffle it. All right, it's all us. So we can... The question is whether we hold. I think we have the ability to hold one of these cards for next turn. Again, that's an expensive cost because you're drawing fewer cards and getting to the better cards in your deck, like our quiver. But in theory, we have to play the arrow. So at a minimum, we have to play 1 card to play for the arrow. But if we play 1 card to play the thing that generates resources for the arrow, that's fine. And then we hold a card. So either we can hold our other arrow generator, which is nice considering every single arrow is still in our deck, or we can hold the government liaison, which is a shield support. We still have another shields government liaison in our deck. So I think we're just going to hold the Expert Marksman. That seems greedy too. If we draw like a double resource, a resource that generates 2, this would be really easy to play. Interesting decision here. I think I'd rather hold the Marksman. I'll just rather hold a 1-coster. It'll be easier to play next turn. So I'll pitch the Government Liaison to play the Marksman. I will exhaust the Marksman to generate a resource for an arrow event. Exhaust this to shoot the arrow. We'll shoot the explosive arrow, which does 3 damage to everything. With Hawkeye, we'll attack for 3 damage. Taskmaster's getting hurt, and then I'll actually just hold this in my hand. Probably shouldn't, honestly. Yeah, I'll just pitch it. It's fine. All right, we ready up? We draw 5 cards because our hero hand size is smaller. We have a stun arrow, vibranium arrow, Nick Fury. Ideally, we play Nick Fury always because it draws a lot of cards, but if we don't draw a resource, it's going to be a bit expensive. We drew so many arrows this hand. That's not good because that just means there's less arrows in the deck and we can't shoot more than 2 arrows on a turn. So this is going to be a tricky hand to play. It's likely that we'll just... Oh man, 5 cards in hand. Oofa doofa. If we want to play Nick, we have to throw out like 3 arrows from our deck. Our deck only has like 8 arrows, I think, in it. So not great, but it is what it is. Okay. Hunting Down Heroes says, after we add the 1 threat, we have to decide to either take a damage or add another threat. We're pretty squishy, so I'm going to just add another threat here. And then Taskmaster's going to attack for 2 and a card. We're not going to block. It's a Hydra Sidearm. This gives +2, so 4 damage. It drops us down from 11 to 7. Then we draw an encounter card. Nice. I was hoping we found one of these. This is Captured by Hydra. This is the key like narrative card in this set. When revealed, place a random set-aside captive ally face down beneath the scheme. When the scheme is defeated, the player who defeated it takes that ally into their hand and removes the scheme from the game. It has an acceleration icon, so as long as this thing's on the table, every time that we add a threat at the beginning of the round to the scheme, we add 1 more. So we have to deal with it. 4. Now, once we deal with this, and 5 is a lot, we get the ally underneath it, and the ally underneath it is added to our hand. Yes, and they're very good allies. They're incredibly undercosted. And if we complete the scenario, we actually get to keep that ally in our deck for the rest of the campaign because we have rescued them. So these are really, really good allies. They all do something different. There's a confuse one, a stun one, a tough one. So all the basic effects, but that is something we really want to do. We want to draw as many of these Captured by Hydras. But we added anti-squish technology. Okay, so we have stun arrow, we have explosive arrow, we have vibranium arrow. I think I'm just going to pitch 4 and play Nick Fury and draw 3. Nick will block next turn. So when Nick enters play again, this is one of the most powerful cards in neutral. Oops. We'll get it. When you put into play, you can either draw 3 cards. You almost always do that. Deal 4 damage. That can really matter. Or remove 2 threat, which is a absurdly small number. So we'll draw 3. We get Skilled Investigator. We get Quake, another ally. And we get a Strength. Okay. No arrows this turn, so that's a bummer. We did throw out a bunch of them already, so we already are 4 arrows out. So on this hand, I think the easiest thing is we can use Strength to pitch 2 to play Quake. Quake is pretty cheap. 2 cost allies are just like kind of good enough in this game a lot of the time because they're relatively easy to play. You can generally attack or thwart once with them and then block and attack. Quake unfortunately attacks for 2, thwarts for 1. We definitely need more thwart right now than we need anything else. We also now with 1 can play our Skilled Investigator, which says after a side scheme is defeated, we can exhaust this to draw a card. That's nice. It's cheap at least. And then I think we're going to work on Captured by Hydra. We can thwart only 4 this turn, so we're not going to complete it, but I think that's where we're going to go. So we're going to do Quake is going to go do 1. Nick Fury is going to do 2, taking Consequential. And then Hawkeye is going to take 1, which drops us down to 1, which means next turn at least Hawkeye can deal with it if nobody else. All right, back to us. We draw 5. So we have Global Logistics, Stun, a Confuse Arrow. It's good. We have a Threat Arrow, and we have a Vibranium Arrow. So we're drawing all our arrows at once, which is not great. And we drew a Resource Generator, or a Resource card. So it generates 2 pitches for 2. Hunting down heroes, we can add 1, and now we have to decide to take a damage or add another threat. I think I'm going to take the damage here because we have a lot of work to do on threat. Taskmaster's going to attack for 2 and a card. Nick Fury will leave at the end of the round, which is after the villain phase, so we might as well send him into danger. It's being attacked for 2, and this boost icon says, if you are in hero form, take 1 damage. Otherwise, place 1 threat on the main scheme. So we have to take a damage. It's good to know that card's in the deck. And so that will defeat Nick. Taking 2 damage, we're down to 5. Encounter card. Taskmaster's Training Camp. It's the Taskmaster Cottage. Taskmaster's Training Camp. All right, it says Taskmaster only accepts the best troops into his police force. Being before a Hydra soldier can enlist, they must survive the training camp. Comes only with 2 threat. Force response, after a minion enters play, give it a tough status card. And then as long as it's on the table, whenever we draw cards during the encounter step, we have to draw another card. Back to us. We have a lot of thwarting to do. So Quake is on 1 health. She only can thwart 1. If we look at her hand, we have a Cable Arrow, which can thwart 1 or thwart 3. So our priority is actually to deal with the Taskmaster Training Camp. We can definitely clear 2 of these. The cards that we do have that thwart 2 is Clear the Area, and we've played 2 of them. So there's 1 Clear the Area left in the deck, which would line up really well with Taskmaster's Training Camp. Whenever we clear 1 scheme here with Skilled Investigator, we can draw a card, which is nice. This might be a turn that we double arrow. We might do a Confuse Arrow and a Cable Arrow. So that would be these cards, and it leaves us with 2 cards here, which are pretty ugly. So let's see what we draw with Skilled Investigator. So I think we're going to use Quake, and she'll just... Oh, this is after a side scheme is defeated. Doesn't matter who does it. So Quake will scheme... will thwart Captured by Hydra. She's defeated by the last Consequential, and we complete Captured by Hydra. It says, when defeated, take the ally into their hand and remove the scheme from the game, and our ally is White Tiger. So this is not a card that's from the... not a card that you can actually put in deck building, but it is a card from the campaign. It's in her hand. She costs 0. It says after you play White Tiger from your hand, you can spend a science resource to remove 3 threat from a scheme. That's kind of exactly what we want here. Unfortunately, the only science resource we have in our hand is the Sonic Arrow, which we wanted to play to confuse. So it looks like we're not going to do that, I don't think. Did we draw our Skilled Investigator? No, we haven't. So let's Skilled Investigator first. Not a science icon. Okay, that's the Stun Arrow. The Stun Arrow actually might be better this turn. I think we'll do the Stun Arrow so we don't have to jump down to Alter Ego, because every time we jump down and back up, we have to take damage from Taskmaster's ability. So that's actually not that bad. All right, we're going to play White Tiger. She costs 0. It's good that she's going to be in our deck as long as we beat this campaign or this scenario. After you play White Tiger from your hand, spend a science resource to remove 3 threat from a scheme. So we'll remove 3 threat from... No matter what we do, we're going to waste some threat. I'll just get rid of this. I don't want enemies to come in, and I don't want to draw the extra encounter card. So that's that. She can still thwart for 3, so she will, taking 1 Consequential. So she's down to 2. We'll drop Hunting down heroes to 1. All right, that's good. She has 3 health, so we have like 6 more thwart coming in. I guess now we just have to do the Stun Arrow, really. So yeah, let's just do the Stun Arrow. So Exhaust to generate a resource for an arrow event. We'll pitch the Electric Arrow. Sorry, a Vibranium Arrow to play the Electric Arrow, deal 3 damage and stun. So that means we won't be attacked. Hawkeye is 3 attack. We can also exhaust Hawkeye to shoot a different arrow, which the only arrow we have access to here is... Oh, we could have shot the Vibranium arrow, which actually would advance Taskmaster. That's a bit better. So let's throw out the cable arrow instead and keep the Vibranium arrow. We'll exhaust Hawkeye to ready Hawkeye's bow. We'll exhaust Hawkeye's bow, play Genius for Vibranium arrow, pitching Genius. This deals 6 damage, which will defeat Taskmaster 1. We go to Taskmaster 2. Yo, Jello Shots, how's it going? Welcome to the side channel. You found it. We've been having a good night. We're already on Taskmaster. We're like near the half point of the campaign. Taskmaster 2, when revealed, deal each player an encounter card. Okay. Gets some tempo back, has 16 health, and has the same forced response. After a player changes to hero form, discard the top of the deck and take indirect. I love this setup. Glad you're liking it. It's our first time. We have small problems so far. The glare on our discard pile, not perfect. Need to fix that. And every time I go to this, like, it's really awkward because the microphone's in the way. I think the microphone either has to be here or on the other side. It might be better here because I generally do things this way. But we're figuring it out. I'm really stoked it's working. We have Global Logistics, which says exhaust a shield card you control to look at the top 4 cards in the player deck. We have no shield cards. I don't want to hold on to that. We'll pass the turn. Draw up to 5. So what are we looking for? Homeland Intervention. We have a build support to grab a support from our deck. There's still a lot of expensive supports. Found the Quiver. That's huge. As much as we probably have like 2 arrows left in the deck. Agent 13 and an energy to help pay for Agent 13 potentially. Not bad. All right, hunting down heroes. We'll add 1 threat to it. And then either we take a damage or add 1 more. We're going to definitely add 1 more here because White Tiger thwarts for 3. So that lines up well. Taskmaster attacks us, but instead removes the stun. And we draw 2 encounter cards. First one is Weapons Master. So this is what almost killed us the first time around. When revealed, the villain attacks you. If they have a weapon, this card gains Surge. Surge means you draw another encounter card. Luckily, no weapons. But Taskmaster is going to attack us for 2 and a card. Now, we have only 5 health. So there's a small chance if this card has 3 boost icons. Oh, that's a different Weapons Master? Not that one. Wait, what? Weapon Master? There's a card called Weapons Master and a card called Weapon Master. Okay. That's that. I've been working on a Table Arkham podcast and the tech issues with camera have been wild. It is so hard to get camera, like lit cards with Claire, to get the camera in a way that's like not frustrating, slightly crooked. There's so much going on. It is a lot of work. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. So if that's the case, like we either have to block with White Tiger, which feels like a waste, or we have to block ourselves. But ourselves is also a waste because we only have 1 defense. It means we won't die to the encounter card. So we could risk it, but I feel like risking it's not great. I think we're just going to have to block with White Tiger, unfortunately. So Taskmaster's coming in for 2 and a card. This has 1 boost icon, so it'd do 3 damage. So it wouldn't have killed us if we didn't block, but we have no way of knowing. It's going to take out White Tiger. Last encounter card. Nice. Another captured from Hydra. Bummer that this is now here after we lost our big thwarting ally. So this is going to get a random card underneath it. And if we can free this, we'll have another nice campaign ally in our deck, let alone in our hand. Okay, it's back to us. Looking at our hand here. So if we play Agent 13, it is 1, 2, 3, 4. It is our whole hand largely. That's not good. We probably do want to play her. We have no arrows, but if we like pitch to play our Quiver, we can look at the top 5 for an arrow. Now, I don't know what the arrow count in the deck is. I think it's 8. Maybe it's 9. So we played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe it's 10 because I think there's 2 of every type. There's 2 vibranium, 2 cable, 2 electric, 2 sonic. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is there a 4th kind of arrow? No, it's stun, confuse, threat, and piercing. So our deck actually has no damn arrows in it, if I'm not mistaken. One of the arrows might be a 3 of, but if I think the Quiver is actually like useless this turn. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we have 11 cards left. We have the Helicarrier in here. We have the Sky Destroyer in here. But we don't have arrows. So I surprisingly, I don't think we're keeping the Quiver. I think we have to throw the Quiver out. Oh no, we'll hold the Quiver. Not good. Very not good. The problem is like if we jump down, Taskmaster thwarts relatively okay, and this gives +1, so it'll be on like 4, 5, 6, 7 plus random, so it could be on like 11, maybe. Agent 13 might help. We still have no shield supports. We made a decision on turn 1. I think we're gonna go for it, so we'll do 1, 2. Homeland Intervention functionally just saves 1 damage from Agent 13. That's whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll play Agent 13. She costs 4. She comes in 4 health. And when she activates, we can ready a shield support we have. Unfortunately, we don't have any shield supports currently, so that text is not relevant. Can't play the quiver. We probably hold it. It is a good card. So Agent 13, at this point, I think, might just thwart the main scheme so we can safely jump down. Because obviously the less threat on the main scheme, the less likely we are to threat out when we jump down in Taskmaster schemes instead of attacks. I think we might have to do that, and then we probably just recover. So Agent 13 is going to thwart 2 on this. Bummer. And then Hawkeye is going to swap it down and then recover for 4 because we have that upgrade that we took. That exhausts Clint. And I think we're going to pass. I think we're going to hold the quiver just because it would be nice to set up. We want it before we cycle our deck. We're going to cycle our deck in 2 turns, I think. So we'll keep that. We draw 2. There's the Helicarrier. 3, the Government Liaison. 4 is Monica. 5 is a Field Agent. 6 is the Surveillance Team. Surveillance Team is ugly when we have Monica in hand because she plays a Surveillance Team, but she can play it from her discard pile. I'm pretty sure you can pitch the Surveillance Team to play Monica and it will be in your discard pile. I think by the time Monica enters play, I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it works like that. Our deck only has 6 cards left, so we'll cycle in a turn and a half. I don't think we have any arrows left. All right, hunting down heroes. We had 1 here. Now we have to decide to either add a threat there or take a damage. I think we're going to go for the take the damage just because we're worried that we're going to threat out. Oh, we put another one because of this acceleration. So it's on 3. And now Taskmaster activates. And because we're in Alter Ego, instead of attacking, he schemes. So we haven't seen this yet. So he's going to scheme for 2 because has a 2. And then the boost icons on this, 4. Oh, it's another captured by Hydra. So that's going to be 4, putting this at a 7 of 12. There's a small chance that we draw an encounter here that asks Taskmaster to scheme and we can lose the game. Oh, nice. This is the word I was looking for. Photographic reflexes. That's just the word that I couldn't come up with. This attaches to Taskmaster. It says when a player attacks Taskmaster, prevent all damage that would be dealt to Taskmaster and deal an equal amount of damage to a player's identity instead. Then discard this. So to get around this, you want to just do a really small attack so you don't do like a 6 damage arrow and take it to the face instead. So that's actually not that bad at all. That was a pretty soft encounter phase. Okay, back to us. We have a couple setup cards. Getting the Helicarrier down is totally fine. We want to get some threat down off of both hunting down heroes and captured for Hydra. I think our priority is probably hunting down heroes because if we draw an encounter card that says Taskmaster schemes, that's likely to hit 12 and we lose the game. So we can't let that happen. So one of the things we can do is that we can play Helicarrier somehow. So if it costs 3, no, that's too expensive. So I think we actually play Monica. So if we pitch Surveillance Team, Helicarrier, and Field Agent potentially, we can play Monica. She would bring the Surveillance Team back into play. Agent 13 means we can use the Surveillance Team twice. It would leave us with these 2 cards in hand. I think we just play the Quiver, even though it's useless, and just be set up for that. I think that might be the play. The other options, we can like maybe play the Government Liaison for 2, then use the Government Liaison to play Surveillance Team, Field Agent, and play Monica, bringing back the Surveillance Team. That's another option. It gives us this resource generator, but it means that we don't have our quiver, and I think we want a quiver before we go through our deck. We're going to be drawing 5, so we won't be going through our deck right away, but the quiver is incredibly important. It's probably apparent why that is. If your whole thing is throwing arrows and you don't have arrows, that's not good for you. All right, so I'm going to do it again. I'm pretty sure the rule works like this. I'd have to double check, but I think if we spend these cards, they're in our discard pile when the card resolves. So Monica Chang, Justice comes into play. Monica says, when she comes into play, you can search your deck and discard pile for a copy of Surveillance Team and put it into play and put another counter on it. And Surveillance Team is just a card that says you can exhaust it and spend a snoop counter to remove a threat from a scheme, which is kind of what we need to do right now. We have to decide, we're going to jump up, flip up to hero. The question is whether we want to recover for 4 or whether we want to attack for 3 instead. I think we actually rather recover for 4 because Taskmaster just does a bunch of like weird incidental damage, and attacking for 4 or in 3 into the photographic reflexes is just going to do 3 damage to us, which isn't great. We probably want to attack with like Monica Chang next round, or at least with Agent 13. So I think we're going to recover for 4. 9, 10, 11. We have 13 health, so we can go to, were we on 8? I think we were on 8. Were we on 7? I think we were on 8. We might have been on 8. I'm not sure where we were at. I'm pretty sure we were at 8, and then we go to 12. That sounds right. We'll flip up. Now we have to do the action order here. Yo, Sephiroth, how's it going? How's your Friday? What's up, gamers? We're going to use Exhaust Surveillance Team to remove one threat from a scheme. I'm going to work on this one first because I'm more scared of it. Because if this one goes to 12, we lose. I'm going to use Agent 13 to thwart 4-2, dropping this down to 4. That seems like it's safe. Yeah, there might have been a judge call there. It's okay. There's a VOD. It's fine. We'll figure it out. Now, when Agent 13 does an activation, we can ready a shield support. That's a big reason why we got this down this turn, so that we can do it again and take this down to... We have one more copy of the one that removes 2. So I think on 4, we're happy. We can start working on this one. So this will go to 4. Then we're going to use Monica Chang. I think Monica Chang actually might just attack for 1, just so we can get rid of this, because I think we're going to block with Monica Chang. Do we need more thwarting, or do we need more attacking? What do we want to do with Monica? It's hard to get rid of this photographic reflexes because all our attacks do more than 1 damage. So I think we're going to do Monica into the photographic reflexes. So photographic says that when you would attack Taskmaster, prevent all damage when a player attacks Taskmaster. Oh, wait, a player. I don't think Monica's a player, so that doesn't work. That's really bad for us. When a player would attack Taskmaster, prevent all damage that would be dealt to Taskmaster and deal an equal amount of damage to the player's identity instead. Oof, most of our attacks actually hit really, really hard. So the player part, I think, means that it doesn't work on minions, or on allies, excuse me. I'm not 100% sure, though. I'm not a qualified judge for this. I'll rule everything. Seems legit. Monica is instead going to go for 1 to captured by Hydra. And we're going to just play the quiver. In theory, we should have used the quiver first. I'm pretty sure there's no arrows left in the deck. Oh, there was. Oh, there was actually 10 arrows, not 8. Oh, you absolute fool. I guess we learned something important. There's actually a bunch of arrows in here. All right, well, at least we have the cable arrow. I was convinced there's no more arrows. Oh, wait, we can still shoot it. We can still shoot it. We're fine. We're fine. We're fine. We're fine. Shuffle the deck. Actually, we're really good. Hold on. We didn't plan the turn at all correctly, but we have some things to do. Usually, again, when I play, the camera's a bit more zoomed out, I guess, and I have 3 rows of cards. The fact that we have to put everything in 1 row, like usually I put my supports down here and my resource generators here and my hero cards here. Maybe we can zoom out the camera slightly, but I think at that point it's like way too far out. All right, we'll exhaust the bow. We'll generate a resource for an arrow event. We'll play Cable Arrow. Cable Arrow fires, removing captured by Hydra. This gets removed from the play. When we defeat a scheme, we can draw a card. I guess we will. Is this our card in our hand? Why are we holding this? Why is this card here? This was a card in the deck we were meant to shuffle. So we can choose to draw a card. The problem is once we draw the card, we won't have anything to do with it. But there's a chance that this card says when you play it, discard a resource of a certain type to have a good effect. Let's hope the card we draw has a resource of an effect that matters. So we drew our Sonic Arrow. It has a science resource. We get this. It's a Moon Knight. I think this is the draw card one. After you play a Moon Knight from your hand, spend a wild resource to draw 2 cards. Unfortunately, this is not a wild resource, but we do have Moon Knight, which is good. Just an ally for 0 is just busted. It's really, really good. So we're going to play Moon Knight, because why not? Comes into play. The Sonic Arrow, unfortunately, we might just hold on to because it's pretty good. It's our last arrow before our deck cycles. We're going to be drawing 5 cards, so we're going to be going through our whole deck. And we're going to just use Moon Knight to attack for... Well, let's just thwart for 2. That's our turn. We still have Hawkeye. Oh, no, we recovered. Hawkeye should be exhausted. That's our turn. That wasn't bad. That wasn't too bad. That actually came together pretty well. So we're going to keep 1 card. 2, we draw Mockingbird. 3, we have a Clear the Area, which removes 2 threat. Agent Coulson, and we drew on Adrenaline Stims. Oh, this was meant to be in play. Oh, we forgot to put this in play. It's one of our setup cards. Okay, so that's fine. Whatever. We'll draw a 5th card, but most importantly, whenever our deck is empty, we draw an encounter card and immediately shuffle our discard pile. So that was a setup card I forgot to put into play. This card's not going to do anything. It's the once per campaign cards, and I do not think we're going to use it on this scenario. It's just nice that, remember, we have this. It's a setup card, so I should have started in play. I forgot about it. It's fine. So we only drew 4 cards. We'll draw a 5th card. We just got to shuffle the deck. Okay, I'm just going to tuck this under here. And our 5th card is an energy. Nice. So we put 1 thread here. Did we forget to discard a card from the top of the deck and take... No, we took 2, I'm pretty sure, when we flipped up. No, maybe we didn't. Wait, are we really messing it up? When we flipped up, we were meant to discard a card and take indirect damage. I don't think we did it, so I'm going to discard this card and take 1 indirect damage. Because when you change from alter ego to hero. All right, so we put 1 threat there. Now we have to decide to either put another threat there or take 1 damage. I think we're going to put another threat there. And Taskmaster's going to attack for 2 and a card. We're going to block with Monica Chang. This is the big thing where you want like your allies to die or to be defeated before you cycle your deck. Because now Monica Chang is going to enter an empty discard pile. We're not going to draw her until we cycle the deck again, which probably won't be before the scenario is over. So attacking for 2 and a card. This has 1 boost icon. So 3 damage. It's going to defeat Monica. And now we draw 2 encounter cards. First is Mimicry. Mimicry says, hero, discard the top 5 cards of your deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If an attack card was discarded this way, Taskmaster attacks you. There's no attack cards here. None whatsoever. Weird. Most of our arrows are attack cards, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty good. It doesn't do anything. Next card is a Hydra Soldier. Hydra Soldier comes in. This is a pretty standard card. It has 4 health. It has guard, so we can't attack the villain until we deal with this. And when we defeat it, we get another encounter card waiting for us for the next phase. All right, that's back to us. Do we have any start of turn triggers? I don't think we do. So we have some things to deal with. Let's go look for an arrow on the top of the deck. We want to decide if we're going to draw cards first because we could thin the deck slightly. Oh, I forgot to put a preparation in the deck for Agent Coulson, I think. That's an easy fix. So we're going to start, just look at the top of the deck. What arrow do we want here? I think the stun arrow would be the best. We have explosive. Just explosive. Okay, well, we'll take it. Explosive arrow does 3 damage to every enemy, which is not great considering Hydra Soldier has 4 health. So we might not use it this turn. It's free though. We actually probably will use it this turn. I think Agent 13 will probably attack for 1 and we'll finish it off with the Hawkeye's quiver with the explosive arrow. So we're going to start. I think Moon Knight is going to do 2 thwarting here. And this means we can play our, if this completes a scheme, draw card. So we're going to clear the area, paying Agent Coulson. Do we pay Agent Coulson? Yeah, I think we're going to play Mockingbird. So remove 2 threat from a scheme. If that's the last threat off the scheme, draw a card. I guess we're not using surveillance this turn. Oh, we could have. Yeah, hold on. There's a better order for this. This was on 4. Moon Knight was on 2. So a better order here is we can use surveillance to do 1. It's on 3. Then we can use Agent 13 to attack to do 1. And after you use Agent 13, you can ready a shield support. So then we can use the shield support to bring this down to 2, which means we have Moon Knight to use to do 2 damage to the villain. We'll still clear the area, removing 2. Drawing a card. Ooh. We drew our White Tiger, who's really good at removing threat, but there is no threat on the table, so that's not going to do anything this turn. We'll still play her because she's really, really cheap to play. And then we're going to pay 1 to exhaust our bow to do explosive arrow. It does 3 damage to each minion and the villain. Now, this is not an attack, so it's not going to actually hit us with the photographic reflexes. When Hydra Soldier is defeated, we get an encounter card. Okay, again, photographic reflexes says when a player attacks Taskmaster. Fortunately, we're going to have to attack Taskmaster for 3 damage, and photographic says you don't do damage. Instead, Taskmaster hits you for 3 damage, and instead, so it doesn't get hurt. Couldn't find the card, that's fine. The technology breaks, I'm so disheartened. When a player attacks Taskmaster, prevent all damage that would be dealt to Taskmaster, deal an equal amount of damage, so stop hitting yourself. We're at 8. All right, Moon Knight's going to swing in for 2. We're on 11. We're going to get Mockingbird out, so we'll pitch 1, 2, and a Sonic Arrow for Mockingbird. We can always bounce Mockingbird back to our hand every round. We have no resource generators for non-arrow cards, which is a bummer. Normally, we're like set up a bit better than this, but we're actually paying full cost for most cards. So when the villain initiates attack, we can return it to hand. Great. Mockingbird will attack for 2. 6 goes down to 4. And finally, we'll just play White Tiger. Oh, we're over ally slots. We only have 3 ally slots. Maybe we just hold White Tiger in our hand. I think we do. I don't think we want to trash any of these allies because I'd rather block with... we probably block with Moon Knight this turn. Then we'll use Mockingbird and then bounce her the following turn. I think that's fine. So we'll just hold on to White Tiger because she's really good at removing threat. We're going to have some threat next turn. So that's it. We'll pass. Cards ready. So we draw one, we'll keep her. You can discard cards at the end of your turn, mind you. You don't have to keep the cards in your hand. Yo, Supernaut, how's it going? We're, I think, one turn away from Taskmaster falling. So we draw 2 arrows. Nanako the cat is here. I wonder if she's just going to hang out on the table. She's not used to this being a filming environment. Oh, hey, Nanako. I think she's coming. We might just get the full kaiju experience. Oh, she's trying to figure out how to get up here. I think she'll figure it out. He knows your moves. Yeah, we had to, like, photographic memories hit ourselves. All right, we'll put 1 there. Either we take a damage or put 1 more. We'll put 1 more. We're on 2. We've got this encounter card because of the minion. So Taskmaster's going to attack for 2 and a card. We'll block with Moon Knight. This card has a boost icon. It says after this activation resolves, place a pursuit counter on pursued by the past. Don't worry about that. That's not a real thing. And Moon Knight will take 2 damage, defeating Moon Knight. Nana, why are you going to climb on top of the air conditioner? Don't do that. Nana, where are you going? All right, we draw weapon singular master again. So I think we're getting attacked. The villain attacks you if it has a weapon. This card gains surge. So no weapon. But Taskmaster's going to attack us for 2 and a card. This is where we can decide to take it to the face. And I think we can't just take it to the face because I'm pretty sure we have enough damage in hand. So 2 and a card, 1 icon. So we'll take 3. Drops to 5. Nana, do not walk up on there. Nana, that is an air conditioner. It's not cat proof. Drawing near. Cool. This is one of the standard 3 cards. So this is a card type called an obligation. And obligations go in front of you. And they're cards that have a way that you can get rid of them. Usually they're alter ego actions. So now our turn's going to start. It says after your turn begins, discard the top card of your deck. We discard a card. Oh, we lost Nick. And depending on how many resources are on that card, we have to place that many pursuit counters on Pursued by the Past. I'll explain Pursued by the Past now. But as an alter ego action, we can discard an identity specific card from our hand to remove this card. Otherwise, we're going to have to do that every turn, which is okay because we're going to win the game relatively quickly here. Again, I want to emphasize this is one of the early campaigns and we're playing on easy. So if things look simple, it is kind of because it is. And I'm also used to this game. Pursued by the Past. There's this mechanic that every single hero comes with a nemesis and some nemesis cards. Classically, when you play the basic standard, there's just a card that's always in the encounter set that you can draw that's just called Shadow of the Past. And Shadow of the Past just says, whenever you draw this, pull your nemesis into play. Now, your nemesis are really cool. It's actually kind of a balancing mechanic. Certain really good heroes have really strong nemesis and vice versa. And it's a card that's like, you know, gives you a bit of flavor and lore and it comes into play. The problem is specifically for these scenarios where the early campaigns have massive encounter decks, the chance of you drawing this is very unlikely. If you're playing solo, again, if you play more players, you draw more encounter cards every round. But if you play solo, the chance of you finding your nemesis is like incredibly low. So you just never get to interact with all these cool cards that they make that are unique to Hawkeye. This guy is called Crossfire. Pursued by the Past is technology that was invented years later. It's called Standard 3, which you put in instead of Standard. And they're just a bunch of cards that say put a token on Pursued by the Past. And once it gets its 4th token, you clear all the tokens and your nemesis just shows up. So it's a nice way to like balance out some of these like, you know, imbalances potentially where you're not, it's nearly impossible to get your nemesis on turn 1, which can happen with solo. And that's not a great time to draw your nemesis. But in more games, you're more likely to get your nemesis consistently because this always ticks up as opposed to like just drawing the 1 of card in this pile of like 40 cards. It's a much cooler system if you want to see your nemesis because you just don't often see your nemesis. And that's a cool part of the game. All right, there's only 9 damage here. I feel like we can figure out this puzzle. So Mockingbird does 2. It's on 7. Hawkeye attacks for 3. It's on 4. And then we'll just shoot an old. We have to shoot 2 arrows. Let's search for an arrow. Let's go find a vibranium arrow. Damn it. We'll take the stun arrow. Wait, do we not have lethal? We might have not wanted to attack with Hawkeye. I think actually we have lethal. Agent 13 can just leave. All right. So then we'll use this exhaust our bow to do an electric arrow. We'll pitch 1 more. I guess it'll do 3 damage and stun. And then Agent 13 will just do 1 damage, defeating Taskmaster. Easy. No problem. Barely a sweat. Nanako has given up on climbing the radiator or the air conditioner. That's pretty good. Okay, how are we doing on time? It's 11 o'clock. There's only 2 more scenarios. We might be able to finish it. We're going to do 1 more and see how it goes. Again, there's only 5 scenarios in each campaign, and we're flying through it. Things are getting easier. The first scenario seemed to be the hardest. This next scenario is like a nice difficulty jump. And the final scenario is one of my favorite scenarios because it adds extra mechanics. Notably, This says, for each player who rescued one or more allies from the Taskmaster encounter set, add those allies to their deck, and they're now in our campaign, which is great because those are nice allies. The other two allies we could have got, one of them does a stun, is Shang-Chi, and Elektra does 3 damage, which are both very, very powerful. They all cost 0, which is obviously really nice. All right, let's just clean this up. So generally I pack everything so things that you have to pull aside are at the top behind the main scheme, and then we just have to deconstruct this. If you play on expert as well, not only does the villain get harder, you also have to add some worse encounter cards to the deck. These are pretty bad. But also some of the what was I going to say? There's something else that scales up on expert. Oh yeah, if you do expert in campaign mode, you're meant to actually track how much health you have at the end of the scenario. And then generally the campaign gives you a different way to interact with that. So a lot of them will be like, if you want to heal your health to full, you have to take this like negative card into your deck, or you have to make the scenario slightly harder. And so it does, you know, your decisions on one scenario really start to matter in the next scenarios. All right, let's pull this apart. So we have Hydra Patrol. Experimental weapons are always going to show up. Again, we haven't seen those, but there's always weapons in play, which a bunch of the villains care about that. I think we saw. Standard Hawkeye's thing, Hydra Patrol, and I think it's only Weapons Master that's in here, yeah. Cool, so 5 cards, nice. This is our stack. Taskmaster is retired. Oh, we have these set aside. It's like his first time he's touched cards. Oh my god, he's so nervous on the camera. I will put that. All right, this scenario was really, really difficult when I was getting to the game. I think it's a cool scenario. You can tech into it. I think you're allowed to change your deck between scenarios, but welcome to the world of Arnim Zola. Arnim Zola, I don't fully know the lore. Is some sort of, you know, mad scientist type idea. Comes in with Retaliate. Luckily, our arrows don't take Retaliate damage because they're ranged attacks, so we actually have a nicer time into that. But Zola also has very little health. The thing is, like, Zola is going to spawn these like mutates and these creatures, these minions. A lot of them have guard, so it's not that Zola is hard to deal with, but all these things that Zola creates are hard to deal with. And notably, there's a bunch of these upgrades that you attach to minions. And so if you don't deal with the minion, they continue to mutate and they get worse and they get worse and they get worse. So while Zola is actually relatively easy to rush with only 12 health on stage 1, the problem is the other stuff on the table, which is quite cool. All right, so the setup here, we have a bunch of things we have to set aside, but it's called the Island of Dr. Zola. Retaliate works like Arkham, or is different. It's actually entirely different. So Retaliate says after you attack somebody with Retaliate, if it doesn't defeat that enemy, you take damage equal to the Retaliate number they have. So generally it's Retaliate 1. So if I attack it, I have to take 1 damage back. If you defeat it, that's not the case because you don't have to worry about it. But in theory, enemies can get like Retaliate 2, Retaliate 3, and it can get out of hand. The only thing is the ranged keyword ignores Retaliate, which luckily arrows are mostly ranged. All right, we have to use... This is, again, one of the weird things. It uses Zola. It uses standard encounter set and only uses 1 modular encounter set. And the modular encounter set it uses is from the core set. Now, if you played Arkham, you're like, oh, that makes sense. They probably use encounter sets from the core set all the time. They don't. This is one of the only scenarios in the whole game that uses an encounter set from the core set, which is super frustrating because barring the standard 7-8 cards from the standard set and tokens, you don't need to buy the core set. The core set has good cards in it for deck building. Like, don't get me wrong. But like, in theory, if you just really like Spider-Man or like Miles Morales Spider-Man, you can just buy the Spider-Man box and you basically have something that's entirely complete. You don't need anything else besides tokens. It's frustrating. Besides the standard cards, it's like 8 cards, just proxy them. Okay, anyways, that's my rant. Standard set, this encounter set, which is a very important encounter set to keep in mind. It punishes you for blocking with 1 health allies. So just watch out. Now set up search encounter deck for Hydra Prison. I already have that set aside, and reveal it. Each player searches the encounter deck for a copy of Ultimate Bioservant. I have that here. Puts into play shuffle encounter deck. Okay, I wish I could buy Sinister Motives. I know people are still picking it up. It's a really good box, especially because it has most of these shield cards. It's really frustrating that the new box coming out as a shield card, as a shield box, and a lot of the shield support is in this box that's now out of print. So Jello, if you can find it, obviously don't like pay a lot of money for it, but it is a good box, unfortunately. Zola is one of those boring Captain America villains. Yeah, that makes sense. This box is very Captain America coded. Red Skull being the final thing. Okay. So Hydra Prison is a cool encounter set, cool scheme. Hydra Prison says when we reveal it, we have to search our deck for our unique ally. Again, most decks have one unique ally. In our case, I believe it is Clint's partner, Mockingbird. And you put it underneath here. You place X additional threat on this equal to the total cost of the allies beneath it. So that obviously scales the multiplayer, which is nice. So there's going to be 4 on here because she costs 3. And when defeated, we remove the scheme from the game and return each ally beneath it to its owner's hand. So she's trapped in the Hydra prison and we have to go get her. Notably, if you do not liberate the Hydra prison, you actually have to remove her from the game for the rest of the campaign, which is like not a great thing to do. I'd argue that there might be some characters in which like removing your like if you don't have a good unique ally, there's a chance that prison is fine. But you also there's a benefit you'll get in the campaign pool if you do also liberate your unique ally. So we're gonna have to get it. It's also cool too because we can control it. Like we can leave the Hydra prison on one threat, and then on the turn where we really need the ally, we can pull her out and have an additional hand size. You spent 2 whole days looking for it. I might have to find alternative means of getting the cards, which is sorry to hear that, Jello. I've heard people like buying it in different languages. There's some stores in Europe, but like I know how it is for sure. It's an absolute bummer. It's a good box. Don't beat yourself up about it. I'm definitely not helping. But there's a chance that they'll reprint it at some point. I don't know if it's a licensing issue or whatever it is. Like clearly people want it. All right, we also get an ultimate bioservant. It's a ridiculous name. I kind of like it. This thing comes in with 4 health. It also has toughness, which means the first instance of damage doesn't hurt it. It just takes the toughness off. Luckily, our vibranium arrows just eat toughness, which is a good place to be in. And this servant gets +1 attack for each attachment on it. So like the attachments make these things stronger. So you need to deal with them because they do get out of hand if you don't. To advance, we go to the island of Dr. Zola, side 2, which says it only has 6 threat before advances, so pretty low. That being said, it's not the last one. We don't lose if this goes through. It starts with no threat. It gets 1 threat per turn, and it says force response. This one's a bit tricky. It says after resolving step 1 of the villain phase, place 1 test counter here. That's just a generic token. It's like a virus counter. It doesn't actually do anything specific. Then if there are 3 or more test counters here, discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until a minion is discarded. Put that minion into play, engage with the first player, and remove 3 test counters from the scheme. So a couple of rules, things that are important. Put into play means you don't do any win revealed effects. That actually can be useful because some of the minions in the set have win revealed win revealed clauses that are pretty bad. Also, this is the then clause, so this only checks when you put the counter on here. So if you put the counter for a different reason because of an encounter card, it shouldn't fire that effect. That being said, you're also going to learn a really important rules timing thing here, where this happens during step 1, or after step 1 of the villain phase, so after you put the threat on here, which means if it summons a minion, the minion will be in play, the villain activates, and then all minions activate. So you will get attacked, or that minion will scheme. Oh, I put our deck in the tray, and this is the villain's deck. Great. Good stuff, Andre. This is going to be a very confusing game when we draw a hand of 6 treacheries. All right, we're off. The scenario is definitely going to be a bit more difficult. Clint Barden, again, we have a massive heal move if we need it. We have an extra recovery +4 health. Those are setup cards. Good to get those early. By that, I mean good to not forget that they're there. And let's draw 6. We want to deal with this ultimate bioservant. Our best opening might just be Vibranium Arrow, but we always want a certain amount of setup cards. Let's try and find our quiver. Moon Knight, very good. Spend a resource, a wild resource to draw 2 cards. Our deck doesn't have a lot of wide resources, but a 0-cost ally, it's hard to go wrong. There's the Vibranium Arrow. Nailed it. Monica, a bit expensive. We'll put her in the whatever section. We're drawing 6. Agent 14, a bit expensive, whatever. Clear the area. This removes 2 threat from a scheme. Oh, this should be on 4. No, that's right. We probably don't want that. Removing 2. Not fend. Oh, we could actually remove 2 with Moon Knight, 2 with Clear the Area. But I think it's more important that we deal with the ultimate bioservant before we deal with threat. And then lastly, Helicarrier. Helicarrier is nice to get early. It's a resource generator. It costs 3. So hopefully we get like a nice resource that produces 2. So I'll keep these 3. There's a chance we don't play Helicarrier. We got Skilled Investigator, we got another Vibranium Arrow, and we got Quake. So we have no wilds, so Moon Knight's not going to draw 2, but we can always play Moon Knight. We need to throw a card out to go get our bow. So we can always throw out, let's say, Quake, get our bow. Then we can fire the Vibranium Arrow, dealing with Ultimate Bioservant. That costs us 2. So we could throw out the Helicarrier. Feels bad, but we kind of have to do that. Then we can play Skilled Investigator, have Moon Knight. That's probably fine. In theory, we want to shoot our arrows at Zola because otherwise Zola has Retaliate, but I think that is the best we have. So we're going to start by throwing out a card to search our deck for our bow. Our bow gives us +1 attack. It gives our arrows range and allows us to shoot arrows because all the arrows say exhaust your bow. It's restricted. You only have 2 restricted cards in play. Those are mostly weapons, so you can't hold like 17 swords. Love this image too. It's so goofy. It's like he's in an IKEA showroom, and then instead of taking the like, you know, the size on the wall, he takes this arrow. Oh, hold on, that's not it. But like, it's one of those things where they didn't draw a lot of background. It just looks goofy. It just looks really, really silly. And he also mounts his bow above his like flat screen television in the living room. What's going on, man? Okay. That's that. We'll just go ahead and play Moon Knight for free. We can't spend a wild to draw 2 cards. That'd be really nice, but we just don't have a lot of wilds. In fact, we have very few wilds. Like actually our bow is a wild. Do we throw our bow at to draw 2 cards? That's not good because then obviously our bow's in our bin. But if we're in an alter ego, we can get our bow back. No, that's ridiculous. Don't even consider it. Clint flips up. We have +1 attack. So now we're going to spend 2 to fight a Vibranium Arrow. It does 6 damage with piercing, so it eats the Bioservant. That's nice. Oh, funny enough, yeah. We actually, we can't clear this. So Moon Knight, I think we're just going to thwart 2. Again, only our arrow attacks get ranged, so Hawkeye doesn't have ranged, which is kind of silly because you assume Hawkeye's attacking with a bow as is. So we're going to do 3 damage. So 12 goes down to 9. And we take Retaliate 1. And then we're just going to play the Skilled Investigator for 0. It says whenever we complete a side scheme, we can exhaust this to draw a card. So that's not bad. There's going to be a bunch of schemes in this scenario for sure. There's already one on the table. All right, drawing up. Sonic Arrow for Confuse is nice. Electric Arrow for Stun is even better. We have a way to make arrows cheaper. We have an energy, and we have an Agent Coulson. We forgot to put a preparation in the deck. Agent Coulson is another relatively cheap card in terms of shield cards, because after he enters play, you can search your deck for a preparation card. And if you don't care what the preparation card is, it functionally just gives you a resource back. So you functionally play Coulson for 2, because you pay 3, play Coulson, get a card back. And the preparation cards aren't bad. I just forgot to put one in this deck, apparently. All right, we add 1 threat, and then we add 1 test counter, and then Zola's going to attack for 1 in a card. 1 in a card ain't bad. We have our anti-squish technology, so we're just going to take it. It has 1 boost icon. We only take 2 damage down to 10. All right, counter card. We get Mind Ray. I like the simplicity of this card. It has very little text on it. Zola attacks you, you are stunned. Okay, so Zola attacks us for 1 in a card. We're still not going to block this one. Has place 1 pursuit counter. So Zola only hits us for 1. Not very strong. It's the minions that are strong. So we take 1, we're down to 9. And then we are stunned. Stunned is annoying. Mind you, villains can get stunned and confused. So can we. Stun just says the next time this character would attack, discard the status instead. Importantly, most of our arrows are actually attacks. So how it works is that you have to pay for the cost of the arrow. So in theory, we have to do everything before the arrow mark on the arrow. So we have to exhaust the bow. We have to pay 2. And then all we do is clear the stun. Not great. It's okay though. We can always exhaust to do the basic attack, which will clear the stun and then actually throw the arrow. But yeah, stun is annoying, especially if you have big events and it's hard for you to get around that stun. For us, it's not that bad here. So Moon Knight can clear the Hydra prison to go get our friend. I don't think that's super important. Otherwise, we can play an electric arrow to stun. But first we will exhaust to break the stun. This leaves us with 3 cards, which is not great. So we can pitch Coulson to play the Marksman, which gives us a thing. We actually might just use Moon Knight on Hydra Prison so we can draw a card with Skilled Investigator, because this hand's really awkward to play. If we had a preparation, we could like pitch 3 for Coulson, get a card back, and then we'd be kind of gaming. But I think Moon Knight's going to go for 2 into the Hydra Prison. Hydra Prison says, when defeated, remove the scheme from the game and return each ally beneath it to its owner's hand. So we're going to get back our friend Mockingbird. And because we completed the side scheme, we draw a card. Nice. It's just, we had 2 more resources now this turn to work with. All right, Field Agent seems unnecessary, as it usually is. We definitely want to play our Expert Marksman. That leaves us with a couple resources left over. Mockingbird is quite good. Let's just first attack to remove the stun. So we don't do any damage, but we also don't take retaliate. That's nice. So I think we're going to pitch 2 energy. We'll throw out a field agent. We'll get Mockingbird into play. This is our unique Hawkeye ally. And her text is really good, especially for a character that's relatively squishy, because as long as we can pay money during the encounter phase, we won't take damage. At least for 1 attack a turn. Now we're going to attack with Mockingbird. Now she takes 1 consequential and she'll take 1 retaliate damage, but she does do 2. And we don't mind because we're just going to keep bouncing her back and forth to her hand. So if she has 1 health, that's the same as having no health. Or infinite health. I think now we're going to play Agent Coulson to play our Expert Marksman, which generates 1 resource a turn only for arrow events. We'll exhaust that. And the Sonic Arrow to play an Electric Arrow, which does 3 damage and stuns. So this will drop to 4. And we don't take retaliate because the arrows are ranged. That's it. Clean. We used all our cards. That's a pretty good turn. So we're not going to get attacked this turn. I never did read the bottom and have the Hydra Prison show up again. Oh, you've done that? Oh yeah. Those ones that are like very very flavorful. A lot of times they don't show up again. So that's like the big thing for me. I'm pretty sure I've done it for the last encounter set with the ones that like have the prisoners. I've not removed those from the game. We have a stun arrow. We have an explosive arrow. We have a sky destroyer and a sonic arrow. So it's likely that we're going to try and put down the build support and clear that. So that will let us play our the 3 cost support that reduces the cost of 1 card a turn. I think that's a nice card to get down. All right, Zola. 1 threat, 1 test counter. On 3 test counters, something nice happens. Zola tries to attack, but is stunned. Mind you, being attacked for 1 in the card is actually not that bad. So maybe actually confusing is better. Who knows? And the counter card is under attack. Okay. From the core set. When revealed, civilians are under attack. They need your help fast. So much, just dripping with flavor. When revealed, each player chooses to either place 2 threat here or deal 3 damage to their hero. Oh, that's not that. That's kind of bad. This has a crisis icon, which means we can't remove threat from the main scheme until we clear this out. Now, looking at our hand, we have no threat removal in our hand. We have confusion, which is nice, and we have stun, which is nice. But if we put extra threat on here, we can't do much about it. So I think we're just going to put 3 on here and take 3 damage. That's a lot of damage. Feels bad, but that's how it is. Okay. So we're at 6. Moon Knight can thwart for 2. So we can't clear Island of Dr. Zola until we deal with under attack. We might just flip down so we can heal this turn. Because we don't really want to attack with Hawkeye. We could, but we're going to drop Zola to 1 health. Generally, when you drop the villain from stage 1 to stage 2, there's like some bad tempo thing, like reveal another scheme or spawn an enemy, something like that. And that's something that we probably don't want here. Now, the really annoying thing is if we flip down and we confuse Zola, Island of Dr. Zola is going to hit 3. We're going to hit a 3rd threat counter. And then there's a chance that the minion that shows up will scheme maybe hard. And then we could maybe hit the 6. It's pretty unlikely. There's also a chance that if we flip down and Island of Dr. Zola hits 3 test counters and we have to spawn a mutate, it'll be a quick straight mutate. And that one won't hit us when we're in alter ego. So that's actually worth something here. So what do we do with this hand? If we clear this, we draw a card. Maybe we actually do Hawkeye and Moon Knight clear under attack to draw a card. We want to keep Mockingbird forever because she can go infinite. And Hawkeye, either this turn we heal, which, yeah, it's not that important. I guess we'll do that. So we'll thwart for 1. And 2 for Moon Knight, defeating Moon Knight. And that clears under attack. Could draw a card. We got a government liaison. Interesting. So this makes shield cards cheaper, and Mockingbird is a shield card. So if we ever have to replay her. So here we definitely want to play the Confuse Arrow. So that will be 1 from the Marksman and then another card. So what does that leave us with? If say we play Explosive Arrow, that leaves us with 3 cards. So either we can play the Government Liaison and hold on to a card. We can play the Build Support and hold on to 2 cards, which doesn't feel great. Or we can throw out 3 cards and play the Sky Destroyer. And I kind of want the Sky Destroyer because the Sky Destroyer says once a turn when we play a shield card, we can just deal 2 damage. And it's not an attack, so it doesn't deal with ranged. So we can actually like ping Zola down. And we also can use this to take the tough counters off of the mutates. I think that's probably good. So let's make sure that lines up. So generate for an arrow, exhaust. We'll shoot the Sonic Arrow, 3 damage. And confuse, and we don't take retaliate because it's ranged. And then we'll play 3 for the good old Sky Destroyer. I usually put it on this side and forget that I own it. This card is not going to fire this turn, unfortunately. I don't think we had a way to fire it. But again, Once per turn, we play shield card, just 2 damage from the skies. Pretty powerful. Then we're going to jump down. We can't recover because we're already exhausted, but we'll draw a 6th card, and Zola won't scheme because Zola is confused. We're hoping to draw a quick straight minion off of the test counter thing, so let's see if we get there. All right, draw 6. Cable Arrow for threat. Clear the area for threat. Cable Arrow for threat. Homeland Intervention for threat. Global Logistics to look at the top cards of the deck. And Nick Fury. Imagine Nick Fury is going to see some play next turn. I don't like a lot of that hand. All right, the Island of Dr. Zola. How this works. So, after we put threat on this, we put a test counter. Now, if there are 3 or more test counters, discard cards from the top of the counter deck until a minion is discarded. Put that minion into play. So we're looking for a minion. Unfortunately, we got the ultimate Bioservant. This Bioservant comes into play. This is the one that we had on turn 1. It has toughness and 4 health, and it says if it gets attachments, it starts hitting us harder. All right, then we clear these counters, so the cycle restarts. So not the worst. Now, the villain will activate against us. The villain is confused, so it doesn't do anything. And now the Bioservant will activate against us. And because we're in Alter Ego, it'll scheme for 1. We're at 4 of 6. We have a not insignificant chance to draw a card from the top of the deck that says like the villain schemes, and we will probably have to advance. We'll definitely have to advance to the next main scheme. Technological enhancements. This is another reminder that you can't shuffle the discard pile. Insight 1, so we have to put 1 threat on the main scheme. It's on 5 of 6. Oh, not that bad. Place 1 test counter on the main scheme. I thought this was going to attach something to from the bin. It doesn't. Okay. So we're at 5 of 6. We didn't advance. We got as close as we can without hitting it. If we look at our hand, we have threat removal into threat removal. That's good. The issue is if we want to play Nick Fury, we have to get rid of one of our threat removal cards. We're definitely going to keep the arrow because we can play it for free. So let's play Nick Fury. The question is, what are we doing with Clint or with Hawkeye? Sky Destroyer can take 2 damage into the tough counter. Clint could attack for 3, which doesn't defeat the ultimate Bioservant, unless we also send in Nick, but we definitely need to be thwarting a fair bit. Actually, we'll get the Island of Dr. Zola down to 2 with just the arrow, so maybe it's okay. We could use Mockingbird and just trash Mockingbird. We're about to shuffle our deck, so maybe actually we can use Mockingbird and we can just heal 4 here. Recovering is like a weird thing to do. It's not fantastic. It's not great on tempo. I'm not going to use the like heal 5 thing. Oh, the Sky Destroyer? Yeah, the Sky Destroyer I don't think triggers itself. Yeah. I'm going to heal 4. So we'll go up to 10. We'll recover. We have enhanced recovery, why not? And we'll flip up to Hawkeye. All right, let's start by seeing what cards we're going to draw. Oh, there's a chance we'll draw a nice card here, like a Vibranium Arrow. I think we've only seen 1. Oh, no, we've seen 2, so we don't have the way to deal with the tough arrow. Okay, so we'll play Nick Fury. We'll pitch 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll draw 3 cards. I never consider any of the other options, like 4 damage technically is an option, but we're not going to do that. We'll just draw 3 cards. Nick Fury is removed at the end of the round, so we're going to block with him. We draw Surveillance Team, another Expert Marksman, and an Explosive Arrow. Interesting. All right, Sky Destroyer. We played a shield card. Let's do 2 damage. That takes the tough off. All right, what can we do with this hand? So if we want to defeat the Bioservant, we can do Nick and Mockingbird. The Cable Arrow is played for free with the Marksman. That leaves us with 3 cards. Either we can play another Expert Marksman, or we can just get them the Surveillance Team that allows us to do 1 threat per turn. I think we've already seen Monica Chang, because Monica Chang plays that card for free. Yeah, so we don't have to hold on to it. Yeah, I think that's fine. We can just play it. I don't think we need another arrow resource generator. I think we're okay. So we're going to exhaust the Marksman, generate a wild for an arrow, use the arrow, and it's going to be a Cable Arrow. Remove 3 threat from a scheme. This also ignores crisis icons, which I think I forgot about. That's usually a useful effect in some board states. I think there must have been a board state tonight where I forgot that matters. Nick Fury and Mockingbird are going to do 4 damage, defeating the Bioservant before I can get enhanced. Nick's on 2. And then I think we're just going to play Surveillance Team for those 2 cards. We'll exhaust the Surveillance Team and use a Snoop counter to take 1 threat off of his scheme. Now, we still haven't seen any of the cards that make the villain scheme, so just keeping it down means we won't hit the second stage. And the second stage that's a bit worse. Let's ready up. Nick Fury will block an attack here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We found the quiver. We just found a whole bunch of shield support cards. Luckily, these cheap cards mean that we can just do Sky Destroyer damage, which Zola's on 1 health. Like just about anything, obviously, we'll advance it. So 2 of 6, 2 of 3 task counters. Zola attacks for 1 in a card. We'll block with Nick. Why not? This is the laser rifle. Has 2 boost icons. So it's going to do 3 damage to Nick, defeating Nick. And our encounter card is Neurological Link. Neurological implants, more accurately. Attach to the minion with the most remaining hit points without another copy of neurological implants attached. If you cannot, this card gains Surge. It's going to gain Surge, but this is why we really went out of the way to delete the last creature, because these things compound, and it gets +2 hit points as well, so it gets even harder. All right, welcome to our basic set. Sinister Strike is coming in. Definitely need to write more than just Sinister and then auto-complete through all the options. Sinister Strike. Place 1 pursuit counter. We're on 2 of 4, and then the villain just attacks you. So we're going to be attacked for 1 in a card. We don't care. Zola doesn't hit hard. And it's +2. We found Clint Barton's Criminal Past. 2 icons, we take 3 damage. We're on 7. All right, back to us. So we're going to spawn an enemy next turn, a minion, because that's going to hit 3 test counters. So what do we want to do this turn? We definitely want to play the Government Liaison to start making our S.H.I.E.L.D cards cheaper. We definitely want to play our Quiver, because of course you do. And we can use the Government Liaison to play the Field Agent, or we can just play the Global Logistics to either look at the top 4 cards of the deck and actually see what the text of this card is, because I'm not exactly sure. So I think we're going to do that. We're going to pitch. We'll pitch. Wait, how do we play the Quiver? We have 5 cards. We can do 1, 2 for 1. Then we have to pitch this for that. Oh, that's ugly. That's really ugly. We're short a card. We definitely play this. We'll start with this because there's a chance we get an arrow that's playable. So we'll play for sure Hawkeye's Quiver for 1. And then we'll reveal this to look at the whole deck. So we should know if there's an arrow in here. The answer was no. Don't feel bad about that. Need to get that on the table. There's actually a chance we should feel bad about that. So let's check how many arrows exist. I think it's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, it's 10. So there's 5 kinds, 2 of each. Oh, you're not meant to shuffle this. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Okay. Because we could have kept that in our hand. So instead, I think we're just going to pay 2 to play the Government Liaison, which we can exhaust once per turn to play our next S.H.I.E.L.D card -1. We played a S.H.I.E.L.D card, so it does 2 damage. Are we going to do Zola and advance Zola when we can't do anything on the board and it's going to spawn a minion? Huh. There's an interesting thing too. Like when this is at 2 counters, sometimes you actually want to go out of the way to let the scheme advance, because when the scheme advances, it clears these counters. So when it's on 2, sometimes it's right to like just flip down and say Zola scheme through, but the counter's going to come in before Zola schemes. Do we want a Sky Destroyer for 2 damage? Because this turn we're going to get Zola, who I think spawns a new scheme. It's going to spawn a minion, and we're going to draw an encounter card because we're going to deck out. So this might be a really bad turn to advance. What is the wording on Skilled Investor? After a side scheme is defeated. So it's not going to work on this. Yeah, it's specifically a side scheme. It doesn't care who defeats it, but after a side scheme. So this is the main scheme. It also has to be defeated, not completed, in case like you let it go through if it was the main scheme. I think we just hold here. I don't think we jump down. Oof, yeah, not great. Really awkward tempo. Oh, I thought it was an enemy. Oh, no. Yeah, it's just side schemes. There's no card like that that draws a card after you kill an enemy directly. There's always like ones where they have to like get a bunch of counters. That'd be a really strong effect. Surprising there's no card just like that. Okay. So what are we doing? Thwarting 1 and hopping down and hoping it doesn't crash? Yeah, I think we actually might do that. If the scheme advances, the scheme advances. But if we thwart for 1, it goes down to 1. Then we're going to put 1 on it, so it goes to 2. Zola's going to scheme for 3, 4, and a random card. Could be 2 icons, could be 1 icon. So that could go to 5. But then the minion's going to spawn, and the minion's going to scheme. I think there's a chance Hawkeye does nothing. It's either Hawkeye schemes for 1 or Hawkeye schemes for 0, jumps down, and we're just okay with the scheme advancing. We have seen no cards in the counter bin that force the 1 Mind Ray. So I think the deck has like 2 Mind Rays, 2 advances left. So the chance of Zola scheming, that's the issue again. I've mentioned this before, but the early encounters, the deck is just way too big. It's too hard to predict what they're going to do. As they got better at designing scenarios, or more experienced, more accurately, I do like the early campaigns. This gets a bit more consistent. I honestly don't know what to do here. I think we just do nothing and hold and take an attack and probably take 2 attacks from the minion. And then we'll probably have access to an arrow because we have to shuffle the deck. But we're going to take 2 encounter cards, an enemy, and an attack. I don't want to advance. Yeah, whatever. Bummer. Maybe jumping down will be okay. I'm just going to stay here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really weird hand. A bunch of resources and nothing to spend them on. White Tiger can remove a lot of threat, but that's mostly it. And then we draw an encounter card because we have emptied our deck. We have to shuffle up immediately, not when you want to draw a card, just immediately. Hey, I'm going to try something. Let me know if this is better. So you see how the cards look here, right? Okay. Is it too bright? Like, I feel like there might be slightly too bright. If I jump 1 ISO. Is that better or is that too dark? Is this better? Was it too bright before? All right, we'll draw 5. So, Island of Dr. Zola, this goes to 3. This goes to 3. Now we start discarding cards. If we get a quick strike enemy, we get attacked twice. That might be an issue for us. We're looking for no quick strike. That's a reason to hop down. So we're just attacking until we find a minion. Ultimate Bioservant. Okay. Looks nice like this. You think this is better? I think there's a chance this is better. Maybe a bit dark. Looks better. Okay. Confused. Not 100% sure. I think I'll also have to look at the VOD myself. This looks slightly dark, actually. Yeah, it does look a bit dark. But the other one looks like a bit too bright. So I think I have to go up here once, and then I have to darken the lights a bit. There's probably some middle point. Okay, so this clears 3. Zola is going to attack us for 1 in a card. We can't afford to block this. 2 boost icons, 3. So we're at 6, 5, 4. Then the Bioservant attacks for 1. We're on 3. Now we get 2 encounter cards. We could die here. Unfortunately, this sometimes Zola does this. We're going to die. Zola attacks you. You are stunned. So we're going to get stunned. Technically not in that order. And Zola attacks us. It's a mind ray. We're going to have to block this. It's actually very likely we die here. Do we have a reaction? No. So blocking for 1, 1. Boost icon is 0. It adds a Pursuit to the Past counter. So we're getting close to finding our nemesis, but we take no damage. That seemed important. We are stunned and we're exhausted. And we draw Berserker Mutate. Oh my god, we're on 1 health. Berserk Mutate is the one that we were talking about before. It has Quick Strike. So as soon as it engages you, it attacks you if you're in a hero side, and it's going to attack us for 2 damage. We're on 1 health. Uh-oh. All right, this is when sometimes you leave Hawkeye on his own and things get really bad really fast, and it's not good for you. All right, good stuff all. Okay, Berserk Mutate, we don't have to deal with, because the Berserk Mutate, if we go down to our alter ego, doesn't do anything. It schemes for 0, so that's fine. The Ultimate Bioservant is always frightening. We are stunned, which is really annoying here, because we can't shoot an arrow. We have no way to get the stun off besides wasting an arrow, which means that the Ultimate Bioservant is going to stay for a turn. Oh, we had Surveillance Team last turn. I think we forgot to use. Time to end the low health Pokemon noise. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. All right, I'm going to start by just looking for arrows. I know we can't shoot them, but if we find a bad arrow, we'll just shoot it for free. Okay, if we find every single arrow on the deck. So I think we'll just have the cable arrow here because we can shoot it for free. Oh man, I'm used to using way more space than this. That's okay. So I'm pretty sure we'll just shoot that to get rid of the stun. And we have to pop down to alter ego and just hope that we're okay. So I think I'm just going to do it. I'm going to exhaust the bow, exhaust the markman, shoot the cable arrow. It doesn't do anything, but it clears the stun. That's okay. We need to get rid of the stun. All right, we want to play shield card. We can do that. So we'll play White Tiger. This is the one that we've rescued in the last scenario. After you play White Tiger from your hand, spend a science, whatever they're called, to remove 3 threat from a scheme. Cable isn't an attack. Oh god, you're right. Cable isn't an attack. You're right. It's a hero action thwart. Wait, do you remember the other arrows we saw? That's a good catch. Yeah, this is not an attack. Yeah, that's huge. It's huge. What were the other arrows we saw on that thing? Did we see a Vibranium? I think Vibranium, we might have saw an Electric. We saw an Explosive and Sonic. I think we saw Sonic. Definitely saw Sonic, and that is an attack. Yeah, we'll do the Sonic instead. Good catch. Really good catch. I think we saw explosive and sonic. So explosive is also not an attack. Okay, so instead of shooting that, did we put the cable arrow back? Yeah, we did. We have to shoot the sonic arrow, which I'm okay with. Sonic and vibranium. Okay, I'd rather shoot the sonic. Vibranium's really good in this scenario. Okay, so now we're thinking. So marksman doesn't pay for this, so we might as well pay the genius. We put white tiger into play. White tiger, we can spend science to remove 3 threat. I don't think we're going to do that. I think we're just going to exhaust and remove 3 threat anyways. So I think we're going to pay 2 from strength to sonic arrow to remove the stun. So that's gone. Clean this board state up. Oh, actually, no, we can do better than that. Hold on. Oh, okay, we're gaming. We're gaming. So this is here. So let's use the surveillance team to bring this down to 2. Hold on, let's rewind. This is stunned. Let's not play the white tiger yet. Okay, and now we can clear the area with field agent. Field agent technically is free because it's a government liaison and it does 2 damage. But I think I'd rather draw a card because we're holding all of these resources and we have no way to spend them. And that feels really, really bad. So I'm hoping to draw, like, I don't know, best case scenario would be the other big expensive helicarrier. So we'll clear the area. I want to actually wait. Do we heal the 5? Do we ready our hero and heal 5 damage this turn? There's a chance that's okay on the basis that like our hand stinks. So let's clear the area. Take off 2. It cleared the last threat so we can draw a card. Okay, now we drew a vibranium arrow. The problem is we also can't play that. So that's really bad because we're stunned. At least we can hop down and have like a medium chance this scheme doesn't advance. So yeah, it would clear the stun, which is good. So actually, let's do that. F it. Let's use the ability. Otherwise, it's going to be useless. So this is the thing that we got on turn 1. I think I often end up using this in this scenario or the last scenario because these scenarios are a fair bit harder. So we're going to discard this card, remove it from the game. Yeet. We'll heal 5. So we're on 6 and we'll ready our hero. This means that we have a way to deal with the stun. So I'm glad we pull this turn back and actually hit a much better turn. This means we can shoot 1 arrow or 2 arrows. Yeah, we'll probably just use our white tiger as a blocker. So we're going to fire the sonic arrow, which eats our stun, exhausts our bow. Then we're going to exhaust Hawkeye. And then this is gone. We now ready the bow when we exhaust Hawkeye. We'll exhaust Hawkeye's bow to play the vibranium arrow, which does 6 and eats the ultimate bioservant, which we cannot let that get upgraded because it becomes a nightmare. With the 1 card left, we'll play the white tiger. She doesn't do anything. Oh, she attacks for 1. That's actually worth doing because she's going to block. So we'll attack for 1 into the berserk, which means next turn when we hit a shield card, we'll just like destroy the mutate from the sky. That was a way better turn. Now we're on 6 health. We have the white tiger for block. Berserk mutate will attack us for sure. But hopefully we draw into a stun arrow or a confuse arrow, and then we can advance the scenario and not worry about it too much. So huge recovery there, actually. Really, really good. Energy. Vibranium arrow. Government liaison. They're not unique, but they don't compound the way that they work. Build support, which puts 3 threat. We can clear it to get something, and we have a threat arrow. So that actually is a nice combo that we can do build support into cable arrow. All right. Island Dr. Zola gets 1 threat, 1 test counter, and Zola attacks for 1 in a card. This is the funny thing, right? Like Zola's attacking for 1 in a card. It could be 1, but it also could be 4. But mutate is guaranteed 2. So there's some, people who gamble who would rather block the guaranteed 2 and not block Zola's 1. You in theory could look through the counter deck and see how many 3s we've seen. I'm just gonna block with White Tiger and say this is gonna be more than 2 damage. It is 1 damage. Bummer. Plays 1 test counter on the main scheme. Actually, hold on. So this is the Berserk mutate, but instead we're reading its Berserk. We're reading its text at the bottom. Place 1 test counter on the main scheme. For each test counter on the main scheme, Zola gets +1 scheme and +1 attack. Okay, no, so great. So it's attacking for 3. Somehow we're excited about that, but that defeats White Tiger. And then mutate attacks us for 2. We're not going to block. White Tiger lives? No, because it had more attacks. Yeah, it's doing a bit too much. Now, if we draw anything that puts a counter on Pursued by the Past, we'll actually get Crossfire into play, which is nice. But we got another Ultimate Bioservant. Luckily, we have the Vibranium Arrow, so that is perfect. So we're on 4. All right, 2 enemies. We have a couple things going on. We're gonna get an enemy next turn. Zola is so much fun. Let's go look for an arrow. Stun arrow would be good. I mean, beggars can't be choosers. We have the threat arrow, the cable arrow. We almost always see Nick off of that quiver. I feel like half of the quivers we see Nick. Okay, that's fine. So we can definitely shoot this arrow. And then we have a shield card in our hand. We do have a shield card. We can always just play the government liaison for 1 to finish the berserk mutate off. That's probably fine. We might jump down here and assume that's not going to advance because we're going to get another threat here, which means we're going to pull out another enemy. A lot of the enemies we haven't seen so far, we've seen 2 of the quick straight ones, but one of the ones we haven't seen is one that has a win revealed effect. So you actually rather grab it with Island of Dr. Zola than actually draw it. Weird the shield keeps hiding Nick Fury and Hawk's Eye. Yeah, it's really not good. We also need to draw back into Mockingbird. She obviously makes us very powerful. All right, so I'll spend 2. We could spend 1. No, we'll spend 2. It's fine. Then we lose this, but like, are we going to break change for this? No, because we're not going to spend a 2 coster. So we'll spend 2. Exhaust the bow. Shoot the vibranium arrow. It has piercing. We take out the bioservant. Good. Having tough technology, anti-tough technology is really good in this scenario. That's not obvious. Then we are going to exhaust the government liaison. I don't think we play the build support to play this government liaison, which is a shield card, which means we can do 2 damage with the Sky Destroyer. I think we'll just finish the surveillance team here for 1. And I think we'll flip down and then recover. So we'll flip down. We'll recover for 4. We're on 8. We have a cable arrow in hand. We already have 1 here. I don't think we want to keep another one. I'd rather draw into many other cards, including Nick and all of those friends. All right, 6 cards because we're alter ego. We have Monica, Sonic Arrow, Confuse Explosive Arrow for the enemy that's going to come out. And we found Nick. We did it. We believed in ourselves. So let's put 1 thread here and 3, which means we find the next minion. Find. This is the one I was talking about. This is Zola's Mutate. So this one is good to get off the deck because notably when you draw a card through the Island of Dr. Zola ability, it doesn't reveal the minion. And Zola's Mutate has a really powerful reveal effect. Hold on. Backwards technology. Zola's Mutate, 5 health. That's a lot. 1, 2. But it says when revealed, discard cards until you get an attachment. So luckily we actually get around that, which is quite nice. Now, Zola's going to scheme for 2 and a card because we're an alter ego. We have 2 boost icons. It looks like we're going to advance. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. We're on 5. And then Zola's Mutate is going to scheme for 1. So unfortunately, we go to the next scheme, which is the Mad Doctor. All right. That's a bummer too, because we had no test counters on there. Normally, if you have 2 test counters, you're excited because it clears the test counters, but we're already at 0 test counters. Zola's Mutate attacks you with Blind Obedience and Savage Fury. It's up to you to put an end to this nightmare before the Mad Doctor unleashes them upon the world. Each player searches the counter deck and discard pile for a minion and reveals it shuffled in counter deck. Okay, luckily, we have a little trick we can do here, which is if we reveal the Berserk Mutate, its Quick Strike will fire when it engages a player, but specifically the Berserk Mutate, or Quick Strike specifically, only fires when it engages an enemy, or sorry, a hero. So we dodge the Quick Strike. It's also very importantly at 3 health, and 3 health is good because we have an explosive arrow, so we can wipe the board, ideally by doing 3 AoE to everybody and then playing at least a shield card for the Sky Destroyer. So we should be able to clear the board. All right, Mad Doctor, we'll flip it over. Comes in when 1 threat, has a higher threshold than 8, and I think the text is exactly the same. After resolving step 1 of the villain phase, place 1 test counter here. Then if there are 3 or more, discard cards and then counter deck until a minion, put that minion into play, and then remove 3 test counters. If this is completed, however, we lose the game. All right, that was us. No, we haven't gotten an encounter card. Sometimes it's easy to lose track. Our encounter card is Drawing Near. Oh, this is not good. We're now also going to find out our nemesis. So Drawing Nearer. Our turn starts, and it says, after your turn begins, discard the top card of your deck, place 1 pursued counter on Pursued by the Past for each printed resource on that card. We discard Quake, which puts Pursued by the Past to 4. Now we get to see our minion. This is the back of Pursued by the Past, which you flip over once you get the 4th counter. It says, after you flip to the side, find your nemesis minion and reveal it. Search the set-aside area for your nemesis side scheme and reveal it. Shuffle your remaining set-aside nemesis set into the counter deck, flip this card over. So we're going to have a bunch of things to do. We get to finally see Crossfire, but also very notably, we're going to be shuffling a bunch of cards into the deck, and this deck is really thin. So the chance of us drawing the Crossfire cards are now really high, and a bunch of these just say do 3 damage to your hero. Like Crossfire just starts taking shots at you, so keeping your health up is going to be actually really important. So we have to keep that in mind that this deck actually is quite lethal. I often die to Crossfire when he shows up, and just organically now it shows up consistently, generally towards the end of the game, which I think is a great time for your nemesis to show up. After that, we clear all the threat off the Pursued by the Past, so he can show up again. Now let's talk about Crossfire. So Crossfire, Nemesis, has Quick Strike, so it will attack us right when it engages us. Luckily, we're an alter ego. It also gains Piercing, so it shoots through tough. It otherwise is pretty unremarkable. 2 attack, 1 scheme. That's kind of whatever. Now, Marked for Death is the scheme that comes into play. It comes in with 5 threat and has an acceleration icon, which is not good. And it says, when revealed, the Clint Barton player searches their hand, deck, and discard pile for Mockingbird and places her face up beneath this card. When the stage is defeated, return Mockingbird to the owner's hand. So luckily we didn't have Mockingbird in play, which would be a nightmare. This technically gives us a way to like get Mockingbird consistently on the table, which we definitely want Mockingbird, but she's now captured. And as soon as we clear this, she returns to our hand. So we still have to play her for 2, functionally with the Government Liaison. Crossfire, also going to be a target of our AoE damage, but is not going to finish him off, unfortunately. And again, we have to remember that there is a bunch of 3 damage shots now in the counter deck. Things have got interesting. All right. We can get rid of Drawing Near if we want to. It requires us to throw out a Hawkeye card from our hand. We have Nick Fury. I think we're just going to draw our cards first and see what happens. So what are we not going to play for sure? We can't use Government Liaison in Alter Ego because it's a hero action to reduce the next shield card, and Nick Fury is a shield card. So if we want to decide what we're going to throw out to Drawing Near, we have to do it now. We definitely want to keep the Explosive Arrow. Let's start by using Hawkeye's Quiver. We can use, oh no, it's a hero action too. We can't do that. So what do we do here? So we can get 4 cards. We're going to keep the Explosive Arrow. So that means if we play Nick Fury here, we just have to not deal with Drawing Near. We're throwing out a Stun Arrow. I think that's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. We'll play Nick Fury. Oh, wait, no. Because we can get rid of this and flip up and use Government Liaison. Okay, so better off. We'll discard the Sonic Arrow using the action on Drawing Nearer, which gets rid of the obligation because we're Alter Ego. We threw out one of our cards. Now we have to decide whether we're going to use Clint to recover or whether we're going to use Clint to attack. We're going to defeat every single card by just playing Nick Fury, Sky Destroyer, and the Explosive Arrow. So I feel like going into this last stretch, we probably should heal a bit because scheming 1 or thwarting 1 doesn't make a lot of sense. And we're going to take a bunch of damage from the counter deck going on. So let's recover 4. So we go up to 12 from 8. Our max health is 13. And let's flip up. We can start doing hero stuff. Let's start by, the question always is, do you want to play Nick Fury first or do you want to use your quiver? I think it's just random. It doesn't actually matter. In theory, I'll get the information first. So Nick Fury, reduces cost by 1. Cost 3. And we'll draw 3 cards. We'll pay 1, 2, 3, and Government Liaison reduce the cost, and we'll draw 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. Oh, Moon Knight's nice. No wild icons. Classic. Not that we have many. And now that we've played a shield card, we can exhaust this to do 2 damage. We'll hit the Zola's Mutate. Okay. Now, we'll use the quiver to look at our options. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we both have Stun Arrow and AoE Arrow. I think this is the most minions we're going to see in a bit. We know the deck has a lot of like Crossfire cards and those are not minions. So I'm going to go for the Stun Arrow. Our deck is like 10 cards. So we have 2 turns before we cycle. This goes back to our hand. Next, we're going to exhaust the bow and exhaust the marksman to do Explosive Arrow, which says exhaust the bow, deal 3 damage to every enemy. We're going to advance Zola too. I forgot about that. There's no way around that. So this takes 1. These get wiped out. Good AoE. This is why I like Hawkeye when you actually have like creative things. It does advance Zola to Zola 2. Let's see what Zola 2 is about. I think it spawns a scheme for sure. So Zola 2 Stell's Retaliate has 14 health, so still very small. There's a chance we can just like focus on pushing this and not care about these schemes. If we do scheme out, though, we lose. 14. When revealed, search and counter deck and set aside area for a pile for the test subject side scheme and reveal it. So we can look through the counter discard pile. I think I'd rather, it's always up to you to figure out which deck would you rather impact. I think I'd rather take this from the deck and draw. That's an interesting decision, right? Because if we go from the deck, it makes the deck more likely to hit one of those crossfire cards. And I think the crossfire cards are maybe not as bad as another scheme. I'd rather not draw another scheme here. Oh, but this scheme we haven't cleared this turn. We're going to pay for that. Let's see if there's one in here. It's test subjects. Yeah, okay. So this is test subjects. It comes in with only 2. It gives us another encounter card every round, so that's not good. And when defeated, the first player discards cards from the top of the counter deck until they discard a minion. Reveal that minion. Things are getting out of hand now because we're putting 2 threat every round. If Zola schemes off of the counter deck, we're not going to lose. So I think we probably have to ignore some of these and just like send enough arrows into the face. We have Nick Fury to block, and we have the Sky Destroyer for the next turn. So we're guaranteed going to do at least 8 damage next turn, I think. All right. So that leaves us with these cards. We can clear test subjects drawing a card. That's kind of whatever. We can't play another arrow. If we had a wild icon, we'd be in a good spot. We're definitely going to play Moon Knight. The question is, what do we do with these 3 cards? We have 2 arrows and clear the area. So I think we play a clear the area. What do we clear? Like we might just clear the Mad Doctor. If we draw a card, we'll have 3 cards and this is our hand. That's not that much better. So I don't actually think we need to play clear area to clear the card. We can just like work on Marked for Death because getting back Mockingbird would be good. If we do Nick Fury and Moon Knight to scheme 4, we can then clear Marked for Death with clear the area, drawing a card. That'll put us on 1, 2 cards, and then we can't. Oh, we could play Monica because Mockingbird because she's a government liaison. Wait, actually, that's sick. We take 2 damage from a crossfire, but I don't think we care. Hold on, that's much better. Additional counter card might be good to stop. Yeah, but it spawns a minion, and I don't want to spawn the minion. Hold on, what does it do though? It reveals that minion. That's bad because I think the minion that we have most copies of left is the Zola's Mutate, which is the one that actually like on reveal draws upgrades. I think that's the only thing left in the deck. So I think we just leave that. So hold on. So I think we play Moon Knight. I think Nick and Moon Knight will thwart for 2 each, taking consequential ease into Marked for Death. Then we'll use this electric arrow to play Clear the Area. I don't think I've shown this card on screen yet. It's a very, very good card in solo because a lot of schemes don't have a lot of threat. Once there's like 7, 8 threat on schemes and multiplayer, it's a lot worse. Remove 2 threat from a scheme, but this removes the last threat on the scheme, draw a card. So not only is that going to clear Marked for Death, which means that we get 1 less threat, we draw Mockingbird, we draw a card from Clear the Area, but we also draw a card from Skilled Investigator. So now we have 4 cards in hand. Hold the phone. Wait a second. Maybe we should have cleared test subjects. All right, so we have Global Logistics, which we could exhaust the shield card to remove 2 threat. We probably won't. We'll do that from the Mad Doctor. So I think we just play Mockingbird here. We exhaust by 1. We play Mockingbird for 1 fewer. So we'll play 3. I think we keep the electric arrow. So maybe we'll just do this. Pay for 3. Mockingbird comes into play for 3. Mockingbird will now exhaust to kick Crossfire. Yeah, wait, that turn was way better. Sick. Okay, we'll keep the electric arrow. We just want a bit of a damage arrow. We know how many cards are left. We're going to see nearly half the deck. And in terms of the big arrows, we're looking for Stun and Vibranium. So there's 1 Stun in here, 1 in our hand. Vibranium, 1 and 2 in the deck. Okay. Let's draw up. Nick will block. And then we have a Mockingbird blocker after that. We set up a fair bit, which is good. So 1, 2, 3. Homeland Interventions we haven't played. Clear the area is okay. We can deal with test subjects, draw 2 cards, and we got the Helicarrier back. Okay. So we put 2 here. 1 test subject. And Zola's going to attack now for 2 in a card. Zola got a bit stronger. So we're going to block with Nick Fury because he's out at the end of the round. It's going to be 5 damage. Nice. Thanks, Nick. 2 encounter cards. You draw them first for what it's worth. The order that you draw cards is actually kind of cool. It plays with Surge in interesting ways. And if the card decks out, it does some cool things. Okay, Concussive Blast. This is from the core set. This is one that you have to be very careful that you don't block with 1 health allies. Not you. The other one? There's 2 cards with the same name. I find that so strange. Do we not have it? Huh. Must have spelled it wrong. This says when revealed, deal 1 damage to each friendly character. So that's us, that is Moon Knight, and that's Mockingbird. Its boost says deal 1 damage to each character you control. So if you block with a 1 health ally and you draw Concussive Blast as the boost card, that ally defeats, and then you can't block with a different ally, it goes straight to your head. So it's a card that when it's in the deck, you have to play around. But unfortunately, this deck is like way too many cards. And then we draw Pain Inhibitors. Attach to the minion with the most remaining hit points. If you cannot, the card gains Surge. Okay. This gives a minion +2 hit points and retaliate. It's annoying. And we got Zola's Mutate. This is the one that we were talking about that we wanted to play around. So when revealed, discard cards from the top of the counter deck until a tech attachment is discarded attached to Zola's Mutate. We lost a tech attachment. Oh, there's other attachments. Apparently we have Crossfire's Rifle. That's not going to work. Another Mutate. This is our tech attachment. So it's the same card we saw before. So it's going to get attached to the minion with the most remaining hit points. It gets +2 hit points and gains Retaliate 1. This is another good reason why I like marking with these dies. So it is at 7 with Retaliate 1. Again, if you defeat the minion, the Retaliate doesn't trigger. And it also only triggers on attacks. So things like the Helicarry don't mind. All right. So now we can sort this out. Again, this minion doesn't have guard, so we can ignore it. So we can figure out if we have enough damage. We know we do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that drops Zola from 14 to 7. Can we do 7 damage out of our hand? We can do 2 with Sky Destroyer, so that's 5. I don't think we can do it. If we see a Vibranium Arrow off the quiver, maybe. Right, we know that there's none. So we'll get the Explosive Arrow. Our last 3 cards are kind of whatever. If we... So if we get test subjects, it says the first player discards cards from the deck until they find a minion. Because the deck is actually pretty low on cards, there's a chance that if we discard the whole deck, we just miss, and then you don't shuffle the deck. So this actually might be an okay time to get this, because the deck is only like 4 cards. There's actually not that likely there's a minion in there. So I think we will clear that. And even if there is a minion, we have the Explosive Arrow to deal some AoE damage. So I think we're going to start with that. We're probably not going to play the Helicarrier. It's too late. So we'll pitch the Helicarrier and clear the area. Remove 2 threat from a scheme. If that removes the last threat, draw a card. And then we can also draw a card from Skilled Investigator. So we'll get rid of this, drawing 2 cards. Hopefully we get Coulson. Yeah, we did. And now we have to discard cards from the deck until a minion and reveal that minion. 1, 2, 3, 4. First time this has happened. So it's not going to happen. Notably, these cards are discarded. From my understanding, they're not in the discard pile. They're in some weird limbo space. I might be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. So these cards are not in the discard pile. But notably, the discard or the deck is empty. So 2 things. Firstly, we add a permanent acceleration token to the scheme. So every round now, we're going to be adding 1 per player +1. And now we just shuffle this. We stop discarding cards on the basis that we did as much as we could. We never shuffle the deck and keep discarding. So that's a nice thing that you can time around. We've also got all these sniper shots, which are 2 of the cards that we were playing around to some extent from our Nemesis. And this just says deal 3 damage. So these are now in the discard pile from my understanding. I might be wrong about that rule. I'll have to look into it, but I'm pretty sure cards are discarded to, no, they're probably actually straight into the discard pile. Actually, that can't be right. We'll just put those back in. In what case wouldn't that be the case? If it's like reveal or set aside, but these are discarded, so they go straight to the discard pile. That's fine. Again, the rules about that are a bit fiddly, maybe. All right, so it's still us. We're going to be adding 2 more. The deck is totally shuffled, so we have no idea what's going to be going on. We have an Explosive Arrow, which doesn't do that much. We want to keep Mockingbird at 1 health. We can do 2 damage to that, but then we can't defeat it. Oh, we can. We can defeat Moon Knight. And actually throwing Moon Knight into the bin before we shuffle is probably good. So I think we will. Yeah, I think we will. We're going to attack Moon Knight for 2. Moon Knight is defeated by consequential damage before the retaliate, I think. Regardless, defeated. Then, can't believe we don't have a preparation card. We're going to exhaust Government Liaison to reduce the cost of the next shield card. We're going to play Agent Coulson. Agent Coulson comes into play. We still have, I think 2 cards here. But Agent Coulson says, after you play, search your deck and discard for a preparation card. I totally forgot to put a preparation card in this deck. So we're going to discard a couple cards here. 2 more cards. We'll get rid of Homeland. 2 Homelands. That's a shield card. We can exhaust Sky Destroyer to do 2 damage. It's not an attack, so there's no retaliate. Coulson's in play. And now Hawkeye's going to just attack for 3. And because this attack defeated the enemy, you do not take retaliate. It's only if the enemy survives. So that's that. So now we still have Retaliate 1 on Zola. We don't want to do anything with Mockingbird. Obviously, Agent Coulson hitting the Mad Doctor is a bit silly. I think we're just going to do the stun arrow. So we're going to do Expert Marksman to generate 1. Global Logistics to fire the electric arrow. That does 3 damage and stuns. And we don't take Retaliate because it's ranged. And we're just going to use Coulson. It's a bit overkill, but we'll just try and keep this down because we lose if this hits 8. And we don't want to do that because we're pretty close to the finishing line here. We have to draw 2 encounter cards. We draw our last card, which is a field agent. We shuffle this up and we get ourselves an encounter card waiting for us. Luckily, Zola won't attack, but that doesn't mean that we won't draw an encounter card. And still, if we get attacked, we can bounce Mockingbird back to hand, which is super effective. We take no damage. We can fire Sky Destroyer. Government Liaison is cheap. Man, I don't like how this is. If I don't have my space, everything gets crooked. I'm like the kind of player who like straightens everything pretty meticulously, but I just do not have the space to do it here. This is in here. Also probably should shuffle on camera. I think that's just like an etiquette thing. All right, draw 1, 2. Explosive arrow, Monica Chang 3, cable arrow, whatever. We want a stun arrow. Nice. All right, we put 2 here now because of the acceleration. This goes to 2. Zola would attack, is stunned. We draw 2 encounter cards. First encounter card is Mind Ray. It says Zola attacks you, you are stunned. We're stunned. The attack goes through first. Zola is attacking for 2 in a card. We could decide not to block it, or we could bounce Mockingbird. I'm going to bounce Mockingbird because then she full heals. It says interrupt. When the enemy attacks you, spend a resource. So I'm going to just throw out the field agent. Yeah. Return Mockingbird to your hand. Prevent all damage from this attack. So Zola's coming in for 1, 2. Boost icon is shuffle Zola mutate into the counter deck. So it's just 2 damage, but we take none of it. We are stunned. That's annoying. Next card. Attaches to minion. There's no minions, so it gets Surge. This deck is way too big. Like, this is absurd. This is comical. This is not how encounter decks look like later. Attached to the villain. Hey, it's our energy shield from our first scenario. Gives the villain retaliate. So no joke, the villain has retaliate too. That's not super common. We can spend an energy and a science icon to discard this card. This is one of the weapons that was stolen by Crossbones. So double retaliate. All right, start a turn. No triggers. Let's look for an arrow. We have Confuse Arrow, Vibranium Arrow, Sonic Arrow. So Confuse or 6 damage. We have a stun in hand. So I think we're just gonna get the Vibranium Arrow because we're starting to damage max. We need a damage max here. 11. If we talk with Hawkeye, it's 3. Explosive Arrow is 9. Agent Coulson is 10. Sky Destroyer is 12. We should have it here. We just have to play a shield card. Okay. So we'll exhaust Government Liaison. Next shield card is a bit cheaper. We'll pitch 1, 2, 3. Mockingbird comes in for 3. We played a shield card, so we can exhaust Sky Destroyer to do 2 damage. Doesn't do retaliate. It's not an attack. 9. All right, next up, we're going to exhaust the Expert Marksman and throw out Monica Chang. Exhaust her bow to throw out a Vibranium Arrow. That's 6 damage. 9 down to 3. And then Hawkeye attacks for 3 damage because it defeats. We don't take retaliate 2. That's Zola. We got there. The final instructions here. Unfortunately, we're going to stop here before we get to the final scenario. But it says each player engaged with an enemy records they are engaged with an enemy in the campaign log. I didn't know that. It's good. There's no enemy. If the Hydra Prison side scheme is still in play, you lose your ally. That doesn't happen. And if the Hydra Prison scheme is not in play, which it isn't, each player in the hero form may replace their basic condition with its improved side. So we took basic recovery upgrade, and now it's going to be improved recovery upgrade. I don't possibly understand what that could be. Improved recovery upgrade says still get plus 4 hit points, plus 1 rec. So that's recovery. But after you use your recovery, exhaust this card to draw a card. Okay. That might fire twice a campaign. The ones where it's like every time you attack, draw a card, or every time you thwart, draw a card might obviously be a bit better, but having plus 4 health was kind of the reason we took this. So pretty goofy. Final scenario is against Red Skull, who takes over the White House, and there's this like cool deck of side schemes that every turn there's a new side scheme, and you have to constantly keep the schemes down because Red Skull benefits. It scales for every scheme that's in play, and it's a lot of fun because the side schemes are bad, but they also have benefits when you clear them. So you're trying to juggle to keep the schemes down while also like getting in a fist fight with this this guy. That's it. That's it. Again, we've been streaming now for about 4 hours. That's way longer than I thought it'd be. Oh my God, it's midnight. We're going to shut this down pretty quickly. But yeah, if you're not on stream, mind you, like a campaign of this, you can do in a sitting, like 2.5 hours, 3 hours, no problem. We had some pretty exciting scenarios, I think. Like getting down to 1 health twice happened. I'm glad that we used that unique upgrade to like survive and actually have a power turn, which is nice. Because like Hawkeye clearly has some downsides, but you can play around them. And I think the shield deck is quite fun. I think I'm struggling to play these 0-cost cards. They're just not lining up well. And I think there are very good cards. They do like unique things, like looking at the top of the deck sets it up so you know what the boost icon is, and then you're not as flimsy potentially. But that's it. Thanks so much for hanging out. Mind you, this is the Crash Space. The setup is going to be here for a long time. We're going to be doing different things on this channel for sure. And if you're dropping in, you're watching this later, you want to leave a like on the video or say hi. For those who came in and watched live, thank you so much for joining for this live first stream. Hopefully you enjoyed some Marvel Champions, and that's going to be it for tonight. Enjoy your weekend, y'all.